Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching What If Naruto Was Trained by a Heavenly Dragon. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no time, let's start the story.
Something had to be done when the 10-tailed beast went on a rampage and devoured everything it wanted many centuries ago. No one ever remembers the teacher of such a remarkable individual, despite the legend surrounding the Sage of Six Paths. It is accurate to say that all masters were once students. The samurai dragon, a creature that taught him, came from the Oriental itself. Every 500 years, a creature is permitted to transform into an Oriental dragon, the leading deity in heaven, for a neighboring land in the oldest known scrolls. The samurai dragon was more frequently referred to as Draco until the day of the nine-tailed fox's attack on Konoha. He and the dragons had never faced a threat or had an effect on the world for centuries. At the beginning of that day, Minato, the fourth Hokage, was doing very well. The village had minimal paperwork for the first time in a long time, was safe, and his child was due in secret. The village was quiet as night fell, but the Hokage baby was being born in a safe house. But when Kushina gave birth, the terrifying nine-tailed fox that she had been holding inside her broke free from its seal and materialized close to the village. Minato hurried out of the safe house after telling himself, "I got to stop it." Shinobi rushed to stop it, but many were blown away by the fox's roar. But Minato encountered something before he could engage the fox in combat. There was an elephant-sized dragon on a building with its 4 legs, wings, and spikes down its back and tail. It resembled a European-style dragon. It had a big, boxy head with horns facing backwards and a mouth full of kunai-sized teeth. It was difficult to determine its color because, aside from the wings, which were black with yellow Sage of Six Path markings on them, the rest of its body was covered in black samurai armor. The dragon said, "Good sir, may I have a word with you?" Minato questioned, "Did you just talk?" As it glided softly to the ground, it said, "Yes, I did. Do you mind if I talk with you? It will only take a minute." The Hokage inquired, "What is it that you want?" "Allow me to introduce myself. Your race never could pronounce my true name, so call me Draco," it said. Minato said, "Draco, I have to stop the nine-tailed fox." "That is what my first apprentice said at first, then he wanted to fight the 10-tailed beast," the wise Draco replied. Minato exclaimed in shock, "Wait a minute, you're the Draco? The teacher of the Sage of Six Paths?" Draco answered, "The one in the same." Minato questioned, "Why are you here? You are supposed to be dead." "The great Oriental dragon sent me here to warn you. If you fight the fox, it will one day be the end of your son, but before that he will become a great ninja if you let the Orient to handle the beast. Your son will become a warrior far greater than anything the world has or will ever see again, one that will have the Orient on his side, and forever live in great power, discipline, and content with happiness," Draco replied. Minato questioned, "Do I have to pick one of them?" Draco turned to fly away, but Minato grabbed his tail to stop him. "No, you don't have to take either, but I'm just warning you of the consequences. Think about it as long as you need. I don't want my son to die because of me. Please, get rid of the nine-tailed fox," Minato replied. "There is much conflict in you, but you also want to do the right thing for your son. It was a difficult choice, I know, but I will not fail you when this battle is done. We will talk this over some tea, and discuss how to train you, son. Now it's time to show this fox a lesson it will never forget," Draco responded and ascended to the top of the statue of the Hokage. He started reciting something in a language that no one could understand while standing on his hind legs and roaring loudly but softly into the sky. He maintained the ninjutsu dragon symbol with his hands throughout the chant as far as the eye could see. Thick, black thunderclouds filled the sky. The fox gazed up at the sky in wonder as lightning and thunder rained down. Hundreds of Japanese dragons of various sizes and shapes soared from the clouds. They did not land on the Hokage monument, but rather on the village walls, buildings, and street. Draco addressed the army, saying, "Minoka Tai Saka, brothers, we are needed in this time of chaos." One of the dragons questioned, "Zama wa Toika, why must we help them?" "Kiata Mito we Takar wa Yakutursa," Draco answered, "That is what our master, the Oriental dragon, wishes." They were enraged just by the mention of the dragon's name, and Minato leapt up to Draco to understand what was happening. "How did you respond to them?" Minato inquired. "I said to them, our master, the Oriental dragon wishes for us to fight for you in this dark time," replied Draco. "The Oriental dragon is who?" Minato inquired. "Takar wa Yakutursa is the one who keeps his brother Kinseizi ka Vincenzator, also known as the Eternal Darkness Dragon, from destroying the earth and the heavens. Each faction performs a ritual that gives a chosen being life force to strengthen them once every 100 years, Draco retorted. "The opposing side is guaranteed victory if one of the rituals is stopped." "Is that a sacrifice of my son?" Minato questioned in horror. Even I am unable to predict that boy's future. Time will tell how he relates to the ritual, Draco said before taking off to lead his brethren. The enormous group of dragons, which outnumbered the fox by 10,000 to 1, circled it and swam its claws and tails at them. However, the dragons skillfully looped, twisted, and darted out of the way of its blows, and then they all roared a low-pitched roar to announce the arrival of the Oriental dragon, which soared out of the clouds and landed in front of the fox. It was simply astronomical in size. With thick spiked mounts on its back that resembled mountains, it also had hair on its head that resembled a Japanese dragon, and its body was similar to one. Great fox, stop this senseless violence to the humans, it roared. Why do you believe you can stop me? I will not relinquish my role as their vision of disaster. The fox gave a roar in return. The dragon answered, very well, you leave me no choice. When he opened his mouth, the fox saw only a white light down his throat that was so bright he could see it with his eyes closed. Chakra was leaking from the fox's body and being drained by the enormous dragon. Gradually, his size and power were drastically diminished until he was only as big as a regular fox kit. The fox fled in sheer terror as quickly as his little legs would allow. Minato Namikaze is where? It questioned Draco. Right here, sensei. Draco respectfully answered. Minato approached the enormous creature, and the dragon opened its hand to allow him to rise. The enormous size of the creature lifted him to his head, and Minato jumped up, but he was exhausted. You have chosen wisely, and I will keep my word over what will happen to your son, the dragon replied. Thank you, you saved the entire village, you will be remembered, replied Minato. Your compliment is heartwarming, but I have to leave, the dragon said. The longer I stay away from my duties, the more danger we are in. After placing Minato back on the ground, he took off, leaving thousands of dragons in his wake, Draco being the only one remaining. Should we go have tea together? Draco inquired. They went to a tea house after Minato said, after you. 10 minutes later, the tea house. I'm sorta surprised on how much praise you're getting, Minato replied. Draco said, indeed. He then threw a few children off his tail and sipped his tea. How will we train him, then? Minato inquired. Simple, point him there, and he'll figure it out himself, replied Draco. Minato remarked, that's the worst idea ever. He'll grow up to be a bright boy. It will function perfectly, Draco reassured. I'm not sure, what are you going to teach him? Minato inquired. Weapons, armor, fighting styles, and knowledge of all kinds, Draco replied. How much time will it take? Minato inquired. 12 years, to which Draco answered. May I speak with you, sir? A medical nin inquired. Minato said, yes, be right back, and moved away. Sir, it's your wife, she died while giving birth, he responded. What? How could that occur? Minato uttered those words in utter surprise and disbelief. It was the simultaneous birthing and the fox's release, sir, he said. I apologize, but it was too fast for us to take any action, and walked away. Draco called and took another sip of tea, saying, Minato, it's okay, the boy will manage, and so will you. I feel sorry for him, he will never know his mother. Minato broke down. I'll return to pick him up in the morning. Good night, Draco said before heading out. Minato collapsed on the table in tears, grateful that his son was still alive but also aware that he would never see his wife again. Would it have been wiser to decline the offer? It's been 12 years. Naruto, who was around 5 feet 5 inches and had toned muscles from his training, stood in the center of a clearing. He was dressed in a red-painted bronze-scale armor vest with bronze chainmail around his waist that extended to his knees. He wore steel-toed boots and lower-down bronze greaves. He wore a red-painted wood shield with bronze edging for strength. He used a one-handed iron war axe with 2 blades. 5 shinobi, each wearing a musical note on their headband, leapt out of the shadows and surrounded him. It didn't matter who sent them. Naruto could tell by the expression in their eyes that they were there to kill him. The first one leapt and attempted to fly punch him, but Naruto fought back, using the edge of his shield to break his cheekbone. The shinobi lay dying with bone fragments flying all over his head. Then, 2 of them counterattacked, one donning metal gauntlets to boost punch damage and the other attempting to divert Naruto's attention with high-frequency noises to confuse his mind. Due to his helmet, Naruto was unable to hear the sound, so he backed behind his shield and threw his punches with full force using his axe. He chopped his head downward, swung over his shoulder, and then gave the person attempting to divert his attention an uppercut that went through his belly, into his groin, and broke his ribs. Another attempted to stab a kunai in his neck while he was in a headlock, but the neck guard on the helmet prevented any serious harm. Naruto swung around with a sideways chop to the neck after escaping his lock with a shield bash to the head. The last one took off running as quickly as his legs would allow, smiling. He removed a rag from a pouch and used it to wipe the blood off his axe and shield. Draco. Another shape emerged from the woods. Naruto questioned, "You sent them to fight me?" "I wish I didn't. There goes 10,000 yen I spent hiring them that I'm never getting back," replied Draco. "What's next?" inquired Naruto. Draco said, "Nothing, your training is complete," and began to make his way back to camp. After grinning, Naruto joyfully ran back to the camp and began packing his meager possessions. After rolling up his bedroll, he grabbed a composite bow and a quiver of bronze-tipped arrows and set off for Konoha with Draco. Along the road later that day, the two were walking past Red Redoubt, an ancient, dilapidated tower that is typically abandoned, but on this particular night, a fire was visible in the darkness of the night, though they were unaware that someone else had taken it. Naruto and Draco thought it would be a good place to spend the night. A wolf cub was being pulled by two bandits wearing fur. A woman's voice was raspy as she asked, "Did you bring it?" One of them said, "Yeah, we got the wolf you asked for." The woman emerged from the darkness. Her face was wrinkled, her clothes were tattered, and she looked old and sickly. There were big black feathers on her arms and shoulders, and she had bird talons on her hands. The other whispered, "Why do we have to listen to this hagraven?" As embers formed on her hands, she squawked, "Do you want me to cook you alive?" The same few said, "No ma'am." They saw that the wolf was only unconscious and not dead. She yelled, "Good, now kill it." They were prepared to beat him to death. After drawing their iron maces, Draco's mouth turned white behind their backs, and the three were burned alive by a stream of white flames. Then, Naruto and Draco surrounded the unconscious wolf. Draco remarked, "I don't believe it, it's a wolf demon." Naruto questioned, "Why are you surprised?" "To get him to wake up," Draco said. "I'm surprised this pup got here. Wake up. Come on, little guy. Those lazy, stuck-up pricks never come into the mortal world." In shock and terror, the wolf cub's eyes opened, and he leapt to the ceiling. His hand gripped the ceiling. In terror, he questioned, "Who are you?" "I'm Naruto Namikaze, and this is Draco." Naruto answered again. The wolf said, "You're not going to hurt me?" "No, we were just looking for a place to sleep. Want to come with us?" replied Naruto. The wolf said, "S sure," and descended outside. The three sat around the fire that had already been started. A deer was already on the fire. They each took a piece of the fire's meat and began to eat. "What's your name?" inquired Naruto. "Kuroi Izazuma, it means black lightning," he responded. "So you're from the Black Lightning clan. I've heard of you. You're the clan leader's son." Draco was overjoyed. "I came here because I want to have the honor of having a human form," replied Kuroi. Naruto questioned, "How the hell is that an honor?" "'Cause in order to have one, you need to be in contact with a human, not a sub-race, and the only ones are in this world," he replied. The wolf transformed, but Naruto remained perplexed with his black hair, blood-red eyes, and remaining wolf ears and tail. He bore a striking resemblance to Naruto. His canines were longer and more wolf-like, and he grinned. He was dressed in sandals, black shorts, and a black leather shirt. "Can I come with you guys? I have no idea where I am in your world?" asked Kuroi. "Sure." Naruto acknowledged. Draco flew to the top of the tower and said, "Night you too, I'm sleeping on top." He then passed out. "Is clan life hard?" inquired Naruto. "Yes, it is pack hierarchy, and I'm at the goddamn bottom," replied Kuroi. "I never really knew my family, though Draco told me about my dad. Nice guy, cage of the village," Naruto replied. "I guess we have something in common. Our dads are on the top, but we are on the bottom," said Kuroi. Naruto asked, "Well, then let's get to the top then." "What? How?" inquired Kuroi. Naruto extended his hand and said, "I don't know, but we will promise." Kuroi shook Naruto's hand while grinning and nodding. After that, the two went to sleep, prepared to move on the following day in the direction of Konoha. The following day, when Naruto and Kuroi awoke, they found themselves encircled by bandits wearing fur. Iron maces, one-handed iron axes, and iron swords were in their other hands, along with hide and iron shields. "Don't move, kids, we're just here to get a little revenge for what you did to our friends," one of them replied. Naruto answered, "We didn't do that, Draco did." Another said, "Cut the crap, kid, you're dying." Kuroi killed the person who said that by hurling a bolt of black lightning at him. The rest of the bandits fled from them like crazy. Naruto exclaimed, "Holy crap, man, that was awesome." Kuroi answered, "I really don't know how I just did that." "Why?" inquired Naruto. "I'm the youngest in my clan. I haven't learned to control our natural ability, Black Lightning," replied Kuroi. Naruto answered, Well, that explains everything. Draco shouted, "Quit bickering, you two. I'm trying to sleep." When the two decided to leave Draco behind, Naruto strapped his quiver over his shoulder, his bow on his back, and his shield in one hand. They left after he tucked his axe into his belt along with their leader, who wore an iron cuirass, banded shoulder armor, iron gauntlets, a double-bladed steel two-handed axe, an iron-horned helmet, and iron boots. The bandits Kuroi had frightened away were pursuing them. One of them told the person wearing the iron, "That's them, boss." "Well, let's show them who they're messing with." "Who are they messing with?" replied the leader. Then they roared back, "Fire Raiders." Kier the leader remarked, "That's right, nobody messes with Kur's Fire Raiders." They went unheard by Naruto and Kuroi, which allowed the bandits valuable time to ambush. There were half on one side of the road and the other half on the opposite path. By meeting them on the road, their leader would divert their attention. Kier approached the two as though they were road travelers. "Excuse me, where is the nearest inn?" replied Kier. Naruto replied, I don't know." The Kier swung his axe and said, "That's okay, you can help me with something else." Despite using his shield to block, Naruto was knocked back. Kuroi was ambushed by the remaining bandits, who surrounded him and brutally beat him with their one-handed weapons. Kier repeatedly struck Naruto's shield with his axe until it broke into fragments. Before Kier could swing at Naruto once more, he stopped. Kuroi slashed off one of the bandits' heads, and his hand developed long claws and black hair. Then he screamed in agony and launched an unrestrained monstrous attack on the remaining bandits. Kuroi used his bare hand to stop the blade before his claws pierced Kur's neck. As Kier ran to his men's aid and attempted to split Kuroi's skull, he tore out his windpipe, blood vessels, and throat in one backward motion. Kuroi dropped the meat he was holding as the dead body fell like a rock. Draco landed beside them and said, "I leave you two for 5 minutes, and this is what happens." Kuroi answered, "They attacked me. What was I supposed to do?" As Naruto picked up a bounty note, he questioned, "What is this?" Kuroi read, "Bounty for Kier T-Born, 700,000 yen. Naruto yelled, "What the hell? Score!" shouted Kuroi. With just a few miles remaining, Kuroi and Naruto were so happy that they practically ran the whole distance. They were stunned as they ran past the guards. One said, "Draco sir, were they with you?" Draco said, "Unfortunately," and took off for the Hokage building. He flew up to the building and used his back talons to grab the bottom of it. Then, perfectly suspended, he rapped on the office window to attract Minato's attention. When he turned around and saw Draco, he almost had a heart attack after cutting out the window. Draco entered the office and used a fire to fuse it back on. "Is there a reason for coming in like that, or are you going for your creeper merit badge?" replied Minato. Draco answered, "No, just to say your son's back." Minato questioned in surprise, "What?" Draco answered, "Yeah, and he made a friend that killed Kier T-Born." Minato shouted joyfully, "Get them in here now." The guards dragged the two into the room after Draco snapped his fingers. Minato joyfully ran up to Naruto and gave him a hug. At first, Naruto was taken aback to see his father, but he soon became pleased to see him. Kuroi inquired, "So this is your dad?" With a, "Yeah," Naruto answered. Kuroi exclaimed, "Lucky, mine's a lazy head of a clan jackass." Minato ended his embrace with Naruto and said, "So you're the one that killed Kier?" Kuroi handed the bounty to him and said, "Yeah, I think so." Minato handed him a check bearing the Hokage's seal and said, "Give this to the bank, they will be able to give you your money." Kuroi grinned and went to collect the prize. Perhaps it wasn't so horrible to live in the mortal world after all? Kuroi used the money to purchase an apartment and make their lives a little more comfortable. Kuroi remarked, "You get that room, I get this one." Naruto went in to place his belongings in his room after saying, "Okay, as long as I don't have to hear you snore." Kuroi shot back, "I don't snore, I just breath loudly." Naruto finished, saying, "I'm going to get food, seeing how this place came with everything we need, save for food." For Naruto, it was strange to enter the marketplace. People stared at him strangely, and he was still wearing his armor except for the helmet. After purchasing multiple packages of ramen, meats, fruits, vegetables, and other items, he left the store with 2 bags full. A stranger wearing black robes knocked him down as he was leaving the store and then used a dagger to attack a young girl. Naruto screamed and struck him in the back of the head, saying, "You're asking for it, pal." The stranger retaliated, "Do not interfere, boy," and started slashing at Naruto with his dagger, leaving the girl with deep cuts. The other hand of the man in the robe blazed with embers. A tiny incantation caused a fireball to fly in Naruto's direction. Naruto quickly flipped sideways, landing in a Buddha squat until Naruto flipped up to him and used his axe to split his head in half. They kept doing this. Kuroi rushed toward him. Kuroi questioned, "The hell happened here?" Naruto retorted, "This guy tried to kill this girl." Kuroi began pulling him away after saying, "Hang on, let's try and figure out who he is." The only items they discovered after dragging the body away were the dagger and a book called Book of Exotherion. Kuroi shuddered as he read it and realized at last that the dagger was a magic weapon. Kuroi warned Naruto, "Be careful, it's a soul trap dagger." Naruto answered, "I'm more interested in the book. Exotherion, oh no, the greater demon of destruction." Kuroi was gasping. In the notes section, they also have a list of victims, and it appears that they have all but one of them. The list contained the names of 13 girls, including the one Naruto saved. Hinata Hyuga was the only one not marked as terminated. Manor Hyuga. The two Hyugas were unaware that the enemy was already working on the assassination of Hinata Hyuga. The assassin, who was dressed in black leather armor from neck to toe and had a black hood over his eyes, was carrying two black daggers, each with a straight back but a slight curvature that prevented him from throwing a knife. He waited for the closest guard to turn his back before attacking. Hinata yelled as he grabbed her, giving away his position, and the guard turned around and activated his Byakugan with a quick kick to the face. He separated the two, and then dropped the assassin to the ground with multiple blows before Hiyashi ran over to investigate. The guard stood at attention and said, "Hiyashi-sama." Hiyashi commanded, "Explain what happened." "This man attempted Hinata's murder," the guard answered. "He's unconscious now, but how long?" "Take this guy to intelligence. I'd like to know why and for whom he works. Come with me." "Hinata, we will discuss this with the Hokage," Hiyashi stated firmly. Hinata thanked the guard, saying, "Thank you for saving me." The guard answered, "Just doing my job, Office of the Hokage." "Dad, this guy tried to kill that girl. His intentions were obviously not friendly," Naruto replied. With a pile of documents on each murder, Minato retorted, "I agree, but these murders were all conducted by different people. There's no pattern to them. All those that were killed, their killers had the book on them, and each had some sort of enchanted dagger, all with a soul trap on them," Kuroi clarified. "What is a soul trap?" Minato inquired. "A soul trap is an enchantment you can put on a weapon, and if the being dies within a certain amount of seconds, their soul will be trapped in the weapon," Draco replied. Upon entering, Hiyashi and Hinata were taken aback to see Naruto, Kuroi, and Draco alongside the Hokage. "This is urgent. Sir, I want to know why a man tried to kill my daughter," Hiyashi shouted. "I'm going to assume he wore black and carried daggers," Kuroi inquired. "Yes, how did you find out?" Hiyashi inquired. "We're trying to investigate murders that fit that description," replied Naruto. "How many people died?" Hinata inquired. Naruto answered, 11, and one is mortally wounded in the hospital." "Well, you three seem to have a common cause. How about you collaborate?" Minato responded. "Whoever is after these girls will try again to kill your daughter," Draco added. Hiyashi demanded, "Minato, I want these boys to guard my daughter." "What? Why us?" Kuroi inquired. Understanding Hiyashi's strategy, Minato remarked, "You two seem to understand this more than all of us, and while guarding her, you two can also figure out this. Day shift is what I call," Naruto shouted. "Whoa, I have to go to the academy, I just realized." Hinata yelled, snatched Naruto, and fled. "Aid!" Naruto shouted in shock. "The day shift was what you wanted. You get that? Good night, everybody," Kuroi remarked. "I need my rest if I'm going to work the night shift," and headed for his apartment. The academy. Surprisingly, Hinata was the first person on the scene when she ran in. Naruto, who was panting heavily and perspiring profusely due to his armor and axe, then collapsed on the floor next to Iruka. "Who is this?" Hinata. Iruka inquired. According to Hinata, "He's my new bodyguard, Naruto Namikaze." After catching his breath, Naruto stood beside Hinata, and an hour later, all of his classmates had arrived. There was a lot of rumors about Naruto, ranging from whether he was a student to something else, so Ino made the decision to find out why he was there. She said, "Hello there," Naruto said, "Hello. Who are you, dear cheeks?" She inquired. "Naruto, you don't want to mess with me, girl, so don't try anything," Naruto answered. Ino touched his nose and said, "Don't worry, I will not do anything at all." He then walked away to sit beside Hinata. "Hi Ino." Hinata said. "Hello." Ino complimented, "Hinata, you sure know how to get cute guys on you." Hinata answered, "He's just a bodyguard." Iruka started when he was certain that everyone was present, and Naruto fell asleep during his lectures right away. He had worked in mines, trained non-stop, and slept through entire winters, but this was the most intolerable thing that had happened to him during his training. He thought that the way they taught them how to be warriors was a combination of honor and cowardice. He liked that they taught them basic jutsu, but other than that, it was a pitiful. After graduation, they were trained by senior-ranking shinobi, depriving the military of valuable resources. Draco slipped through the doorway as Iruka declared, "Today we have a guest speaker, the hero of Konoha that saved it from destruction by the hands of the nine-tailed fox, Draco. You're all entering this for different reasons. Perhaps some of you want retribution, while others may be motivated by fame or other factors entirely. You are referred to as mercenaries in the military. None of you feel any loyalty to the village while performing your duties, despite the fact that you are paid to do so," Draco boomed. "That is untrue," one pupil shouted. "Is it? So why do so many nins go missing?" Draco inquired. In the front row, Sasuke responded, "Because they have goals that cannot be fulfilled by shinobis." "This boy hit it directly on the bullseye, and that makes you the worst one in this room," Draco said as he approached him. "What?" Sasuke snarled. "You would need to have a similar objective for someone to be aware of that fact. Tell me about yours, boy," Draco inquired. "Why is it important to you?" Sasuke inquired. Draco cleverly retorted, "Because you seem like prime missing nin material." Sasuke stood up and met Draco's eyes, but was instantly distracted by the omnipotent, piercing stare. Draco grinned and went on with his talk. "You must realize that the majority of warriors ultimately want to survive. If you want to be a true warrior, that's why you duck if you're attacked while intoxicated. You carry a shield if it will save your life, but in order to survive, you must be quick and strategic," Draco said. Everyone was taken aback by his actions, which involved slapping shinobi as if they were insignificant. Draco grinned at their reaction. "That's not to say you're weak. You all have the capacity to grow stronger and provide excellent service to the land of fire and Hidden Leaf Village. Goodbye, and have a great academic year," Draco said before heading out. After that, Iruka went on with the lessons, but Naruto continued to ignore them because he was there only to protect Hinata and nothing could divert him from that. However, he did pay attention to the rumors that were being spread about him, which came from the female students rather than the male ones, and Hinata was asked repeatedly how Naruto became her bodyguard. Among other things, minutes passed, then hours, and finally they were released. "That wasn't that horrible, was it?" Hinata questioned Naruto. Bored beyond belief, Naruto answered, "Depends on your definition of bad." "You arrived during a slow day in an attempt to lift Naruto's spirits," Hinata remarked. "Normally we have sparring matches and other things like that." "So, where are we going now?" did Naruto ask. Hinata replied, "Well, I'd like to do some shopping." Naruto then said, "Lead the way." Hinata, who had previously dealt with the lower echelons of the Hyuga family, went into the marketplace and took out a small wallet because she wanted Naruto to feel accepted in his role and didn't want to force him to do anything against his will. "Are you feeling peckish?" Hinata inquired. Naruto's stomach rumbled in defiance as he answered, "No, okay maybe." He ate whatever he could get his hands on during his training, so it was difficult for him to choose now. Hinata grinned and they went to a restaurant, where he ordered sweet rolls and red bean soup, but Naruto asked to order a little later. "You won't have anything, will you?" Hinata inquired. "Kinda hard when you live off the land for all your life to choose what you eat from all this," replied Naruto. Softly, Hinata said, "I'm sorry. What's the reason for your apology?" did Naruto ask. Hinata said, "I didn't know how hard your life has been." She began to wince and move away from Naruto. The waiter left after Naruto said, "Waiter, I'd like some ramen and ribeye steak." The sun was setting, signaling the changing of the guard, and Naruto needed to know something while he waited for Kuroi after escorting Hinata home after dinner. "Do you know why someone would want to kill you, Hinata?" did Naruto ask. Well, some in the lower house sorta resent me being higher than them, but other than that I don't know," replied Hinata. Kuroi said, "All right, I'm here. See you, friend. By the way, watch her carefully," Naruto cautioned. "Why?" Kuroi inquired after Hinata blushed and Kuroi wanted to punch Naruto. Naruto laughed and said, "Because if you watch her change, Hiyashi-sama will attack you of being perverted." Naruto's first day passed swiftly, but he had no idea that the enemy was circling for a second chance and would arrive with a lot of firepower. Kuroi and Naruto quickly grew accustomed to protecting Hinata, but she wasn't used to having a guard by her side all the time. One guard would watch Hinata while the other would try to figure out who was trying to kill her, but it was difficult to find out, and on this particular day, one would slap them in the face. Naruto and Hinata were strolling through the marketplace when they were not aware that a black leather armor assassin was following them. The lone stalker muttered to the others, "Move the Hydra, you idiots." The beast fell asleep because it simply migrated to this area, like the Hagraven, and it had no idea that the humans would use it in their own places without it knowing. In a back alley, there were 4 other people with spears, and in the center of them was a huge hydra. Its body was the size of a rhino, with 5 long snake-like necks that held snake-like heads, large, knife-like teeth in its mouth, and spikes decorating the back of the neck, head, and back down to a flat-topped club with spikes around the sides. "Wait, I have a mayhem scroll that ought to suffice," one of them remarked. A little incantation caused a red aura to form on his hands, which he then swirled to continue the spell before sending a ball of red aura into the hydra. The creature woke up, and a fire burned in its eyes, a fire of pure hatred, but it was a general hatred for everyone around it, not a hatred for any one person in particular. The goons dispersed, and the beast charged out of the alley, its jaws snapping at anything it could get its teeth on and spitting out toxic gas. It saw Hinata and Naruto, then charged. "Hinata, move!" Naruto screamed and pushed her aside. "What the devil is holy shit?" Kuroi said, leaping out of the way of the hydra as he left his apartment and entered the street. Naruto laughed and said to Kuroi, "Nice to see you awake. I believe that owning one of those individuals is against the law." Kuroi shouted. When the monster turned around, the far right head attempted to bite Kuroi, but Kuroi was unable to stop the snapping jaws because of its spikes. Naruto charged the far left head and severed it at around the halfway point on the neck, but the beast's true strength was revealed when 2 new heads grew in its place and the stump of the old neck dissolved into the body. "How is this thing killed?" Naruto shouted. Kuroi, struggling to speak, said, "Have the faintest idea." "Be careful, voice a toxic fire is breathed by one of those heads." Draco dialed. He said that in a bit of irony, and then the middle right head grabbed Naruto and swallowed him, seeing a bulge in its throat, while the left head, which Kuroi was holding onto, tried to bite him but was stopped by a kick to the face. Naruto rolled out of the way, gasping for clean air. "Naruto!" Hinata and Kuroi shouted together. The head that was attacking Kuroi stopped trying to eat him, and the snake was acting as though it had terrible stomach cramps, with blood dripping from each head's maw and a look of intense pain and agony on its face as the beast roared its last and collapsed in a heap of hide, bone, and muscle when they believed Naruto was dead. "Buddy," murmured Kuroi, "help me leave this place." From within the hydra, a voice could be heard. With her hands clasped over her mouth in utter amazement, Hinata exclaimed, "He's alive!" "Aid!" Naruto shouted. "Get out of here, you fools! Get carving!" Draco shouted to some shinobi brandishing swords. The shinobi began to use kenjutsu on the corpse, but the hide proved to be more resilient than anticipated. Eventually, Kuroi grabbed one of the necks and tore it from its base neck joint, causing Naruto to fall out, covered in fluids such as digestive juices and blood. "You're welcome back. How did it feel inside?" Draco inquired. Naruto responded, "Need me? I'll be taking a shower," and departed for the apartment. Kuroi detected their scent and transformed into a wolf to pursue the assassins, who were not pleased that their plan had failed and needed to come up with a new plan. "Go! A murderous wolf!" one of them shouted, and the 5 quickly fled. They ran, but Kuroi was faster, and he tackled one, breaking his legs to stop him from running, and the other 4 dispersed, realizing he could only pursue one at a time. "Jutsu Shadow Clone!" Kuroi shouted, and 3 clones quickly followed. The real Kuroi was on the lead assassin and lunged at him, but his prey grabbed a dagger from his belt and jabbed it into the wolf's shoulder. Kuroi stumped him with his tail, then used his momentum to slash his chest with his claws, causing the assassin to fall to his knees and then be pulled back to the other captured individuals by the scruff of his neck. Kuroi tied them up and dispersed the clones, thinking, "I still don't understand who these guys are, and why would they want an innocent girl like Hinata? Isn't there some corrupt daimyo or something for them to kill instead?" Following a brief shower, Naruto returned with the fluids removed from him, and shinobi guards dragged the bound assassins away for interrogation. "All right, where is Hinata?" did Naruto ask. "I assumed you would watch over her?" Kuroi inquired. "Oh no, together," the 2 screamed. After searching the village for her, they discovered her at the academy, and they both felt ashamed of their own foolishness. Kuroi said, "Get to work," and walked away. In response, Naruto said, "Whatever." Still feeling foolish about searching for Hinata in that way, Naruto entered the academy, took an extra seat next to Hinata, and started reading the book of Exotherion they had taken from the body. The book was quite detailed in its description, teaching how to perform taboo rituals and discussing raping destruction on the entire world. Hinata glanced over, curious about what he was reading. "And Naruto, what are you reading?" Hinata inquired. The book simply taught whoever read it how to indulge in ultra-violence and then enjoy every second of it. He wondered if they would strike the girl in the hospital they tried to kill. Naruto showed her a picture of an example of a ritual, and Hinata cringed in fear and decided she didn't want to know anymore. Hospital. The girl was on a hospital bed, gasping for air, and the nurse hurried off to get medicine. The assassin arrived through the window, stabbed her in the chest with his soul trap dagger, and walked away. He told himself, now the last will be killed on the altar. Returning to the academy, flipping through a section that demonstrated how to resurrect creatures from his army, Naruto wondered, why would someone want to resurrect a greater demon? Are these guys nuts? Then Hinata was gone, and he heard a commotion outside. Despite his best efforts, he was unable to locate her this time. After that, he traveled to Kuroi, and the two of them visited Draco. Draco remarked curiously, well, those cult of Exotherion guys are really going for it. They both asked simultaneously, what are you talking about? They're the ones that are killing the girls around town, replied Draco. They screamed at the old dragon, if you knew, then why didn't you tell us? If I told you guys everything, then you'd get lazy and never want to do anything yourselves, Draco responded. The two then sulked at their own foolishness for the second time today. After that, they returned to the apartment to get ready for combat. Hundreds of robed figures and assassins gathered in a large, eerie mansion. The cult of Exotherion was now fully formed. Its head was situated atop a grand central staircase that had an altar and an oddly large rock door beneath it. Hinata's limbs were chained to the altar as she lay there unconscious. A voice that was icy and malevolent asked, Necromage, what is your progress? My lord, the final virgin soul is ready, he replied. His eyes were all that was visible when a green swirling portal materialized. They were simply gold glowing holes encircled by a thick black coloring. Eyes. Wouldn't be an accurate description. Excellent, you mortals have performed better than I expected. Make sure you get the incantation right. One syllable wrong and I will be sent who knows where, Exotherion replied. He respectfully answered, of course I will not fail you, O greater demon of destruction. My loyal subjects. You all have performed splendidly. Now I will be released, and we will create destruction across the land, he yelled. As the greater demon laughed crazily, they all cheered repeatedly, all hail the Lord of Destruction. Apartment of Naruto and Kuroi. The two were getting ready to save lives. Kuroi was getting himself into a rage to make his wolf form more menacing, while Naruto was putting on his armor and sharpening his axe. According to Naruto, the things I do, Kuroi answered, quite complaining, we got a Hyuga to save. Speaking through a face palm, Naruto remarked, that was so corny, I'm surprised even you would say something like that. Kuroi said, shut it, let's just go. They hurried away. They had no idea that the cult was watching them. They had to act quickly to stop a necromage and a few assassins who were close by. One of the assassins commanded, quick, summon one of Exotherion's minions. The mage then set to work. The minion rose in a pillar of flame from the street. With the exception of a tail and enormous black leathery wings, it appeared humanoid and stood 12 feet tall. It had a black bone-plated hide in place of skin. Its fingers resembled sharp, segmented blades on its hands. Its eyes were gold glowing holes that resembled its overlord's, and its head, which had been large at first, took on a narrow, dinosaur-like appearance. It had a number of sharp horns on its head. The most noticeable feature was the orb in its chest, which was patterned in orange and gold. It was held in place by an indent with multiple spikes reaching in. The patch worked its way over the entire body, and similar colored lines branched out from the orb. When the mage screamed, kill them, fire gargoyle, fulfill the will of you overlord, the monster blasted magma out of its mouth, obstructing Kuroi and Naruto with a stream of magma. Naruto took the long way to the mansion and remarked, you take the big guy. As he avoided another blast, Kuroi muttered, this isn't my day, oh shit, and then yelled. A trail of death and devastation followed as the creature blasted him with a gust of air and sent him crashing into the village. Then the beast shot once more, and the village was immediately engulfed in flames. As he lumbered toward Kuroi, Shinobi scurried against the beast, slaying any that came too close. It staggered as a bolt of black lightning struck it. Kuroi howled as he transformed into his full-sized wolf form, no longer a cub. Despite knocking the gargoyle back and bringing down a massive bolt of black lightning, the howl surprisingly caused very little damage. Bow down to Exotherion's might, the gargoyle stumbled when he said. Kuroi spoke to the ninja hounds in their language as they gathered around him. Then they all turned and came for it. Even when they came close enough to attack, the beast's hide was too hard to penetrate with any kind of weaponry, and the majority were killed in a magma blast as they charged at it. The final hound was bitten in half by the monster's jaws, while the others were slashed apart after losing their partners. the Inzuka clan launched an attack on the Gargoyle, but they were no more successful than the ninja hounds. A shinobi exclaimed, "How the hell do we stop this thing?" As they continued to attack the beast, Hana and the few surviving members of the Inzuka clan yelled, "I don't know, but that thing will pay." The flaming monster whirled in agony as a fortunate kunai touched the orb in its chest, and a visible tear came out of its eye. After that, it seized the ninja who hurled it and tore him in two. Kuroi shouted, "Guys, its weakness is the orb." But nobody paid attention except for Minato, who was struggling to keep everyone in line. "If I could get them to do anything, then we could, but they're all blinded by rage that things killed their friends, loved ones. They're not thinking straight. I'll do it," said Minato. The Gargoyle stood over Minato's most recent massacre of 27 shinobi as he approached. The two charged at each other as he prepared a Rasengan. The Rasengan struck the orb after Minato flipped over the Gargoyle's swinging right arm to save the lives of others. Minato took the full blast. In the subsequent explosion, Kuroi managed to survive by hiding beneath a heap of debris. Draco took off for Kuroi. As he watched the carnage, Draco remarked, "Quite a mess you made here. That thing was too strong. Nothing me or anyone else did could kill it." Minato sacrificed his life to save the survivors. Kuroi replied with agony, "We now must honor a good man. He was a good soldier, a great Hokage, and now, an even greater hero. He's lost much in his life, but the choices he made were the right ones. May he rest now in peace," Draco said, then proceeded to his body, picked it up, and carried it to the survivors before starting his speech of mourning. The battle is still in its first phase, despite all the destruction. In the mansion, Naruto entered after the cult heard the front door being kicked open. Everybody spun around and pulled out their weapons. Naruto thought to himself, "I think I should have taken the big guy." Exatherion shouted, "Get him, and make sure he's alive when you're through with him." Naruto easily defeated the initial group of assailants, but he was soon surrounded. He tightened his grip on his axe and started creating a strike zone by continuing to move it. Even when it wasn't striking anything, it offered him some control over his circumstances. At least he was slain by a chop to the right eye after an idiot attempted to attack him. Naruto split his head in half when another one came from the front. Then he pole vaulted into another and crushed the mage's face in with his boots. One of the assassins operating a ballista in the rafters was told to bind him now, and Naruto was hit by a binding net. When Naruto leapt out of the way, it struck one of his own men, tangled incorrectly, and killed him by strangulation. Then he hurried to get the string to fire once more. Naruto threw his axe into the ballista operator's heart in a desperate attempt. He was dragged up to the altar after being restrained and bound while he threw his axe. "So you killed a few of my cult, so what? I have hundreds more. Where that came from? Now you can watch me come into this world, and you have the honor of being the first being I kill in my rebirth," the bigger demon chided. "Can you hear me, Naruto?" the voice of the Oriental Dragon asked him in his mind. "Yes, I apologize, my lord. This is the first time you've contacted me, and I've let you down," Naruto answered. The dragon remarked, "You haven't failed yet, only if you give up now." "How? I have no weapon, I'm tied up, and Hinata and I will be dead when that guy finishes chanting," Naruto retorted. He said, "Perhaps I can give you the edge you need." Naruto began to feel strange. He was surrounded by a gold aura, and his eyes turned a goldish orange. The aura materialized, the shackles broke, and he was set free. Exatherion commanded, "Kill him. He or she who kills him will get a reward." Naruto leapt to the ground and unleashed a wave of energy that was 10 feet wide. It sent everyone flying, some dead, some just injured. When Naruto said, "Okay, who wants some?" the crowd paused, but one person attacked. After blocking his dagger and punching him 3 times in the face, Naruto smirked and threw him across the room. The rest rushed at him as the assault unlocked the floodgates. In response, Naruto unleashed an animal fury, a dragon-like fury that was cold, effective, and powerful on the masses. The masses of the cult were being killed more quickly than they could charge into battle thanks to brute strength, speed, and an understanding of melee combat. The words, "Well, this sucks, time to call in the big guns," were spoken by Exatherion. A titanic fire gargoyle emerged through the enormous rock door, and a rider was seated directly behind its neck on its back. Chainmail hung from the back of his neck to the main armor, and he wore a steel helmet. The outermost layer of the armor was a pattern of square metal plates and interconnecting cloth, followed by a middle layer of chainmail and cloth. His shoulders were protected by large metal shoulder guards, and he wore thick gauntlets that resembled the chest armor in style, with the exception of a flat metal spike that covered half of his lower arm when his arms were held down. Lastly, He carried a strange weapon and wore boots of a similar design with the exception of its pitch black wood and black, demonic spiked iron sights. It resembled a bolt-action rifle. Crystals served as its ammunition. When the crystals ran out, they simply had to be reloaded. Naruto remarked, "This just isn't my day." With a limp, Kuroi said, "Need a little help?" Naruto inquired, "What took you?" "Well, there was traffic, fires, and a giant killer monster, the usual." Kuroi laughed. And Exotherion roared, "Kill them." The fire gargoyle produced a flaming shield and a huge flail. Kuroi was almost struck by it as it swung, but Naruto was still in his position, and they collided. He skidded 5 feet with his feet firmly planted on the ground before stopping. Red explosions surrounded Kuroi as he ran up the gargoyle's arm and was fired upon by the rider. The Hokage monument was covered in rubble after the monster's enormous jaws opened and it almost struck Naruto with a huge blast of magma. Naruto shouted, "I sure hope you can pay for that," and attempted to leap to its level, but was struck by the flail and crashed through one of the walls that remained. As a result, Kuroi had enough time to approach the rider and engage him in combat with a sword in an attempt to get a good cut in. The rider cut down, then diagonal, and then uppercut. He evaded the blows with wolf-like strength and was slashed on his feebly protected neck. The rider hit Kuroi with his rifle with the other arm before faintly passing out, knocking him to the ground and sending the rider back through the door. Kuroi shouted, "Naruto, hit the orb." Naruto muttered, "Already got it," and launched a final strike. It was too late when the monster unleashed another magma blast using the last of the energy the dragon had given him. Naruto punched the orb. They could hear the boom as the door closed behind him after he was flung back into it by his magma beam. Naruto was broken, bloody, and alive when he fell by the altar. So here we are, now at the beginning, the end of the mortal world's existence. Our faithful heroes lay broken, and can't do a damn thing to stop the evil monster. "Oh, this is so thick you could cut it with a dagger." Exotherion giggled. Naruto said, "Funny, because I was going to say something similar to you, pal," before removing the necromage's sacred dagger. Exotherion uttered, "What? No, you wouldn't want?" After grabbing the mage and cutting his throat, Naruto used the mage as a sacrifice to complete the chanting. "Greater demon of destruction, using the virgin soul I offer to you, I banish you to the nearest object that can hold you power," said Naruto. Exotherion's last words were, "Mortal, I will kill you, and when I do, not even the lowest level of hell will accept your soul." He was sealed in the mage's skull-shaped amulet, which Naruto placed in his pocket for protection. Naruto was comatose when he was banished, but he had time to say this before he passed out completely. Maybe this day wasn't so bad after all. Naruto had lost so much energy that he was in a deep coma. He was awake enough to hear 2 shinobi conversing close by. One, obviously male, said, "He's still not waking up." Defiantly female, another said, "Well, shock him again." The man said, "I've shocked him 9 times already, and it's not working." The woman answered, "Well, hit him with full power. That will kill him." The man cried, "Are you mad, woman?" The woman answered, "That would save the need for a trial then, now wouldn't it?" Naruto's body ached like he had been shocked by an electric generator, and he violently woke up. The pain was causing him to scream as loudly as he could. Naruto realized he was in a completely different building when he stopped screaming, but he was unable to identify what kind it was. The female shinobi remarked, "Good to see you were awake. For a second there we thought you were dead." The man said, "I thought you wanted him dead?" They took Naruto by the shoulders and said, "Shut up, come on kid, your trial can't start without you." Naruto winced as bright lights struck him as they pulled him through 2 enormous doors. His surroundings had changed significantly since his last memory, once his eyes had adjusted. The courtroom was enormous, with space for hundreds or even 1,000 people. The jury stand was also quite large, perhaps twice as large as juries typically are. When he attempted to move his hands, he discovered that they were tied behind him and that they were bagged, making it impossible for him to grasp anything. He was seated at the end of the row, where he had a podium, and he looked up at a large assembly of daimyos rather than a judge. Every nation's daimyo, regardless of how strong or weak they were, had a detested expression on their faces, particularly the fire daimyo. "Naruto Namikaze, son of the deceased Minato Namikaze, you were put on trial for the destruction of Konoha, 97% of its inhabitants, including most of the prestigious clans there, the only surviving of which is the fully intact Hyuga clan. You also are on trial for the use of kinjutsu and possession of a dark artifact." The Iron Daimyo continued. "Okay, this is a complete misunderstanding. For one thing, I have no idea how kinjutsu works, or even most not banned jutsus for that matter. Second, I was trying to stop the lunatics that were trying to bring into our world a greater demon that would rape untold destruction on our world. Third, I had to banish that bastard into this amulet, and if it got into the wrong hands, who knows what could happen finally. My dad's dead. Naruto screamed and was nearly unable to his last breath. The fire daimyo retorted, your father died a hero, saving the survivors for the monstrosity that you unleashed. That was like a ton of bricks to Naruto. His heart sank, and he had to control his tears. The man he looked up to, the father he hardly knew, had passed away. It was his wish to seize the amulet and smash it into pieces in the end. That damn demon had the last laugh. The Iron Daimyo questioned, do you have anything to say before we bring in evidence? From the heavens came a soft, booming voice that said, I have something to say. The Wind Daimyo questioned, who is this? Where are my manners? I am the Oriental Dragon, and you have on trial my protege. The voice responded. The Fire Daimyo questioned, how do we not know this is some sort of genjutsu? You want proof? Inquired the dragon. Yes, was the response from every daimyo. The dragon sighed, and the room was flooded with dazzling light. Very well. A human, not a dragon, was in front of them when the light went out. His eyes were the same color as his scales, and his hair was a patchwork of hues, giving him the body of a shinobi. He wore magnificent robes that covered his hands and feet, and his pupils were slits. He asked the daimyos, now tell me, what is going to be his punishment? The fire daimyo answered, death. The dragon said, perhaps we could make a deal? The earth daimyo roared, there are no deals when it comes to a case, especially one of this magnitude. With a terrifying roar that rocked the building to its core and made all of the nation's leaders fear for their lives, the dragon soothed them. The Oriental Dragon took out a large scroll and said, I hate to have to use force, but you have not heard the terms. I even have a physical document for you to sign to ratify it. The Lightning Daimyo said, very well, what are the terms? Your world has come under great threat. Recently my brother Kinseizi Ka Vinconzator has opened a portal to the underworld, and its contents are pouring out into the world in the elemental country's current state. They will not be able to survive separate, they need to be together, the human-like dragon responded. That is treachery. No one could ever do that, their loyalty to their nation is too great to try such a thing. The scream that daimyo heard. In reference to Naruto, the dragon said, someone could, if they have little loyalty to anyone. When the Iron Daimyo asked, what are you offering? The deal of the century, my friend. If Naruto can gain the officials, the army, the support of the people, and a way to create heirs in 3 years, he will become the ruler of all your realms as one. If he fails, you can add government coup and treachery to the charges, he replied. The daimyos carefully examined the document to ensure that the deity could not exploit it against them, or that they could exploit it against him, even though it would give them even more justification to execute him. It was the ultimate risk of the potential loss of the status they had worked so hard to achieve to someone who was thought to have destroyed the most powerful hidden village. After a half hour, they handed it back after they had all signed it. The dragon answered, it's a pleasure doing business with you. He dragged Naruto out after grabbing him by his bindings. He then took off the bindings. Something tells me you made my problems even worse than fixing them, Naruto replied. His master retorted, it's clear Draco didn't teach you well. He left me, I swear he was on that same chair on a Hawaii beach for 12 years, replied Naruto. The god remarked, well, he did give you something then. And what's that? Inquired Naruto. The dragon answered, the ability to solve problems yourself, without the help of others. Naruto remarked, a lot of good that's done me so far. The dragon responded and disappeared, saying, when a man has the fear of death hanging over his head, he can accomplish more than he could without that threat. Now unsure of what to do, Naruto stood there. Where should he start given the enormous order he has on his hands? He took the amulet out of his pocket. You have an army, and you almost used it. I hope you will not mind if I purify it and use it, Naruto thought to himself. At the historic mansion when he arrived, he set down the amulet and took a seat on the floor. Then, as Naruto began to meditate, he saw a bright light in his head that swiftly took over his thoughts. In his mental landscape, so this is what it's like to contact a deity. Well, this sucks, Naruto replied. Still in human form, the Oriental Dragon answered, what did you expect, a margarita bar? Naruto grumbled, well, more than just a white expanse of nothing. Do you have something? Cause I'm already in hot water because of interfering with your trial and the fox all those years ago, the dragon responded. When Naruto asked, how good are you at purifying dark energy? The dragon said, I'm the best there is at it. Why? Naruto responded, you kidding? You want me to purify his army? And showed him the amulet. Yes, you said men with the threat of death over their heads will do anything, and this is anything, replied Naruto. The dragon sighed, I'm never going to live this down very well. Naruto said, "Thank you, you will not be sorry," and departed his mental landscape. Actual world dark energy poured from the amulet to the rock door as Naruto held it up. The enormous fire gargoyle and its wounded rider emerged as it opened. A portal opened above them as he steadied his blood rifle and got ready to fire. They were blinded by the white light that surrounded them. Their world appeared to have changed by the time they realized it. For one, the orb was gone, and the fire gargoyle had eyes. Its weapon remained unchanged, as did its size. The impact on the rider was more profound. He still had his blood rifle and was healed, but his armor had changed entirely. He no longer wore a full helmet, but instead a steel Roman Gallia helmet that resembled Naruto's. His armor consisted of a solid chest plate with steel strips riveted to the shoulders and back at both sides. The strips covered his arms in a similar manner, up to his forearm, which was equipped with custom metal hand armor and steel gauntlets. His leg armor was similarly constructed, culminating in steel shin boots that were a cross between cleats and greave. After descending from the beast, he approached Naruto and was able to finally meet his eyes. "You're the one that freed us?" he inquired. Naruto answered, "Not me, the Oriental Dragon, I'm just his champion," he said sharply. "Then we are in your debt." The Gargoyle and he both bowed. "Stand up, you two, I got to get the rest of your comrades over there to purify them," Naruto said. The soldier pulled out a horn and blew into it, saying, "Allow me, my lord." It let out a booming cry, and thousands of well-timed footsteps could be heard. Naruto discovered that the army was well equipped, with a variety of troops, and that they had been purified as they marched out. They wore leather armor instead of steel, and there were spearmen with 7-foot spears and 2-foot spear points. Some crossbowmen or arbalists then emerged. They were dressed in combat boots, sleeved chainmail shirts, and basic steel helmets. The archers, dressed similarly, were behind them. They only used steel, horn, and wood to make their recurved bows. The heavy infantry, dressed in the same armor as the first soldier Naruto purified, followed behind them. They had kite-shaped shields made of wood with steel edging, and a metal boss stood in the middle. A battalion of fire gargoyles of various sizes followed by a small group of men with blood rifles. This pattern persisted until 55,000 fire gargoyles and 115,000 soldiers were gathered. Naruto exclaimed in awe, "Holy crap! We serve you, champion of the Orient. We thank you for freeing us from the dark influences of the greater demon of destruction," all of them said together. Nervously, Naruto said, "You're welcome." The army inquired, "What are our orders?" With his confidence now nearly at Hinata's level, Naruto said, "Before I can give orders, I first must tell you about our current situation. Because of a misunderstanding, I now have the threat of execution over my head if I can't forge all the elemental countries together in 3 years. I will be killed. You are the first step in that, and me possibly living beyond 15. First step, we make this old mansion into our base of operations. Let's get working, people. Chop chop." The vast number of soldiers immediately set to work repairing and enlarging the facility. A tiny smile appeared, and a tiny aspect of him became lighter. Perhaps there was a chance for him after all. Over the course of the next few weeks, Naruto organized the army's affairs, from the most massive of the fire gargoyles to the spearmen with light armor. The army was divided into legions of 5,000 soldiers each. He now required every official he would require to assist in ruling every nation. He needed Kuroi and Draco first. Draco knew exactly where Kuroi was, but how he would find him would be an adventure in and of itself. A shoreline near Fire Country. The dragon wore sunglasses and read a book while perched on a beach chair. Draco didn't even need to look to recognize Naruto when he approached him. "About time you showed up. This is a new record on how slow you are at finding me." Draco let out a sigh. "Hey, you try walking a few hundred miles, it isn't easy," replied Naruto. Draco inquired, "So, what's the reason you came? Are you really that stupid?" "I'm here for you, come on man, we got countries to unite," Naruto replied. "The trial is as far as I can go with your fate. I'm sorry," replied Draco. "Say what?" inquired Naruto. "The deities forbid it. I would love to, but not with banning me from my chessboard for eternity is a strong enough argument," Draco replied. "What if I got you a new chessboard in pieces, better than your old one?" Naruto replied. "Better? One that will be crafted of the finest materials, and give the most exhilarating game," replied Naruto. "Well, let's hope your carpenters can make it," Draco replied. "Some of the people in my army can. Is it a deal?" replied Naruto. "Get it to me by the end of the year and you got a deal. Long live the Emperor," Draco joked. Somewhere in Fire Country, in the woods, Kuroi leaned against a tree and pondered. He witnessed Minato save the village, but no one else did. It was inconceivable that someone would kill themselves to save him. When he felt a hand on his shoulder, he He immediately dropped to his knees and changed into a wolf. He glanced again and saw that it was Naruto alone. "Buddy, what the hell? I was just trying to get your attention. I didn't think you would try and kill me over that," Naruto replied. Kuroi said solemnly, "Sorry, Naruto, I didn't know it was you." Naruto said, "Look, buddy, I really need your help." Kuroi whispered, "Why my help? I failed you before." Naruto attempted to continue, but Kuroi interrupted him, saying, "You didn't fail me. Do you know how many people died cause I couldn't stop that thing? Because of me, all those people dead, including Minato. I'm no good to you or anyone," Kuroi exploded. After that, he took a seat by the tree, and Naruto joined him. "Look, there's a reason I need you. In 3 years my head's going to be on a silver platter. If you don't, the reason why I need you is the portal is getting out of hand. The only way to find it is to scour the globe. I need you cause you're one of the few people I trust," Naruto clarified. Kuroi questioned, "Why do you trust me?" Naruto said, "You're my friend, why not?" Kuroi asked, "What do you need my help with?" Naruto replied, "Well, part of it has to do with rebuilding Konoha." Kuroi sarcastically retorted, "Okay, fine, you got me hooked. It's not like you could complete that goal." Back at the base of Naruto, in awe of the army Naruto had gathered, Kuroi declared, "I am officially eating my own words. What better way to rub it into Exotherian's face than purify his own evil army for the exact opposite it was designed for?" said Naruto. Kuroi answered, "None officially." A member of the logistics team approached Draco and gave him a chessboard. The dragon had to concede that it was rather elaborate. It was constructed of oak and adorned with gold dragon symbols and silver edging. The white chess pieces were expertly carved from ivory, while the black pieces were composed of ebony wood. The pieces magically arranged themselves and floated across the board over the designated areas. When Draco put it down to play, the board could move the other set of pieces, so he didn't even need an opponent. Naruto inquired, "So, how do you like it?" Draco immediately recognized the board as a skilled player and responded, "This will keep me occupied for a long time." Kuroi inquired, "So what is my position?" Naruto answered, "I want you to be my chief advisor." "What?" Kuroi exclaimed in shock. "You at one point lived in the underworld, and you know more about it than I do. You'll be perfect in helping me not only find it, but preventing massacres like what happened to Konoha," replied Naruto. "So this whole thing is just so you can save your ass, and help people against getting invaded like they did here," replied Kuroi. Naruto replied, "Yeah, pretty much, though I never expected any of this." "How are we going to sway people away from a system of government that they have been under for who knows how long?" asked Kuroi. "Easy. Make them feel safe. Everyone's probably scared out of their minds thanks to Konoha, though we are going to need people on the inside of those places," Naruto replied. While continuing to focus on his chess game, Draco remarked, "I've heard of someone who could help build Konoha." "Who would that be?" inquired Naruto. "Long ago, in the underworld, there was a famous architect named Davion. He constructed many massive and imposing buildings. Before finally coming to our world, he then was employed by several ambitious rulers to build them fortresses that not even greater demons could break into. He created 10, in which have gotten the nickname. The 10 Great Holds. Rumor has it he's retired in a cottage somewhere in Fire Country," Draco continued. "Alright, I want you all to discreetly scour the entire country, find every cottage and mark everyone you find on your maps. Good luck," Naruto commanded, and 24 soldiers in leather armor entered. "Get all available scouts in here now." They then leapt out of sight. Half an hour later, in a remote area of the Fire Country. After a lengthy search, one of the scouts was unable to locate any cottages. He found one just as he was ready to give up and return to base. It was tiny, with perhaps a bedroom and a bathroom on the second floor and probably just one room on the first. He didn't notice anyone behind him because he was too busy marking it on his map. The individual pulled out his sword, cut off his head, and placed it in a box with a note inside. There were 100 nins out there. After some time, another scout located the body and returned to Naruto with the map and the box. Returning to the base, the aforementioned scout returned much later than the others. When Naruto opened the box, he discovered a note and the severed head. "Dear Naruto, step out of that fortified shack of yours and you will be hunted down wherever you go. Signed, the 100 nin. Just my luck, I get them on my tail," Naruto replied. Kuroi said, "Maybe you should lay low till the heat's off." "No, time's a commodity that we can't waste. I'm going to the cabin that he was killed, then work my way from there," Naruto replied. Kuroi declared, "Are you mad? That's where they most likely will strike." "Wrong. That's the one they think I'm going to stay away from, so I'll blindside them by going there," replied Naruto. "Just come back alive, pal. I don't want to lose a friend," Kuroi replied. As he departed, Naruto remarked, "Don't worry, I will, and besides, if I can survive fighting a greater demon from the depths of the underworld, I can survive a few hundred nin. However, he clarified, I hope." 2.5 hours later, the same cabin with a sigh, Naruto made his way to the cabin door. He rapped the wood door a couple of times. From within, an elderly, crackly voice said, "Who is it?" "Davion, my name is Naruto Namikaze, I'd like a word with you," Naruto responded. The voice asked once more, "How do you know my name?" Naruto responded, "I've heard of your work, and I'd like to talk about a few things." He then heard a sigh. The voice said, "Very well, come on in." Naruto then opened the door. When he entered, the floor was covered in a number of display cases of blueprints. He noticed that one of the 2 seats by the fire was occupied. He appeared to be around 89 years old, with somewhat smooth skin that had been worn down by age. His face appeared friendly, with wrinkles, high cheekbones, and green eyes that seemed safe except for the sides. The majority of his hair had fallen out of his head. "I never would have expected someone of your age to look for an old geezer like me," Davion replied. "Well, people my age don't have a threat of being executed," replied Naruto. Curiosity prompted him to ask, "Really? What for?" "Well, I was trying to save a hidden village, but it got destroyed in the process," replied Naruto. "Well, no duh, you're just a kid, Davion." Naruto uttered the desperate words, "Okay, you're not helping, I need you to help me rebuild Konoha." It appeared as though a ton of bricks had struck the elderly man. With a sigh, he got up and grabbed the chair to support himself before examining one of the blueprints. "Do you want to know the reason for my retirement? I love my work, I really do, but when I was tasked to build and design the great holds, they were my greatest triumph and biggest failure. It took a decade to complete each, give or take a few years. They are the most magnificent buildings in this world, towering wall, massive towers, extremely ornate and extravagant palaces. For what? The descendants of those rulers that asked me squandered them, corrupted their beauty by using them to safeguard their oppressive regimes. I swore never again to build anything. In fact, this cottage is the last I built, and now, I cannot bring myself to build again. I'm sorry, child, I cannot help you," Davion said, with Naruto stunned over from how many breaths he used to say all who. "It's not their fault entirely. You know, there's a portal coming up from the underworld. That's how you came here. Now it's out of control, and those rulers' descendants probably got corrupted by new arrivals in some way. Besides, if you rebuild Konoha, I'll get you all the materials you need and a workforce. I will make sure as long as I live it will not be corrupted, and make sure your legacy will not be anything other than it should be," Naruto replied. The builder sighed, a lot of big talk from someone so small. Naruto thought frantically, "I know I am making a lot of promises, but if you help me and I live, I will make sure I'll see them through. I'll think about it. You talk a lot of good talk, but in my experience, you can easily fabricate something and not follow through with it," Davion replied. Naruto said, "Thank you for your time," and walked away. Something swung Naruto into the air as soon as he stepped out of the cabin. He now understood that one of the 100 nin had located him and was holding him by the neck. In possession of Naruto, the person said, "Boss, we found him. You gave us quite a night, boy. I didn't expect you to come where we killed your crony, but then again, someone your size destroying Konoha is surprising enough," the leader replied to Naruto. "For Kami's sake, I didn't do it. It was a fire gargoyle under the control of a greater demon," replied Naruto. "That is the biggest load of crock I have ever heard. The excuses they make are getting less and less sympathetic. Well, let's take that head of yours. I hope you didn't need it for something," the leader replied and prepared his weapon. A fireball struck him just as he was ready to chop off Naruto's head. He was flung 20 feet back into a tree by the force of it. As his vision returned to normal, he noticed Davion holding a cane adorned with a dragon's head. He had on a worker's helmet, too. The leader hunter threateningly said, "Leave now, old man, or else." "That's the thing about you hunter nins, you're all bark and no bite," replied Davion. "That's it," the leader exclaimed, rushing at him with lightning-fast speed. Davion struck him in the nose with his cane just as he was ready to cut him in two. The nin's nose was broken instantly by the force of his rapid movement and cane swing. He landed flat on his stomach, and when his head struck the cottage's foundation, the sliding stopped. The nin woke up with a terrible headache and excruciating facial pain. Then he tried to slash at him a few times, but the cane's blows pushed all of his attempts aside until Naruto delivered a mid-air roundhouse kick square to the stomach, knocking out some of the wind. The other nin was slowly strangling him to death. Naruto had enough time to get out of his clutches. In response to being kicked, the other nin said, "Damn, that smart's okay, kid, time for me to get your head." The hunter nin's sword was knocked out of his hands by another blow from Davion's cane. and as he attempted to pick it up, the heavy end of the cane struck him in the face. It struck him in the nose. Multiplying his pain, a fireball from the dragon's cane mouth struck him in the head as he kind of staggered. The hunter nin were ultimately destroyed by the fire's power and heat. When Naruto and the other saw this, they became alarmed. Davion said, "So, you want some too?" As the other hunter nin answered, "No, I'll not disturb you too. See ya." He ran off. Naruto said, "Thanks, why did you save me? I thought of what you said, and I hope you keep your promises. Besides, retirement was getting quite boring in my opinion." Davion responded with a grin. Naruto said, "Well, want to come back to base?" "Yes, please," Davion said cheerfully. "I'd like to get started as soon as possible." After 7 hours, Davion's face lit up with happiness as Naruto assisted the senior up the stairs to the base. He reasoned that a corps of engineers was inevitable given the army's organization, and he was right. In order to save his lungs, Naruto shortened the titles of the 2 legions that gathered in front of him to Chief Construction Advisor, President, and Foreman. Then, like a real construction leader, Davion gave them orders right away, and they hurried off to their new jobs. As Kane walked slowly away, he yelled, "I haven't done this in so long, and how much I missed it you there. I want quality steel steaks for this, not those slag pieces of crap." Kuroi questioned, "So, this is just the start?" Naruto grinned and said, "Yep, this is just the start." Davion made the lives of the 2 legions a living hell. The secret base of Akatsuki, Zetsu, Kisame, Tobi, and Deidara were all playing poker. But Deidara was anxious about Zetsu's presence in order to gain an advantage in the game. He has been known to use his skills as the organization's spy. "You better not cheat this game, Zetsu. I'm sick and tired of losing cause you have an unfair advantage," Deidara replied. Kisame, who was posing as the dealer and even wore a dealer hat in place of his headband, said, "Oh, quit being a baby. It's your own rotten luck you lose all the time." Tobi stated, "Tobi is a good boy." While eagerly awaiting his cards, Deidara said, "Shut up, we were not talking about you." They had no idea that today would turn out badly, worse than losing a bunch of poker games. The base of operations for Naruto. The Akatsuki, an organization of S-ranked criminals, and a potential threat to this whole fiasco right now, and if you do succeed, said Kuroi. Naruto inquired, "What available legion do we have?" "The 6th is the only one we have fully armed, trained, and ready for combat," replied Kuroi. Gazing at a map of the region where their base was allegedly located, Naruto commanded, "Bring me the commander of that legion, and get Draco." The commander entered. In addition to his normal heavy armor, he was wearing an officer's helmet without a plume and with a metal crest. On his back was a big buster sword. Its blade measured 7 feet from sharp edge to back, and its handle measured 2 feet because the blade's edge was shorter than its back. The front was slanted. The blade bulged like a half circle when you placed it on the last foot before the handle, and it was followed by 3 ridges that faced backward. The sword's back was black, and the blade was molten orange. He inquired, "You called me sir?" "Yes, General Rectangle." "Draco. Why the hell did you give him that as a name?" Naruto replied. Draco answered, "I got bored while giving them all names." Naruto pointed to the Akatsuki's base area on the map and stated, "Whatever the reason, your task is to take your legion to this location, and leave nothing in that base alive." Rectangle responded, "It will be done, sir. Oh, and Draco will accompany you, and if he says something, you will acknowledge him as your superior," Naruto stated. With a bow, he said, "Yes sir," and walked away. After 3 hours, Zetsu said, "Deidara, pay up." Deidara screamed, jumping out of his chair, "Damn it. You're cheating again, I swear." Zetsu covered his face with his hand of cards and said, "Stop your complaining." The legion gathered outside, led by Rectangle and Draco. The general said, "Demolition unit, move into position." As 30 crossbowmen advanced, they loaded their weapons with demolition bolts, which functioned similarly to explosive tags. After aiming, they shot them into various areas of the door. All of the Akatsuki were shocked beyond belief when the door was blasted into dust. Kisame shouted, "At last, something besides Deidara's complaining," and drew his sword. Hidan inquired, "Who ordered something in the mail again?" Pain answered, "Trust me, no one did." "Move men, move," shouted Rectangle. The whole army, including the 3-sized fire gargoyles, charged in. Kuroi fought the normal size, Naruto fought the normal size, and then there was a huge one that was 3 times larger than the first 2. Unlike its smaller brethren, it possessed a different weapon. His right hand was changed from a flaming flail and shield to a 4-finger pincer. The fingers were arranged in a square at the base and curved out to resemble a hand. It fired the ball after opening its fingers and creating a ball of red energy between them. It produced a tremendous explosion that rocked the base to its core. Sasori yelled and let loose 100 puppets, saying, "You all think you can stop us? You will not be able to even stop my army?" Red secret technique. Performance of 100 puppets. Despite their numerical advantage, the 750 men opposing them were being killed by the dozen by the puppets' long-range weapons in order to protect themselves from it. The heavy troops eventually built a multi-level shield wall. A group of blood riflemen closed in on them. "What took you guys so long?" a heavy soldier inquired. A rifleman retorted, "We lost a few dozen just getting here. Be lucky they didn't cut us down before then." An officer in the shield wall commanded, "Just shut up, you two riflemen, return fire." After forming a firing line, they loaded a red crystal onto their rifles. Everyone aimed their rifles after jamming the bolts before the puppets took evasive action. The first barrage caught them off guard and destroyed 37 of them for safety. Sasori withdrew into Hiriko. Sasori screamed in a gruff voice, "Fools, you will all die for this. Get on the ground, my army, and crush them underfoot." Half of the remaining puppets brandished various types of melee weapons after the other puppets fell to the ground. The shield wall changed into a wall of charging soldiers as the officer yelled, "Cover fire, riflemen, all melee troops remaining, attack." When the two forces clashed, the puppets started killing the heavy troops with ease until one of them got lucky and loped off the puppet's head. The conflict then came to a standstill. The officer then slammed his shield into Sasori as he charged at the soldiers. The puppet master dismissed the attack with ease. The officer prepared his 3-foot spatha straight sword and brandished it in the time he had available. The sword's sole disadvantage was that it was a thrusting weapon without a cross guard on the hilt, which meant he would lose fingers if he wasn't careful. "You think you can kill me with such primitive means?" replied Sasori. The officer responded, "I hate to say it, but it's the wave of the future." The two commanding officers of their armies engaged in combat as the soldiers and puppets rained down on them. Sasori launched an attack using his scorpion tail and flamethrower ability. The officer's shield arm was severely strained by the constant attacks, making it impossible for him to engage in a thrust at last. Sasori struggled with the shield, attempting to tear it from his arm in order to reach the man behind him. Sasori swore, "You're a coward, hiding from me." After putting his sword through his heart, the officer retorted, "I'm just waiting for the perfect moment to strike." The soldiers in that section of the room turned to watch the fight with the other Akatsuki after his body fell and the puppets died on the ground. The animal path released all of its summons, and Pain released his 6 pads of pain. They were opposed by the medium-sized fire gargoyles. A giant ox, one of the summons, charged the gargoyle in front of him and collided with its target's shield. Giants from both sides turned against one another in that single attack. According to the animal path Pain, this could get ugly. "Just keep them busy, the rest of you. Fan out and attack," Pain instructed. Without mercy, the two groups of giants slaughtered one another. With a crushing blow to the spine, the flaming flail easily killed the giant ox. With a fortunate lightning-fast strike on the gargoyle and the use of its pincers to chop off its head, the giant Centapedia, another of Pain's summons, was able to kill its opponent. A surprise summon gave one gargoyle the advantage. The snake-tailed chameleon was about to launch a sneak attack, but the gargoyle crushed its head with its shield. The giant rhino charged, spearing its gargoyle foe and then hurling it into the ceiling to maintain the standoff. Animal Path called out to its panda summoner, "Giant Panda, kill the one on the far right." They engaged in a wrestling match after the unfriendly giant panda attacked. Anticipating this, the gargoyle locked it in a headlock before flipping back and crushing it with its entire weight. Then he stood up over the paralyzed panda and got its finisher ready. After running up the side of a wall, he formed a sword out of pure flame and used his falling momentum to thrust it into the panda before the sword vanished. It had already taken its life. Animal Path sighed, "Damn it, so much for that one." The giant crustacean was doing better against its gargoyle. Another summons it had time for a counterattack because its shell withstood multiple flail strikes. After grabbing both of the gargoyle's legs, it repeatedly smashed it to the ground before severing his chest in two more summons. The gargoyle bit off the head of the giant drillbeak bird, which was killed, and the same bird ate the head of its adversary. The other dog, which had several heads, tore its gargoyle to pieces. A stupid legionnaire exclaimed, "Round 2, before being slashed in half by Kisami's sword. Animal Path shouted, "Just kill each other already." After sparring one-on-one, they leapt into a huge dust cloud of frantic combat. The multi-headed dog triumphed over a heap of corpses. When the dust settled, a crossbow bolt hit Animal Path just as it was ready to send the dog against the rest of the army. The Path had no idea it was an explosive bolt. The Animal Path vanished in a flash. Since killing the person who summoned it was the only way for the multi-headed dog to die, it died. Pain roared, "Rest of the paths, attack," but was immediately struck by a burst of flames. The paths jumped at the throngs of charging soldiers at once. but a huge red beam quickly destroyed them. The largest fire gargoyle's special hand was the source of it. The enormous statue then exploded out of the ground as pain released it. The two then began a slugging match in which they beat the living daylights out of one another to see who could withstand the most punishment. Deidara was observing the battle from above by employing his C2 dragon technique. When Deidara demanded, "How many of these guys are here?" Well, rain down the thunder. His clay dragon created multiple miniature versions of itself before descending to the ground to produce explosions. One of the nearby soldiers ran up the wall to jump on the dragon, but the other 300 were killed in the subsequent explosions. A loaded crossbow was pointed at Deidara as he turned. When he fired, the one-eyed Akatsuki member dodged and then hit the crossbowman in the jaw with an uppercut. The soldier's quick thinking caused him to draw a dagger, but a clay clone of Deidara blocked his initial blow. The clone exploded when the dagger entered the soldier, who was almost dead and knew he would not survive this battle, put an explosive bolt in his crossbow and struck the dragon in the neck. Deidara screamed, "You idiot," and leapt for his life. In addition to killing the soldier, the blast's force killed a nearby Itachi by knocking him out of the air and slamming him into a wall with lethal force, though he got up and carried on fighting. Deidara was struck in the chest by one shield before colliding with another and falling to the ground. Before he could stand up, a nearby spearman thrust his spear into him, only to discover it was another clone. He was dragged underground before he could draw his spear. Finally, after a valiant attempt to escape, he repeatedly kicked Deidara in the face. At last, he threw him out and hurled an explosive clay piece at him. He snatched up his spear at the last second and returned the explosive to its owner using it as a baseball bat. Deidara vanished in a boom. Black Zetsu inquired, "Just how many of these guys are there?" White Zetsu answered, "Shut up and kill them so then we can find out." Kisame shouted, "I got the leader," and swung his sword at the general. Rectangle used his sword to counter every move he made with his Samahata. With every strike, sparks flew, and it was obvious that neither blade was better than the other. The general easily jumped when Kisame swung low to try to cut off his legs, and he then attempted a jump slash with equal success. The demonic statue then punched the two, forcing them to leap out of the way of the enormous gargoyle's tail. After entangling the beast and forming chakra chains, it began slamming it around like a rag doll. A fireball erupted from the fire gargoyle's mouth in a desperate attempt to break the chains. The fireball struck the statue square in the face. After bouncing off various chains, the statue was unaware that the fires were beginning to spread throughout its body. Its attempts to put out the fire only made it worse. Stumbling out, the giant gargoyle said, "Statue, pay for doing that to me." The statue's left arm was then severed by his hand laser. The enormous gargoyle then caught the statue by the shoulders and clamped its neck between its jaws as it crashed into the wall. It lopped off the head and then used its hands to tear its chest in two from the neck hole while clamping down with incredible pressure. Whether they were stupid or insane, the two Zetsus decided to attack the giant. He ate them while they were leaping up to his level because he believed it would kill them easily. Black Zetsu remarked, "I can't see a damn thing in here." White Zetsu answered, "What do you expect, we're in a stomach." Black Zetsu remarked, "Well, this is great, hold on, I'll blast us out of here." The white half said, "Wait, not that," but it was too late. Zetsu's black half formed a spike out of wood and pushed it upward. The giant gargoyle was struck in the heart, but Zetsu didn't realize it until it was too late. The spy was crushed beneath the enormous weight of the body as it fell in a heap. Kisame shouted, "Water release, great shark bullet," and a huge body of water shaped like a shark. Rectangle held his ground as the enormous water shark was shot at him in a matter of seconds. After channeling chakra into the sword, he blasted the shark with a vertical wave of energy, causing it to split in two. His new attacks, which continued to channel energy into it, put Kisame on the defensive as he stopped wave after wave of energy. He struck the water nin with an overhead blow. As the blade began to glow reddish-orange, he continued to strike, but it was only inflicting pain on Kisame's arms as he used his sword to deflect the blows. As he removed his robes to reveal his stitched-together body and the four elemental masks on his back, Kakuzu screamed, "After I kill you, I'll see just how much that sword is worth." Rectangle was then forced to block both Kisame's sword attacks and Kakuzu's elemental attacks. As the two began to double-team him, he heard the word just as he was about to employ his Earth Grudge Fear technique. The officer of the archery division shouted, "Fire!" and was struck by hundreds of arrows. He had 5 hearts, 4 of which had been taken from strong shinobi, but the sheer number of arrows that were piercing his vitals was enough to kill him. Kisame was going to slaughter the remaining few thousand soldiers with his 1,000 feeding sharks technique. Rectangle screamed, "Fire technique," underfoot volcanic pillar, and stabbed the ground with his sword. Kisame was propelled high into the air by a fire symbol that materialized beneath him. The general then leapt to his feet, knocked his samahadi sword from his grasp, and smashed him down with a cut to his stomach. Rectangle took hold of it and wielded the great swords, one in each hand, as if they were one-handed swords. He shouted, "Fire and water release! Dual great sword execution!" And then Kisame was sliced to a heap of blood and body parts with lightning-fast blows. Surprisingly, the sentient sword decided that it was acceptable because he had both earth and wind chakras in addition to fire. Furthermore, even though it still felt bad for Kisame's death, it could tell that he respected the sword and that it would be used far more often than with Kisame. Even though the larger gargoyles were dead, the smaller ones were still largely alive, and 3,055 troops cornered the remaining members of the group: Orochimaru, Pain, Hidan, and Itachi. "If you surrender, you will be tried with unbiased justice, and will give you a fair chance to redeem yourselves," Triangle said. Pain inquired, "What do you mean by fair?" "All events your lives will be looked at, even your given reason for doing the criminal activities you've committed. This may be your last chance at redemption, guys. You want to throw that away? You all could possibly start fresh, a new life, or if not, help redeem yourselves in the eyes of the public at large," Rectangle clarified. With his hands ready to be bound behind his back, Itachi said, "I will." Orochimaru remarked, "Better than dying," Pain said, "as long as you promise." Rectangle solemnly swore, "I promise in the name of the deities and hell itself." After the three left, chakra chains were used to bind their hands. Draco flew behind Hidan and picked him up as he was about to kill people with his triple-bladed Sycthe. Draco used his other hand to block the immortal's attempt to use his Sycthe to lower himself, then crushed the blades into a fine powder. Hidan said, "You think you can kill me? Be my guest?" "Oh, I'm not doing that. I have a few thousand-year-old torture technique I always wanted to try out on someone," Draco responded and fled. Location unknown. An apparently typical motel according to the person behind the desk. "Draco, what can I do you?" Draco gave him money after responding, "Give me room 445. The man gave him the key and said, "The pits of Tartarus, sweet, nice choice." Hidan muttered, "This is your torture, locking me in a motel?" When they arrived at the door, Draco answered, "Not entirely." When he opened the door, he saw a huge pit that was so deep that no light could reach the bottom. Hidan inquired, "How did that get there?" Draco dropped him after saying, "I don't know, but I'd love to see if you could escape." As added confidence, "No one has." Hidan grasped the pit's edge, but a shadowy figure pulled him under as he attempted to climb. Draco shouted, "Remember to send postcards," returning to the base. "Sir, it was a success. Most of the organization is dead, On is thrown into hell by Draco, and 3 were imprisoned waiting for a fair trial. Casualties are 1,945 inches." General Rectangle replied to Naruto. Naruto answered, "Thank you for your service, you're dismissed." The general said, "Sir, can you promise me something?" Naruto asked him, "What?" "I'd like your word that all the servicemen that died today didn't die for nothing," replied the general. Naruto told him, "Promise I can't afford to." Rectangle said, "That you, sir?" Before heading out, he inquired, "Do you have any bandages on hand?" "In the closet down the right hallway to the left," said Naruto. Thanks. Naruto was aware that he could afford to cause their deaths for no reason. He was aware that although he had won a battle that would benefit him, the larger conflict was still ongoing. Naruto could then start concentrating on gaining even more notoriety given the potential threat posed by the Akatsuki, but it was difficult to find the good kind. Kuroi discovered Naruto dozing off at work when he went to look for him. Kuroi shouted, "Wake up!" but Naruto was still asleep. Davion rapped Naruto on the knuckles with the walking part of the stick and said, No, if you want someone to wake up, you hit them, not yell at them." "OWWWW!" exclaimed Naruto in agony. Kuroi inquired, "Have you gotten any sleep?" "How can I sleep with the threat of being executed over my head? You guys don't have that problem," replied Naruto. Draco emerged from the shadows and remarked, "Maybe you need something to put that fear to rest." Kuroi inquired, "How do you do that?" Draco responded, "A magician never reveals how he performs his tricks." Kuroi retorted, "You're a dragon, not a magician." Draco answered, "I can double as one." Naruto said, "Shut up both of you, now tell me what I need." "Battle equipment. Something to make you feel like the Supreme Commander and let people know you're the Supreme Commander," Draco replied. "Good, cause my old equipment's trashed and gone," Naruto replied. Kuroi questioned, "Who could make stuff as good as you say?" Draco answered, "You're looking at him." Davion inquired, "Since when can you build stuff?" Draco answered, "I can't, but my brethren can." Adding, "I'm interested." Naruto. There's on-catch dragons are brilliant blacksmiths, the greatest of them all, but their services don't come cheap, Draco replied. What would it cost for a sword and a suit of armor? Asked Naruto. Draco answered, a corrupted dragon soul. Together, Naruto, Kuroi, and Davion exclaimed in disbelief, the hell? Draco retorted, how else are you going to fuel a fire? Davion answered, I don't know, maybe coal. You mortals use that to make fires. No wonder why your weapons and armor suck. A soul of a corrupted dragon burns hotter and longer than any known fuel or flame it's necessary to meld the components together. Dragon scales, Draco replied. Naruto remarked, interesting choice of materials. They are not just any dragon scales, they're the scales of the oriental dragon himself. They are stronger and lighter than any metal, either mortal or demonic, replied Draco. Naruto inquired, how does one get a corrupted dragon soul? Draco questioned, you really want to know? Yes. Draco commanded, follow me. After Naruto followed the dragon, Draco teleported to a dim hallway after making a number of hand gestures and uttering them in dragon language. Draco said, please pick a weapon and shield. Naruto questioned, so I have to kill it, right? You could say that, you'll find out in a minute. Just pick a weapon and a shield, Draco replied. Naruto discovered one he liked. It was a 4-foot sword with a white handle and a blue blade that was cyan. He picked a shield that appeared to be composed of black dragon scales and proceeded down the hallway in the direction of light. He discovered that he was in the center of a gladiatorial coliseum. When he left, there were several dragons in the crowd. There were 2 dragon announcers in the box. Ladies and gentle dragons, this is going to be better than last time, and it better. The last guy sucked. He called himself one of the 7 legendary swordsmen of the mist. That was terrible. The man on the right commented. Indeed, Naruto has plenty of experience with a weapon and shield combo. The champion dragon is ready for his next meal. So in order for him not to get hungry and give Naruto a challenge, we tied to a stake Hinata Hyuga. The person on the left replied. The right one said, let's prepare for a death battle, and swung his tail behind him to strike a gong. The dragon leapt out of a metal door beneath the announcer's box. It was incredibly muscular, but its wing webbing was tarnished with age, making it incapable of flying. Its scales were red, its back was striped with yellow, and the rest of its body was blue. Out of the back of its head protruded 2 long, straight horns. It approached Hinata, ready to eat. After noticing her to attract its attention, Naruto threw a rock at it. Naruto shouted, hey buddy, you don't want to eat her first, save her for dessert, come and get me, and used his shield to block the dragon's incoming fireball. Naruto swiftly attempted to block the dragon's fire beam with his shield. The fire was unable to spread, and Naruto began to approach Hinata gradually. While obstructing the beam's path, he approached Hinata and was ready to sever her with his sword when a small portion of the fire beam ricocheted off the shield's edge and knocked it from Naruto's grasp behind him. It pressed itself into the wall when Hinata attempted to reach inside her jacket for a kunai. The dragons bound her, preventing her from doing so. While still blocking the beam, Naruto threw ninja stars at the ropes and yelled, hang on. Even though Hinata was afraid of the dragon, he cut enough ropes for her to escape. Concentrating, Naruto angled the shield so that the beam would strike the dragon's head exactly, causing it to roar in rage before the beam was stopped. Naruto told Hinata, little help Hinata, I could really use it. I can't, she answered. Why not? You do want to get out of here alive, right? Replied Naruto. She answered, I'm not good for anything. Yes, you are for one thing. We can take that thing if we try for one thing. It can't fly, so it's stuck on the ground. Second, one can distract while the other attacks. We have advantages, and we can use them to get out of here alive. Naruto continued. Hinata remarked, I can't fight this thing. Fine, you hold the shield, and block his attacks while that give me an opening to attack him. I come back and hide behind you with the shield for cover, and process repeat. Naruto replied and gave her the shield. Please, don't trust me, Hinata said, holding the shield meekly. Opening his mouth, the dragon aimed another beam of fire at them. Despite Hinata's quick block, the force of it sent them both into the wall and smashed her against Naruto. Hinata was cushioned by Naruto when they collided. Naruto cuddled up to Hinata's back and said, see, I knew I could count on you. Hinata blushed in return. You Naruto, Hinata attempted to utter. Hang on, can you hold back his attacks long enough for me to get the sword? Replied Naruto. Hinata stammered, why yes. The dragon was on the verge of charging after Naruto when he was struck in the eye by a rock as he fled. It didn't hurt it, but when it looked back, it saw Hinata throwing it. Then, while Hinata's arm was still in the strap behind the shield, he ran at her and got her shield stuck in his mouth. The dragon raised his head 5 feet off the ground and violently shook it back and forth, attempting to tear Hinata's arm off with the force of the shaking just in time. Naruto grabbed the sword and hurled it like a tomahawk. One of his horns was severed by the spinning blade, and Hinata caught it as it bounced in a different direction. Then, in order to get the dragon to release itself, she cut its face. Naruto grabbed his sword from Hinata and yelled, "Okay, let's kill this thing." As she prepared to stop the next attack, Hinata questioned, how do we kill it? Get me as close to that thing as possible, then I'll see what I can do, replied Naruto. The dragon roared toward them, so Hinata didn't have to move. With perfect timing, Hinata activated her Byakugan and used the shield to smash the dragon's head. Naruto leapt on the dragon's aching head as it came to a complete stop. He stepped on one of the dragon's spikes by mistake while attempting to regain his balance, and it punctured his shoes. Additionally, it pierced his foot's bone, causing him to fall off. The sword then pierced one of Naruto's eyes to divert the dragon's attention as he seized him in his jaws and prepared to swallow him. Looking at Naruto's foot, Hinata said, "Are you alright?" Naruto angrily answered, "It's broken, I swear it is." Hinata assumed a Hyuga fighting stance after picking up the sword in her other hand at Hinata. The dragon whirled and swung its tail. She was pushed back a few dozen yards by its force and waited for another attack. A fire could actually be seen in the dragon's eyes at this point, as he was so furious that he was blindly angry. Hinata stutteringly said, "What's the matter? And not hungry?" It belonged to the dragon. It launched itself at Hinata in a final lunge, prepared to crush her beneath its weight. When Hinata leapt at it, she completely reversed her position and rode the dragon like Naruto, only this time, she was aware of all the spikes. She stabbed it through the head 28 times, which was out of character, even though it was dead by the 7th or so. As she descended from the lifeless body, she almost passed out from perspiration. A dragon swooped in to grab the purple and black orb that emerged from its carcass. Naruto told Draco, who came down to retrieve him, "There, I paid." Draco flew into the stands after saying, "Yes, and now they'll get started, though I'll leave you two for a bit to have a proper goodbye." Hinata approached Naruto and assisted him in standing up to a certain extent. He turned to face her and laughed and smiled sardonically. What?" inquired Hinata. "You said you were worthless, and look at you now. You killed a dragon. If you were worthless, then how did you do it?" replied Naruto. Before Hinata could finish her sentence, Naruto placed a finger to her lips. Naruto gave her a thoughtless forehead kiss and walked away, saying, "Here's how you gain self-confidence. Remember this. Sometimes when you seem everything you do has no meaning, it does, just not in a visible way." As the announcers performed their customary post-fight jargon, she instantly passed out and was teleported away. After limping to a group of dragons who were waiting for him, Naruto teleported to a sizable forge. The soul had just been placed in the forge, which was reached by a vast network of railed carts transporting dragon scales. A dragon breathing fire lit it on fire, and a white flame emerged from it. After positioning a 2-foot sword hand just beyond the fire's reach, they inserted a single scale into a tiny opening in it. After it was fused to the handle, they added another to lengthen it. They carried out this methodical, slow process until they had a 5-foot blade on the handle, making the total length of the katana blade 7 feet. "Now that looks nice, I better get working out," Naruto replied. An orange dragon called out, "Get ready for sharpening," and they dipped the blade in some water before carrying it to a grindstone. A very old Chinese dragon was waiting for it when they took it to a big grindstone. After carefully honing the blade edge to a razor point, he handed it to his large helper, who used a rock to test its sharpness. They finally needed something to give the sword real power after it sliced through the rock like a knife through butter. The elderly dragon questioned, "Naruto, may I please have that amulet?" Naruto asked back, a little uneasy, why? "A sword is strong when it is sharpened, but a truly powerful sword has an added property to it," the dragon responded. He placed the amulet at the intersection of the sword's blade. After Naruto handed it to him, the blade immediately caught fire, and the amulet transformed into a red orb with a black center. As the dragon swiftly made a scabbard for it, it said, "Naruto, I give you the Imperial Sword of Eternal Hellfire. May when you are able to wield this sword, you use it wisely." The flames went out when it was put in its scabbard. Naruto saw his armor being forged across the workshop, but like the sword, it was much too large for him. 5 horizontal bands of flexible scales were added after a chest plate that covered the ribs. Strips like the ones on the waist covered the arms to the gauntlets, and pointed claws were at the end of the fingers. His shoulder pauldrons overlapped the straps on the shoulders for the chest piece with a large spike. Even down to the greaves, which included a boot, The leg armor was similar. The entire armor was composed of a vast array of colored scales, each one existing in every possible shade. His one-piece helmet had a versus-shaped visor that allowed him to see well and use his peripheral vision in addition to his frontal vision like the legionnaire officers. It also had a crest, but it was bigger and had spikes from dragons on it. Okay, exactly how am I supposed to use these? The sword's too big and the armor's too big too. What was the point of all this? Naruto responded. Draco answered. Planning for the future, Naruto retorted. I might not have a future. Draco replied. Well, that is yet to be seen. The last thing Naruto said was, well, I guess I can at least look at them till I'm strong enough and big enough to even hold them. Before he teleported away with Naruto, Draco told him, Naruto, this is just the beginning for what you'll have to go through, just the beginning. On his right side, Naruto had a spear and a big fishing pole while he slept. The small farming town he was helping had a problem with something eating their livestock and goods being shipped out by boat, and one witness saw it. It was a giant crocodile, large enough to eat a whole herd of cattle in one bite. Naruto grabbed it and tried to reel it in. He was now 13 years old, soon to be 14 years old, and had larger, bulkier muscles to boot. He was abruptly awakened by a fierce tugging on the line. Naruto pondered, come on, big guy, how about you join me for dinner? With its thick black hide, yellow eyes, and thick triangular head, the giant reptile thrashed with the hook stuck near one of its teeth. Its teeth were black, almost stone-like, and were jagged with smaller spikes facing backwards. Naruto gripped his spear and planted the pole in the knot of the tree he was sleeping by. The crocodile continued to thrash in agony, its tail hitting a tree behind it and snapping it like a twig. Let's play croc, Naruto shouted and leapt. He was struck by the swinging head and broke most of his ribs, but he managed to hang on and climb on despite the shaking. Naruto carefully aimed and thrust, which pierced the croc's eye. The thrashing grew stronger and faster as he held onto the spear, attempting to drive it even deeper into the reptile. One last thrust pierced the brain, and the giant crocodile fell limping in the water. All right. How can we now remove this item from here as evidence? Naruto shouted and then questioned. 3 hours later, we returned to the farming town. Naruto used the villagers to help him drag the monster out of the swamp, giving them instructions as he went along rather than yelling at them to move. After they had finished dragging it into the town center, Naruto declared, here you go, it's dead. The village elder responded, thank you sir, you have saved us in more ways than one. Naruto placed his hand on a few of his fractured ribs and remarked, believe me, I'm going to be healing for a while before I try something like that again. You owe us money, the elder told him. We will help you in any way we can. I wouldn't have any issues at all if everyone were like you guys, Naruto gave a compliment. Naruto hobbled away after that, and everyone thanked him and bid him farewell as long as he was in their line of sight. Draco had a surprise in store for him, though, so he wouldn't have any downtime. 7 hours later, back at base, when Naruto eventually found a seat back at base, he winced in agony. Kuroi, Draco, Davion, all of the Legion generals, and 5 regional judges Naruto had recruited were in a football huddle, talking about something related to Naruto. Kuroi countered, I say we should tell him, and let him shatter the remaining bones? I don't think so, Davion retorted. Let's cast our votes with the exception of Davion. Most people raised their left hands when Draco said, who says we tell Naruto about it now? We have a surprise for you, big boss. Kuroi summoned Naruto. Naruto answered, don't call me that. After saying, whatever, we have a gift for you. Kuroi escorted him outside to the rear of the base. He came face to face with the largest dragon he'd seen outside of his mindscape. A European dragon of about 57 feet long, 25 feet at the shoulder, and a thick black shell. Massive claws and talons jutted from both the front and rear limbs. 5 rows of spikes starting as small stubs at the forehead running all the way to be stubs at the end of the tail, and they grew larger till the middle back, the largest 7 feet. He had 2 mammoth wings and each wing fingerbone also extends forward to make a finger. He had triple horns on his snout. The first and biggest was like a mild crescent, forming a spike to act as the front teeth of the mouth, and extended up to be a thick, 5-foot blade-like horn. The second and third were rhino-like in shape, but smaller. On both sides of the back of the head was a pair of massive straight horns, and many smaller curved horns. His teeth were black blade spikes coming out of his gums, jagged with smaller spikes on them like the croc, but smaller, and more in the mouth. Finally, it had blood-red slitted eyes, piercing into Naruto with a gaze that amazed him to the core. This is the Imperial Dragon, Koshitsu Ryu. Let's say he's your new combat partner, Draco said. Hi, big man, it's good to meet you. My name is Naruto, Naruto said. extending his hand in greeting. They trembled as the enormous dragon, which had heard a lot about Naruto and wanted to know if he truly deserved to be called the champion of the Oriental Dragon, a title that all other dragons also aspired to, craned its long, robust neck and examined his new human partner. While searching for a saddle, Naruto remarked, "Hey, let's go start training, I always wanted to fly." "Oh no." With the exception of Ryu, who was literally unable to speak in any way, the entire assembly said. "If I can't begin training with him, what good is it for me to meet him?" Leaning on Ryu's leg, Naruto posed the question. Davion told them, "I told you guys it was a bad idea. The amount of forces just going into a dive riding on him would be enough to kill you in this state," Rectangle clarified. "Don't worry guys, I got a great royal doctor and nurse pair to take care of things," Draco replied. "How and by whom did you obtain them?" Kuroi inquired. "It all started 3 days ago," Draco said. Rewind. 3 days prior, casino. Draco entered a larger, multi-story casino and used his keen vision to try to find a specific person. He eventually located the person he was looking for, Tsunade, who was sweating profusely from losing a lot of money at gambling, at a poker table and a bottle of sake. "Pay up," said the dealer in response. Tsunade said, "I bet it all." "What?" The dealer inquired. "What is the amount she owes?" "Who hovered over there?" Draco inquired. Well, apprehensively, the dealer said, 750 million yen. After searching through a pocket in his armor, Draco eventually located the diamond he was seeking. It was quite large and fit neatly in his hand. "Will this work?" Draco inquired incredulously. The dealer said, "More than enough." A dragon had just paid off Tsunade's gambling debts, but what did they have to do in exchange? Tsunade and Shizune stared at the dragon, unsure of what to say. Tsunade said, "Thank you," Draco answered. "You're welcome, I could use someone with your talent." Tsunade remarked doubtfully, "If it's my luck then I don't understand." Draco clarified, "I'm talking about your medial talents." "Really?" Tsunade inquired. Shizune whispered in her ear, "I don't think this is a good idea." "You don't believe in me?" Draco inquired in surprise. Shizune said sternly, "Yes, I don't." "Shizune, don't be too quick. For what purpose do you need me?" Tsunade inquired. "I need both of you to be the official doctors of the new ruler of the Shinobi Nations," Draco declared. When Tsunade finally remembered, she said, "Really? Oh, that's right, some kid got a deal with the daimyos like that. Even more reason not to put our trust in him." Shizune threatened to have us put to death for treason if this man failed. "This child would enable me to return to Konoha, where I've already been banished. I will," Tsunade told Draco. "It's the least you can do to pay off my gambling debts." "Great, let's move forward. I have no reason to stay here since they don't have chess," Draco replied. Final flashback. "Where are they?" did Naruto ask. Draco stated simply, "In the hospital section of the base waiting for you." As they picked up Naruto, 2 medics wearing medium chainmail armor aside from the leather helmet, boots, and bracers said, "Here, let us help you, sir." "That's an order, so hold on and put me down." In a panic, Naruto gave an order. The person on the left said, "Sorry sir, but the chief medical officer outranks you when it comes to your health." The person on the opposite side of him said, "That's Lady Tsunade now." Despite his best efforts, Naruto was unable to escape his iron grip, and he was taken to his own private medical room, where he was accompanied by Tsunade and Shizune. Both were dressed as white nurses and had white heels. The only difference was that Tsunade's symbol was gold with a gold ring around it rather than a red cross. "Gently place him on the bed. I must assess the extent of the damage," Tsunade commanded. After setting Naruto down and departing, she carefully felt around each rib, causing him to groan in agony. She then recorded the findings on a clipboard and used her fingers to push each fragment of the broken ribs back into its proper location. "All right, they will be like new in a few months." Shizune was left to watch Naruto after Tsunade said, "I'll be back to give you some painkillers for the first exposure of healing jutsu." "What would happen, then, if I attempted to depart?" did Naruto ask. "Either Lady Tsunade or me would beat you unconscious and bring you back," Shizune responded. Naruto thought, "So that's what I'm up against, shouldn't be too hard," and pretended to nod off. When Tsunade returned a few minutes later, she took advantage of the golden opportunity to put Naruto to sleep and began attempting to hasten the healing of his ribs. The only thing that was accomplished was to halt the internal bleeding. "Well, let's give him time to figure it out," Tsunade said. "We'll be back at dinner time," and the two departed. Ryu was sleeping under a tree when Naruto woke him up, and he slipped out as soon as they left the room and he realized they were down the hall. The dragon spread its enormous wings as Naruto said, "Okay, let's just go around for a simple fly. The dragon carefully lifted off the ground and began to fly, reaching a height of about 500 feet for some reason. Naruto found flying to be very enjoyable and natural, and he had no intention of going down anytime soon. However, fate has a way of thwarting plans, so Tsunade discovered this and gave the archers a new practice target. That woman was serious, damn it! Naruto shouted as the dragon effortlessly dodged the volley of arrows. A broadhead arrow became lodged in the right side of his waist as a result of his evasion, and after he fell off, Shizune caught him and carried him back in a bridal fashion before they began surgery to remove the arrow. I warned you not to fly. It will take longer now, Tsunade cautioned. You need rest, not flying lessons, and withdrew the arrow before Shizune closed the wound. Naruto responded to her by saying, "You are a crazy woman. Hey kid, let's clarify one thing. Draco did me a great favor by helping me run a tight ship. I'm going to give this job my all, and it will reflect poorly on me if you don't improve, you understand? Well, stay in bed and get some rest," Tsunade said sharply. "Yes ma'am," Naruto said, a little alarmed. Later that day, evening. He switched to night operations after realizing that attempting to see the dragon during the day would be fatal, and since his room had no windows, he had to sneak out through the hallways. He eventually made it to the training grounds in the back, where he discovered the dragon dozing beneath the same tree. Assuming the dragon hadn't heard him, Naruto remarked, "I'm not here for flying, I'm just here to think." The dragon, unaware that he had been heard, opened its eyes slowly and turned its head in Naruto's direction. "I have a feeling you're not as stupid as you appear. You only appear to follow my instructions. Don't you think you're smarter than that?" The dragon raised its head in response to Naruto's question. The dragon seemed almost insulted by that, and he made his point by smashing his tail on the ground. "I'm sorry, easy, we have at least a basic understanding now. You see," Naruto attempted to make things right, but the dragon remained unimpressed. "Fuck it. That brat. Where are you? Don't leave the room into his thick skull because I'm going to beat him this time." Tsunade was heard. "Oh no, she's discovered," Naruto said, "hide me," and the dragon merely grinned and giggled. She rushed past, desperately searching for him, and Naruto scampered under its thick tail to avoid being caught. After she left, Naruto fled for his life, and a few minutes later, Ryu heard him scream in agony. He just grinned and went back to sleep, knowing that Tsunade wouldn't beat him up too severely. Now that he was almost 15, Naruto had fulfilled his half of the bargain. He was now 6 feet 4 inches and had a warrior's appearance, wearing the dragon scale armor except for the helmet, and the sword was in its scabbard on his back. "Your recruits are prepared, buddy," Kuroi dialed. Naruto said, "I'll be out soon," and snatched his helmet. He was still redesigning the national flag and symbol, but he had an idea for this new force he was going to create, and when he stepped out onto the training grounds, he saw 9 recruits standing in a line. 5 boys and 4 girls, all about Genen's age, 12 to 13. "Okay, kids, do you understand why you're here?" did Naruto ask. "To rise to the top of the army's combat ranks?" the youngest boy inquired. The boy grinned when Naruto said, "Right on the first try." "Mister, what specific method will you use to train us?" the biggest Genin inquired, ready to begin. "Patience. First, you all need to know your new role in the army," replied Naruto. "What is that, too?" one of the 4 girls inquired. Naruto declared, "To be my most elite force, the Dragon Ultra Guard." "Did you not think of the title?" a black-haired boy inquired. "Okay, not the best name, but you do get the best equipment when you're finished training," replied Naruto. "We get dragons, don't we?" the youngest boy inquired. "Yes, you do, and you did it before me. Establish ground rules before we begin the process of finding you a new partner. First of all, the dragon chooses you, not the other way around. Being sentient beings, they are aware of their preferences in a made second. If the dragon lashes out at you, go on to the next one because it will want to kill you if it doesn't pick you. When you finally have your dragon, take it directly to its holding area because they can become irritable around strangers," Naruto said, rambling. Before Naruto could guide them to the dragons, a messenger rushed in and fell to the ground. He let out a gasp. "Urgent message, sir." "All right, go relax," Naruto said. "Kuroi, take care of the kids, I have some business to attend to," and departed. Meanwhile, somewhere in the middle of the wind roared through the vast stretches of who knows where, but it was probably wind country because there was no vegetation at all. A 15-year-old Sasuke was on the verge of going insane when he collapsed and saw a rock with what appeared to be a sword on it. He crawled over to it in desperation, and when he did, he grabbed it. He mustered all his strength to stand, and he pulled out the sword, which, regrettably, broke into dust, but the hilt remained intact. and waves of black and gold energy flowed through his veins. "I'll test this sword after I've fixed it," Sasuke thought to himself. "Let's see how good a complete blade as I can feel extreme power in the hilt alone." Sasuke wasn't there, so Naruto rode on top of Ryu and followed Draco across the desert to the rock they landed, and the three approached it. "What was so significant about this stone?" did Naruto ask. "It's your sword's twin hilt." The hilt was made with a sister, but the blade is brand new. "The blade has probably disintegrated by now, so whoever took it will undoubtedly make a new one," Draco replied. "So even if its new blade is of iron, that blade could be a force to be reckoned with," Naruto continued. As he started to consider where to locate this thief, Draco answered, "Yep, though by this point, there's no way of telling who took it or where he went." A few days later, in the misty land with his new blade, a 4-foot katana with a black hilt that gleamed in the sunlight, Sasuke emerged from a blacksmith's workshop wearing a robe. Suddenly, the blade crackled with black energy and shot like a laser into the sky, creating clouds and a hole in the sky. Hundreds of dragons roared down, destroying everything in their path, but they stopped all around Sasuke, and one of them approached him and turned to face him. With a joyful grin, Sasuke said, "This is totally my day." He then climbed on. Returning to the base when Ryu and Naruto sensed a strange disturbance, he ended the lessons and they headed for the source of the disturbance. Naruto was busy beginning to teach the recruits how to use their new weapons, the bow. Returning to the Mist Land, "You all follow me, then?" "Excellent, I can destroy anything now that I have a dragon armada." "Destroy Kirigakure first, then the entire world," Sasuke declared. Obviously, one of the dragons shot back. "Who picked up that hilt, then?" "Sasuke, a crazy ass?" The dragons panicked as Naruto landed close to the mass, saying, "Kami, what the hell?" Today was looking up. "Avoid urinating in your pants and don't cower in terror. We can have him," Sasuke shouted at his soldiers. "Your blade isn't a good blade just because it has a magic hilt, but this is," Naruto uttered, raising his sword and shooting its own laser into the sky. Two armadas of dragons hovered in rows facing each other as a similar portal appeared in the sky, and dragons poured out. Both humans realized that this was war, not just a duel. "Attack!" Together, Sasuke and Naruto let out a roar. Without any other guidance, the dragons charged at the opposing forces, causing mass chaos as they struck. Some dragons were engaged in furious dog fights with them, while others were surrounded and torn apart by the opposing side's dragons, and still more died as they fell from the sky. Sasuke took offense at Naruto's reflection. "You know, I almost feel ashamed fighting an unskilled opponent like you." "I'll demonstrate unskilled," Sasuke screamed, nearly severing Naruto's head. If it weren't for Ryu's half-corkscrew flying move, Naruto was now upside down and above Sasuke. Naruto concurred, saying, "Well, you were right, you did show me unskilled." Sasuke's face flushed with pure rage and he started attacking his opponent wildly, and his dragon did the same. He threw wild sword slashes, shotgun-like blasts of fire, and exploding tags at Naruto and Ryu in a desperate attempt to kill them, but his hope was dashed as the dragon easily dodged the attacks, causing Ryu to twist, bend, and loop in ways he never imagined possible. "I'm going to be a sport, you know." Naruto tried to get angry by saying, "I'll give you 5 free hits on me if you can hit me while I'm standing still." It seemed to work. Sasuke threw his dragon-scale sword at Naruto like a javelin, and in a matter of seconds, it was almost upon him. He swung it and broke the blade, and the collision of the two energies caused an explosion that knocked both dragon leaders out of the sky. All of the fighting dragons halted and turned to face the ground, and when Sasuke's dragons saw that the sword was broken and that its power had dissipated, they behaved entirely differently. "This is your chance, my armada, destroy Naruto." Sasuke gave the order, but it was misunderstood. They had no intention of being ordered about anything else, and now they were under Naruto's power. The dragons surrounded him, pushing and shoving each other to get their jaws on a piece of him, and then they started tearing him apart, tearing off his limbs, organs, bones, and meat, and even when they did, they fought over those pieces. When he finally died, all that was left was his head, and the dragon that let Sasuke ride it grabbed it and devoured it whole. Naruto then turned to face the gates of Kirigakure. "He kept us safe. We were saved by the Konoha destroyer," one citizen in the mist shouted. "People of the mist, I am not here to hurt you, I'm here to help," Naruto responded. As she approached him with 4 shinobi on either side, the Hokage Madarumi said, "And we all understand that. I promise it will be better for you if you align yourself with me and your entire nation. For everyone, I swear," Naruto declared. Despite the fact that he was still wearing his helmet, she kissed him on the cheek and said, "I like that idea, big boy." Naruto addressed her, saying, "Come on, you're embarrassing me." Naruto jumped on him after Ryu pushed him, and he took off into the sky with a wave and a salute with one entire nation under his belt and a few isolated pockets of intelligence throughout the others. He still had a lot of work ahead of him. Wearing his full armor and carrying his sword, Naruto entered a small town with the self-explanatory goal of doing something to push people away from the current government and move on. He entered a tavern to find out what the town's issues were, removed his helmet, and sat down, at which point a bartender approached him. "Can I get you something?" she inquired. She departed after Naruto said, "Get me a glass of sake?" As he waited for his drink, he noticed that the room was tense, that everyone seemed to be waiting for something, and that they were ready for a fight. Naruto turned his head to look at the woman, who was surrounded by several men, and since his drink had not yet arrived, he decided to investigate. With a 1-foot blade in his hand, one of them said, "Okay, pale girl, time for answers." She answered, "Please, I swear I didn't do anything." Naruto loomed over the group and said sharply, "Excuse me gentlemen, explain to me what's going on here." "And who are you?" another asked, brandishing a wood-cutting axe. Naruto emphasized the final point, saying, "Let's just say someone who believes attacking a woman with a weapon of any kind is very unkind, if you catch the drift." They then quietly departed. "Many thanks." The woman frantically thanked Naruto, saying, "I don't know what they would do to me, but it would not be good." After examining her, Naruto was unable to understand why they would wish to hurt her. She was 5 feet 7 inches, had long black hair that reached her hips, and was dressed simply in a green dress with boots and an apron. Even though she lived in the desert, her skin was extremely pale, almost snow-colored. Her face was very inviting, and her eyes were a fiery orange overall. Her body was attractive, with the ideal balance of athleticism and curvy proportions. Naruto answered, "You're welcome, it's part of the job." "If it's not too much trouble, I need some help with something," she inquired. Naruto wolfed down his drink and said, "Well, alright, I never could resist helping a pretty face." The woman blushed slightly. "Thank you, it may be a bit of work, but it would help me a great deal," she replied. Naruto inquired, "By the way, what is your name?" "Atlalis," came her response. Naruto pondered, "I don't know why, but I've heard that name before." However, he dismissed the thought and followed her out of the tavern. Naruto was led by Atlalis to a dead tree on a sand dune outside the town. She slid down an old ladder that led to a small hatch by the tree. However, Naruto descended gradually and discovered they were in an old tomb of some sort. She muttered, "Be careful, we don't want to wake the guards." Naruto returned the whisper, "The guards? Who would guard this place?" Interestingly, he was heard by something. The gray turned to gold and white trim as a statue came to life in full white and gold plate armor. It resembled a human. A huge, 5 foot 7 inch axe with a massive, one-sided, white blade was drawn from the wall and swung at Atlalis, threatening to cut her in two if Naruto hadn't stopped it with his sword. He kicked the axe back and then decapitated the statue warrior, destroying it. "What the devil was that?" did Naruto ask. "That is a sun guard. They're everlasting warriors who keep this old temple safe from invaders," she pleaded and clarified. "You can overcome them, but I could never." After saying, "Stand back," and snapping his neck, Naruto realized he had forgotten to put on his helmet, which he did. He entered a room with only one door, and as soon as he took a step toward it, a dozen sun guards surrounded him. A moment later, a larger version of the guard, known as a Hyperion guard, emerged from the wall, carrying 2 golden broadswords in place of an axe, and it was 13 feet tall. The first 3 charged, but Naruto easily swung his sword and chopped off all 3 of their heads. Another attempted to attack him from behind, but was equally easily defeated by being smashed in the face with the sword's pummel. Naruto thought, "I don't see how she was afraid of these things, they're easy to defeat." He parried the other attacks with ease. The guard then attempted to cut Naruto in half with a roundhouse swing low, but Naruto easily jumped over it and landed on the face of the living statue. He took aim and successfully killed it by driving his sword home in its eye, and when Naruto leapt off, the force pushed the body back into a wall and crumbled into dust. The other 2 backed off and fled for no apparent reason, and the wall that the Hyperion guard smashed into opened to reveal an altar with a strange spiked shrine that was dripping blood. As Naruto made her way to the altar, Atlatis said, "Thank you so much for helping me, I never would have gotten past those guards." "I fail to see why. If a fly landed on those things they would have crumbled," replied Naruto. "I assume you're looking for a prize?" Her voice was now very seductive as she asked. "Well, that would be pleasant," Naruto remarked, somewhat in a daze. After leading him to the altar and placing him on it, she retreated and raised her hands in the air, causing a blood-red aura to appear on them. "Restore my ability to assume my mantle, Altar of the Night, Essence of Blood, let me rise as the greater demon of vampires, Atlatis." As I really am, I use this power to make this mortal my eternal servant in exchange for his service," she roared, and Naruto got up from the altar and bowed to her. Her eyes had changed, with a bright yellow pupil and red lines now running from her forehead down the sides of her neck and across her eyes. After a week, "General Ventrose, I detest coming out in this nation. My fur and the heat don't mix," Kuroi grumbled to the general beside him. "Sir, I'm the one in plate armor weighing well over 100 pounds, if anyone's to complain, it should be me," he replied. Ventrose was roughly the same height as Rectangle, but he was thinner and had a golden tan. He had emerald green eyes, naturally gray hair that wasn't from aging, and a katana with a red and blue hilt on his side. With two separate guards in the shape of a trident on each side, he held a standard wood and steel kite-shaped shield in his left hand. "Where in the world did Naruto go?" Kuroi angrily remarked. "We are running out of time on the deal, and I do not want my head at the chopping block." "Maybe we could ask someone where Commander-in-Chief Naruto is? He was last seen in this town," Ventrose answered. The town was even more tense than when Naruto was there, and Ventro discovered a beggar sitting on the tavern porch. If there was even a spark, these people would turn into a bloodthirsty mob. "Pardon me, but have you recently seen someone wearing multicolored armor enter here?" he inquired. "Yes, we never saw him again after he left town with a wench to the dead tree. Really feel bad for him. That woman was dangerous all the time," the woman beggar said. "This tree is where?" Ventrose inquired. "Outside of town that way on a sand dune, can't miss it," she said. "I'm grateful. Follow me, sir. I've discovered where Naruto went." Kuroi went to the tree after Ventrose called to them. "All right, so where might he have gone?" Kuroi inquired and unintentionally kicked the hatch door off. Ventrose exclaimed, "Great find, boss. Ah, even if it means my toe," Kuroi fired back. After descending the ladder, they discovered that the first doorway was blocked by the surviving sun guards. "What are you doing and who are you?" Kuroi inquired. "We were made to guard the blood shrine. We are sun guards," one of them stated. "The ancients created us to defend the altar from Atlantis, the greater demon of vampires. We were doing our job till some guy in rainbow-colored armor came in and destroyed our kin and helper," another replied. "The irony is that we are trying to find the individual you described despite being tricked. He was always swayed by attractive faces," Kuroi recalled. "Just to have sex with a naked woman on the other side. He once jumped a lava ravine full of fire sharks. We can help you recover the shrine if you help us release Naruto from her enthrallment," Ventrose said. One of them promptly replied, "Deal," and prepared their weapons. After tearing down the barricade, the group hurried inside to find Atlantis waiting for them. Naruto emerged from the shadows and made a horizontal slash that almost severed a sun guard's head. "I got Naruto. You guys hold her." With a shout, Kuroi transformed into an 8-foot-tall werewolf instead of a wolf. "You stand up to me, a dirty mutt. Bring it." Furball Atlantis lunged at him, landed on his back, and shot back. The wolf monster encircled its arms with black lightning and slashes frantically, trying to defeat her with speed and powerful attacks, but being a greater demon made her far tougher to kill than imagined. She easily picked up Kuroi and threw him into the remaining sun guards, destroying them. Naruto forced Ventrose on the defensive, and even if he attacked, Naruto's armor couldn't be pierced. 3-inch claws emerged from her fingers, and she dug into his back, tearing through fur and flesh. Kuroi grabbed her in agony, but she managed to get up just fine. "This isn't functioning," Ventrose shouted and ducked behind his shield to prevent another cut from the sword. "There's got to be a way to get her control out of his head," replied Kuroi. "Why not employ electroshock therapy instead?" Ventrose made a joke. "No, it's a really good idea." Kuroi snatched Naruto's head in both hands and said, "I can shock his head enough to get rid of it without killing him." It did something, because Atlantis was now suffering from severe head trauma, because she controlled Naruto through a psychic link, which also sent the energy through it. Eventually, it reached the point where she broke it, and Naruto was free. He effortlessly lifted his friend off the ground and sent massive currents of black lightning into his head. "Oh no, my brain!" Ventrose. "Kuroi, what are you doing? Oh my god, vampire!" Like a terrified little girl, Naruto let out the final scream. Kuroi transformed back into a human and said, "Yep, he's back. I'll pay now, and you'll pay for that wolf." "Oh no, he's free," Atlantis uttered. "Die, vampire!" Naruto shouted and rushed towards her. She muttered, "I've had enough trouble for one day," and teleported off. "Hey, what happened to her?" As he desperately looked around the room, Naruto asked in confusion. "She's the greater demon of vampires, she can do that," said Kuroi. "All right, I feel unclean now." Disgusted by his actions over the last few days, Naruto remarked, I think the memories of what happened are kicking in. You've experienced worse. As they began to depart, Kuroi remarked, come on, she's not one for revenge. Are you certain? Did Naruto ask. In the millennium that she's been around, not once in recorded demon history has she ever claimed revenge on a single being, replied Kuroi. Ventrose added, ironic if you think about it. Naruto caught up to you and said, hello, I had sex with a greater demon here who knows how many times. Well, you are now the first being to ever live and tell the tale, Kuroi replied. You mentioned she doesn't seek retribution, right? Did Naruto ask. Naruto turned ghostly pale in response to Kuroi's statement that she doesn't, but I didn't say anything about her eating her thralls in the act of sex. Naruto remained silent for the remainder of the day. Naruto examined his line of Dragon Ultra Guard recruits and was about to give them their dragons after delaying their bonding with their new partners. All right, folks, I promise you'll get your dragons this time. The previous attempt was a total failure. Are you certain that nothing will stop this, Kuroi? After saying that, Naruto consulted his advisor. I had to make sure that people would temporarily keep their mouths shut, Kuroi said, not really listening to Naruto. So yeah. Naruto said sharply, next time, look at me when you say something so important. Kuroi said, sorry, boss, without turning to face him. Naruto frowned and escorted the children to a spacious open space, saying, I'll deal with you later. Draco? Did Naruto ask? Naruto was startled when the dragon behind him said, right here? Naruto came back and said, never do that again. All the dragon recruits are assembled, and I got a variety of species as suggested, Draco replied. Naruto retorted, I didn't suggest, I ordered. What's the distinction? Draco inquired. I'm just not having a good day. In desperation, Naruto uttered, someone just volunteered to go first already. The youngest boy uttered, I'll do it, sir. He approached a huge dragon that was twice as big as a T-Rex, but the child couldn't really make out what it looked like because it was mostly covered in thick layers of bones in a sort of armor. With sickly green and gray scales in patches, the dragon had no wings, only huge arms with large 4-foot claws in its fingers. It approached the child carefully, sniffed him with his big snout, and then allowed him to put his hand on it. Congratulations. Your dragon is a zombie. Before you ask, Naruto clarified, it is not undead. We just call it that because of the bones it accumulates on itself. Why are there bones all over it? The child, Gadoa, inquired. You see, it gathers dragon bones as a form of armor because its scales are extremely soft. It must constantly find dragon bones to fit on itself, though, because it keeps growing no matter how old it gets. Additionally, they become terrestrial when they reach a certain age, but they also have thumbs, are incredibly fast, and can climb and jump great distances, Naruto explained. So he's old? When Gadoa inquired, the dragon became enraged. Naruto retorted, he's only 107, they can live to be over 700. He led his dragon away after saying to himself, wow. The only issue was that the dragon's talons were too big to itch its nose, so when it sneezed, it sent out a blast of fire that hit a crate of explosive tags and caused a chain reaction that injured many, including 6 of the honor guard recruits. The only 3 recruits who were unharmed were 2 girls and the dragon's train. Several medics pulled the injured away as Naruto muttered, this just isn't my day. It's going to take weeks for most of your recruits to recover, Kuroi said. I see that, Naruto retaliated with a blast. Will we receive our dragons, sir? One of the 2 girls inquired. You 2 are identical, correct? Did Naruto ask? They answered, yes. Names? Did Naruto ask? The person on the left said, I'm Sorina. An additional person added, and I'm Tina. Naruto answered, cute names. Why is that what everyone says? Sorina yelled in rage. Sis, please don't rip Sensei's head off, like the last one, Tina responded. The final one, Naruto remarked, turning pale. Yeah, he said she was the cute one and she ripped off his head in rage, Tina replied. Fearfully, Naruto said, please get your dragon, I have to go write my will. Tina proposed, I say we get a dragon we can share. Why? Sorina inquired. Cause, it's easier to take care of one than 2, Tina replied. It's true that there is a 2-headed persona. Perfect, Sorina gestured. The dragon she described was a 2-horned rhinoceros ogre dragon, as the troops like to refer to them as a bicker team. It was even bigger than Ryu, with 2 heads and 2 necks, one with a long, straight pair of horns and the other with shorter, curved ones. It was crimson, yellow, and black, with rows of spikes running down its back and smaller ones on its necks. There were huge wedge-shaped spikes along the sides of its tail. the largest at the tail and the ones that grew smaller until a huge crescent axe-shaped club tipped the tail. The twins had already engaged in combat before the two heads had a chance to confront it. "Stop it, you two, and pay attention," in unison, the twins said. It took two people, but now the dragon acted as a single entity. Naruto was relieved, and tomorrow they would begin flying training in the most perilous location he could imagine. The two heads paused and examined them, then each went to one of them that they liked and led them on their necks. Fire Nation's southernmost tip. The children had training bows, small recurve bows with training arrows, and simple arrows with a simple thin iron arrowhead, which doesn't do much damage or have a lot of range, but it can still kill if placed in the right spot. The three dragons and their riders were standing on a grassy cliff, looking over at a small but oddly unique group of islands, with tall spires of rock rising out of the ocean, strange-looking rocks, and the islands themselves. "What are those islands made of?" Gatoa inquired. "The Eutherians are a people. They're a nasty bunch, and their primary weaponry is spears. More specifically, throwing spears. They use a metal known as oil steel to construct the points. Water cannot extinguish it once they light it. Aim to avoid being struck." Ryu leapt off the cliff to gain momentum after Naruto remarked, "This will strengthen teamwork between you and your dragon." The sound barrier was broken at the last second when Ryu flailed his enormous wings and shot off, followed by Gatoa's dragon, who backed up half a mile before charging toward the cliff, jumped right at the edge, and landed on the nearest rocky outcrop before starting to jump around them like a shinobi and swinging his long arms and claws on random trees and ruins. Sorana remarked, "Okay big guy, let's go." In response, Tina said, "Come on, let's go." When the Eutherians heard the large dragon using its wing to hover off the ground, they mobilized and jumped after the dragons, grabbing as many flaming spears as they could carry. "Coming!" As spears flew by her head, Sorana screamed. That irritated her head, which then charged up electricity rather than fire through its horns and fired a series of lightning bolts in a shotgun pattern, all of which missed. The warriors swarmed, and the other head cracked at them, only launching a napalm-like fire. Despite this, the warriors used their remarkable terrain and maneuverability to their advantage and expertly avoided being struck. It appears that these guys are adept at handling dragons, as his dragon dealt with them by swinging onto them and crushing them, Gatoa screamed. "This is where Ryu and I always practiced," Naruto shouted back. Ryu picked up the two and flew back to safe ground, followed by Gatoa's dragon. Naruto pressed the girls' chests to make them cough up the water, while Ryu and the zombie dragon massaged the dragon's necks to get it to cough up the water. The two-headed dragon didn't pay attention to its flying and crashed into a pillar, sending it and its partners into the ocean. Naruto said, "You got to pay attention out there." The twins shot back, "We were, oh my goodness, what caused your dragon to collide with that rock?" did Naruto ask. "You guys were too busy on the enemies, you didn't pay attention to your surroundings," Gatoa added. "Exactly, Gatoa, you all need to pay attention to more than just battles. You also need to pay attention to what's going on around him. Not all dragons are unbeatable. It's easy to knock them out of the sky, so sometimes you have to be the dragon's eyes," Naruto remarked. Tina remarked, "We will try next time, whatever," said Sorina. After shooting at her, Naruto took off on Ryu, Gatoa following him, saying, "It won't be whatever when you are dead." Tina grimly said, "Let's go, sis," and climbed on her neck. "We'll show him, simply wait," Sorina told her sister. After a few days, Naruto argued with Kuroi in his office, saying, "Kuroi, you and I are both aware of those reports, but there is no one residing in that region of Earth Country." Kuroi shot back, placing some unsettling pictures in front of him and saying, "Look at these images, these could only have been done by people." "All right, I'll go see it with some men." As he walked away, Naruto told him sharply, "But if this is a wild goose chase, it's your head." Men trailed behind him. In the nation of Earth, where is what Kuroi said it would be, given this location? Naruto muttered to himself. The unit's captain responded, "I don't know, sir, but something's not right about this." The captain was correct. He was struck in the eye by an arrow, and he fell. There were roughly 25 troops, but there were only 5 remaining in a matter of seconds, including Naruto when their opponents finally appeared. They were Amazons, and although they differed in size, color, and race, they all wore fur bikinis and many of them had horn bows and stone-tipped arrows. "We kill you if you move, now drop your armor and weapons," one of them commanded. "Should we do it, sir?" a soldier inquired. "I don't know, the last time I did that for a woman it didn't end well," replied Naruto. The same woman said, "Do it or we will force you to." A dominatrix, "Great, all right, boys, follow her instructions," Naruto addressed his soldiers. They had clothing underneath the armor, but Naruto wore ordinary soldier armor because he kind of sensed something was off. They made them march without warning to an unknown location. A few hours later, back at the base, Kuroi told Draco, "I told him it was something, now he's missing." "So, what made you tell him?" Draco inquired. "'Cause I thought he would be able to do it," Kuroi replied. They had no idea that the twins were listening, but they wanted to prove themselves, and they took their bows, put on leather armor, loaded as many training arrows with exploding tags as they could, and then they mounted their dragon, using the two dragons' sense of smell to guide them if used properly. Their dragon was a titan on the battlefield, so this was a good test run, and they wanted to save their sensei. After 4 hours, Amazon City, the remaining soldiers and Naruto were confined by Amazons in a cage at the top of a huge pyramid-shaped temple. In front of a huge statue that resembled a demon, Amazon City was a huge city that was larger than any of the hidden villages or any other city. Its walls were hundreds of stories high and 250 feet thick, topped with enormous towers and thousands of archers. It was decorated with golden decals and had a molten magma moat surrounding it. Naruto remarked, "I do not like this at all." One soldier remarked, "Well, at least they gave us some new clothes." One more person remarked, "These are sacrifice garments, idiot." "He's right, they'll sacrifice us for some reason. They always have a reason," Naruto concurred. "Our gods gave us the power to make civilization without men, and in order to continue to have that power, you will be sacrificed to appease them," the head priestess responded. Naruto addressed his men, saying, "What did I tell you? They have a reason." The twins' dragon was causing mass destruction on the wall when a stray lightning bolt struck close to them. The twins fired exploding tags at the closest towers, and many Amazon warriors were crushed under tons of stone. One head took one side of the wall and blasted with a napalm-like fire stream, while the other head shot lightning out of its mouth in a shotgun shell pattern. Now on the street side, the dragon leapt to the city street when Tina yelled. "We were outnumbered by a factor of 100, Sorina shouted. "All right, boys, head straight for the temple. Kill everything that stands in your way." The dragon gladly obeyed Tina's command. The firehead charged its napalm-like breath and fired it at the massive, but it only pushed back the vast group of warriors. Thousands of Amazons rushed to the scene, forming a phalanx with spears and tower shields, which are enormous shields that cover most of their bodies. Tina remarked, "So much for that plan." Sorina shot them an arrow and said, "Let's try this." They advanced slowly through the crowds, killing everyone in their path with lightning, fire, crushing physical blows, and exploding arrows. Before reaching the temple, the arrow lodged itself into one of the shields and blew up not only that Amazon but also a few around it. This gave the firehead the opening it needed, and it burned through the phalanx easily. Now, however, this brought in the Amazon's attack dogs, and the lightning head used its head as a sledgehammer and crushed them easily. The head priestess forewarned, "You two and your dragon will not stop this ritual from undertaking." "Which army are you in?" "Oh, I see now. We destroyed your army," Sorina uttered. "I'm going to pull one more prank combining statues and resurrection jutsu," the priestess uttered. The statues around the temple were dissolving and creating something new close to the altar. It got larger and more hideous every second until it formed a six-armed monster with a blackish-brown color and a deformed, hideous head. Tina whispered, "This is so not good," Sorina stated, "We can take him." In an attempt to knock the other off balance, the two beasts locked grapples. The lightning head started to beat against it, and the fire head showed off another power. It squeezed the arm on its side that was pushing against him and crushed it into sand. Within minutes, the two heads had reduced it to dust. "Now what?" Sorina shouted. The statue monster quickly reformed and lifted the dragon over its head, tossing it over the temple's edge with a simple toss. The Amazons didn't realize until it was too late that the twins' dragon had snatched the cage in its hind talons and taken off with it. "Goodbye, sucklings." As they flew out of range of attack, Sorina made fun of them. "Was it truly necessary?" Tina inquired. "Yes indeed, it was," Sorina said. The following day, noon, gentlemen and ladies, Naruto began his speech in front of the army, saying, "I want to say this about these two recruits. Despite all the odds and with very little training, these two survived a situation that most of us have never experienced." Naruto pinned the medals on their shirts and said, "For that, I personally give them the Platinum Medal of Honor, and a major thank you for saving my and the other soldiers' lives." When Ryu approached the two-headed dragon, the two dragons bowed to each other and Ryu gave them each a Medal of Honor. Two riding helms, specially made to fit riders' heads so they could better control them, were placed on their heads. "Though this threat is not eliminated, I can safely guarantee they will not be coming around to terrorize the elemental nations for any time soon," Naruto stated, and he hoped he was correct. With a huge scroll on the side that wasn't being used as a makeshift bed, Naruto was dozing off on his desk. "Are you, buddy? Finished?" Kuroi said, perplexed by what he had witnessed. "I said he would be sleeping," Davion informed Kuroi. "No one believes the old man." "Yes, indeed. I see. Are you content now? All right, boys, prepare the new country's constitution and government for transportation," Kuroi said as he led 4 soldiers to the enormous scroll and carefully removed it. "Have you noticed that?" As the soldiers left, Draco entered and remarked, "It's no wonder why he's asleep." "Dude, we saw it, of course, because we were inside." Kuroi held up an old blowing horn with a wolf's head at the end and said, "Now let's wake him up. There's one more objective he has to complete in a few weeks, or our heads are on the chopping block." Davion countered, "Let him sleep. He worked on that 20 hours straight." Kuroi blew a sound that sounded like an air horn into his ear and said, "Too late. I'm awake." Naruto sprang to his feet. "Congrats, man. You have completed all but one objective," Draco replied. "What is that?" Naruto inquired, beginning to nod off. "As they say, you must have a method of producing heirs. To put it another way, get married," Kuroi said, getting ready to lose it. "Whhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhhh "What makes me the first to deliver bad news?" Kuroi questioned his other advisors. Draco read his job description and said, "Because it's in your job description as the Emperor's personal advisor." "Give it to me." Kuroi grabbed it out of Draco's claws. "I have 2 weeks left to find a wife," Naruto shouted. Kuroi said, clearly sugarcoating it, "Slow down. Soon to be the first emperor of the elemental nations. We, your ever great advisors, have a plan to get you a match for eternal happiness." "Not crazy in English," Naruto shouted at him. Kuroi uttered in terror, "We found the perfect wife for you." Knowing that he needed to get a grip before continuing, Naruto rubbed his eyes and calmed down. Naruto commanded, "Tell me who." The response from Kuroi was, "Hinata Hyuga." There was a spooky silence in the room as Naruto simply stared at him. Naruto's final words were, "Are you kidding me?" "I apologize," Kuroi inquired. "What makes her want me?" "That is perfectly acceptable, but perhaps she has moved on." "Come on. I know she had a childhood crush on me," Naruto clarified. "She's 15, which is 3 years old. She's moved on and most likely found someone else." Holding a perfectly duplicated copy of Hinata's diary, Draco remarked, "That's not what this says." Naruto uttered the words, "You guys are low, stealing a girl's diary." Draco explained and tossed it to him, saying, "Did you see the guy that copied it into this? He can write as fast as Rock Lee could run." She would talk about him every day or so in the entry, asking where he was or what he was doing, and she would try to find the courage to go find him and tell him she loved him. Naruto read the pages from their first meeting to the present. "Where is she?" did Naruto ask. "She and her clan have talked refugee in the land of lightning," replied Draco. "Please wait while I change into new clothes and take a shower. We're leaving in about 30 minutes, so tell Ryu to get up," Naruto said, then left. After 45 minutes the dragon simply sneered and continued to fly with the map still in his front claws when Naruto questioned, "Why do you have the map, Ryu? I mean, I'm the navigator here." As they got closer to the new Hyuga home, which was nearly identical to the old one, he landed, and the guards were immediately alarmed by the enormous dragon at their door. "Who goes there? Halt!" one of the sentries inquired. "Are you two the same people who were watching over this place when I visited 3 years ago?" did Naruto ask. The guard said sharply, "You still didn't answer my question." Naruto replied, "Naruto Namikaze, Naruto." The guard remarked, "I now remember you." "The position remained the same?" did Naruto ask. "Nope, in the lower branch, it doesn't change much," he replied. "May I enter?" did Naruto ask. The guard stated, "Of course, but your large friend must stay outside." Naruto thanked him and went inside, noticing how similar the two buildings were. He liked seeing memories brought back to life, but he was more interested in finding Hinata, and he did find her outside in the garden. She was much more beautiful than he had ever thought, standing at 5 feet 2 inches, with lavender-tinted eyes that were just enough to make them enthralling. She had dark blue hair that reached her stomach length and fair skin that appeared silky to the naked eye. Naruto calmly said, "Hello, Hinata." However, he was actually freaking out. "Who are you?" inquired Hinata. Naruto answered, "It's been a while, but it's me, Naruto." After glancing at him, Hinata's cheeks turned red. Although she winced, she leapt up and gave him a hug. Nothing was able to free her from him as her hold grew tighter. "It's you, it really is you and Naruto," she exclaimed with such delight. Now displaying signs of nervousness, Naruto asked, "Are you alright, Hinata?" Hinata explained, sobbing into Naruto's shoulder. Now I am for these 3.5 years. I dreamed about you. They say you destroyed the village, but I know you didn't cause it. Why you were trying to save it, but you risked your life for my life, as selflessly, and you saved me even in that arena. You saved me, and taught me I can do things. I have the ability to achieve. Hinata was shocked and delighted when Naruto returned her hug. While someone was looking, Naruto remarked, Hinata, no one has ever said that about me. No one's ever said anything like that to me. Thank you. He then struck. Hiyashi yelled, Hinata, what do you think you're doing? Father. Hinata jumped off Naruto, stunned to death. With a menacing tone, Hiyashi confronted Naruto, asking, you, after what you have done, dare show your face here? Naruto retaliated, using his size advantage to force Hiyashi to back off a bit. I was trying to see as a gesture of good faith how Hinata was doing after all these years. Hiyashi pulled out his sword and remarked, you slimy son of a bitch, you destroy our home then come and try to seduce my daughter? You will pay? He became concerned because Naruto was not wearing his armor. Then Ryu, a black shape, leapt from the sky. He hovered over Hiyashi, backed off, and landed when there was enough room. With a great roar, the dragon whipped Hiyashi's robes until they were almost torn off. Naruto remarked, oh, by the way, this is my new friend. Get off my property, and never come back, you hear me? Hiyashi issued a warning. Naruto asked the dragon, buddy, does that sound reasonable? Before unleashing a burst of flames. Naruto halted his dragon and said, no, don't do that, Kami, can't you think of any solution other than incinerate? Naruto? Inquired Hinata. Naruto said, you'll see me again soon, Hinata. I promise. The dragon took off on his back as he did. Returning to the base 3 hours later, Draco checked in on Naruto and inquired, how long has he been moping like that? Davion answered, since he returned 2.5 hours ago. Kuroi said, well, someone should go in and talk with him. They all turned to face him, and he muttered, God, before entering. Without even glancing at him, Naruto uttered, leave me alone. Kuroi questioned, what's wrong? What happened? Furious, Naruto turned around and slashed his desk in two with his sword, saying, Hiyashi, you bastard. Kuroi asked, Hiyashi, what did he do? And got the first one to respond. Everything. He ruined everything. Thanks to him I can't go back. Everything was so perfect. I had her in my arms. She gave me happiness I never had before in my life, and he destroyed it. Naruto was more enraged than he's ever. Calm buddy, calm. We knew something like this would happen, so we planned accordingly, Kuroi replied. Really? Naruto halted his fury to pay attention. Naruto gave his friend a hug after Kuroi said, so you can't see her with him knowing, so you do it when he doesn't know about it. Consider it a date behind his back. Thank you buddy, thank you so much, he replied. You crushing me, Kuroi faintly exclaimed. Naruto said, sorry, I'm just relieved. Do you usually have problems with mood swings like this? Asked Kuroi. Naruto answered, no, not really. Don't worry, we'll send a messenger to get a message to her via air mail for a date, say Friday, Kuroi replied. As Naruto cautioned, alright, make sure he or she's a good shot. Don't worry, she's not just good, but the best we got, said Kuroi. That evening, Hyuga Refuge Hinata had trouble falling asleep. She was eager for Naruto to come back. She needed another chance to express her love for him after the one she had lost. An arrow landed at her feet after shooting through the open window. She read the scroll that was fastened to it. Greetings, Hinata, I apologize for the short time we spent together, but I will make it up to you. I'll come get you for a date on Friday, so if you want to, get ready in your nicest clothes and wait outside at around 6:30. It is completely up to you, but you have to be discreet if you decide to. From Naruto, of course I would. After thinking, I'll see you on Friday at 6:30. She dozed off and had wonderful dreams. 6 o'clock on Friday, Naruto asked through a door to a dressing room, Draco, are you sure this outfit's going to work? Draco responded confidently, positive, that suit will totally work. Naruto said, okay, if you say so, and emerged in a silk suit. You look great, you'll be bring her home in your arms bridal style in that, Draco said. As Naruto put it, good, because I hate wearing these sort of things. Kuroi said, remember, buddy, just be yourself. Guys, I know the pressure on me right now. If she doesn't want to marry me, we all are going to say goodbye to our heads, trust me. I'll do this in the name of our heads and our love, Naruto said, and the Ryu took off. 6:30 at Hyuga Refuge. After sneaking out, Hinata was waiting for Naruto on a bench in her garden. She accessorized her long lavender dress with sandals and long lavender silk gloves. She wore makeup that was neither too light nor too heavy. Her only cosmetics were red lipstick, lavender eyeshadow, and eyeliner. Ryu landed on a big tree and concealed himself in the dark using his natural camouflage to avoid detection. Naruto walked down to his head and then gently leapt off it to the ground as he lowered his long neck. Hinata said, "HHHN Naruto." In greeting, Naruto replied breathlessly, "Hinata, you look amazing." Hinata blushed in response. Hinata pleaded, "Hurry. We must leave, before someone finds us." Naruto took her to Ryu. Naruto helped her up and reassured her, saying, "Don't be afraid, he's my partner, he only attacks people that I don't like, or he doesn't like, he just needs to get to know you." Hinata sat on a saddle on Naruto's back as they crossed the dragon's neck. Since Ryu was flying, the wind would tear her to pieces if Naruto didn't sit behind her. Ryu flew into the orange sky without a word. Kumogakure's nightlife was lively and packed with people, much like Konoha's. Ryu dropped them onto his head after landing atop a structure close to a restaurant. Naruto said to the dragon, "Thanks buddy, don't go far," and the dragon took off. Hinata was astonished by the restaurant and remarked, "This looks fantastic." Naruto answered, "This place, I guess it's all right for its low price." "Low price? My family couldn't even get into this place," Hinata responded. "Well, the Oriental Dragon gave me his bank account, something about he doesn't need it cause he's living on borrowed time or something with the money that in the treasury. Nothing's too expensive," Naruto stated somewhat boastfully. "Wow," she uttered softly. "You alright?" inquired Naruto. Hinata replied, "Yes, I'm fine." A waiter said, "I will show you to your reserved table." The two followed. In 3 years, Naruto has made significant progress. I have to tell him when it's appropriate, but I hope I can tell him. The two nearly reached their table, but a kunai almost struck Hinata when Naruto turned to look behind him. He saw a number of 100 nin. The one that escaped 1.5 years ago was one of them. Naruto said, "Not you again." The 100 nin remarked, "Time to settle the score, someone else wants your head." "You know him?" inquired Hinata. "According to Naruto, unfortunately." "That's your girlfriend. I'll enjoy raping her after I kill you," the nin replied. Naruto was irritated by that his sword was on Ryu, but he was not carrying it. But Ryu was sound asleep on top of the building, and it was nearly impossible to wake him up when he was asleep. He was concerned about Hinata, but he did have some sort of armor built into the clothing, just in case. Naruto exclaimed, "Hinata, catch, this will help you." He tossed her some gilded wristbands, made of cotton and silk that had been banded and had chainmail grafted in gold. After donning them, she deflected an overhand blow from one of the nin's swords. Another joined in, and Hinata blocked their attacks by using the wristbands as shields. As Naruto put the nin in a chokehold, he roared, "Ryu, wake up, you overgrown iguana. I need your help here." The dragon was still asleep. One of the nin grabbed Hinata, but she killed him instantly by elbowing him in the neck and then striking him in the temple with a juken. The fate of the other was worse. After kicking him in the nuts with her heels, she palmed him in the face with her third hand. The one Naruto ran after elbowing him in the stomach. He didn't make it very far before Ryu's enormous head descended and engulfed him. Naruto continued, "So now you come, you lazy son of a," until Hinata interrupted him. Hinata walked over to Naruto and said, "Are you alright?" She blushed when Naruto said, "I'm fine. You were great at fighting. Care for me to treat you to dinner?" she asked. Hinata replied, "Why yes please." Then she thought, "He is such a gentleman. I'm so impressed by him that I'm not sure I can even express it to him." After 45 minutes the two returned to Ryu. After eating and learning a great deal about the events of the previous 3 years, Naruto had a place to spend the night with Hinata because he wasn't finished with her yet. Naruto offered his hand and said, "Hinata, I want to take you somewhere I've shown no one else ever before." Hinata replied, "Why yes please Naruto." Ryu took off into the sky after he assisted her in getting on. In just a few minutes, they traveled hundreds of miles before arriving at a remote location in the mountains. It was a little lagoon with short, sweet grass and lots of cherry blossom trees to keep watch. Ryu flew up onto a nearby rocky outcrop. Hinata exclaimed in awe, This is beautiful. I found this place flying a year ago, and told no one about it. I figured it would be a great place to finish our date," Naruto replied. Hinata told herself, "This is my chance, I have to do it," but Naruto got there before her. He moved in closer and gave her a tight hug. Hinata lost the courage to speak as she flushed like a red beet. "Hinata, this past few hours has been better than my entire life up to this point," Naruto replied to her. Hinata attempted to say, I, but it was unsuccessful. Naruto went on, "But what made it so great was the feeling I get when you were near me." Every time I'm with you, I come alive. You are what complete me. You are what allows me to function. I can't live without you, Hinata. I love you, Hinata. After thinking, Hinata, say it now, it's perfect. Hinata added, I love you too, Naruto. I can do it. Everything is in place. This is too good to be true, Naruto thought joyfully. Hinata said, please Naruto, don't leave me. Naruto's plan was ideal at this precise moment. Naruto knelt down and presented her with a platinum and red emerald ring, asking, Hinata Hyuga, heiress to the Hyuga clan, will you marry me? Hinata was astounded by her ears. Naruto desired to wed her. It was real, but it felt like a dream. She exclaimed joyfully, Yes SS, I will Naruto, before fainting. Even though he knew she couldn't hear him, Naruto whispered into her ear, thank you so much Hinata, not only have you made me find love, you saved my life. I am forever in your debt. After picking her up in bridal fashion, he placed her next to him beneath a tree. It was the best sleep he had ever experienced when he dozed off with her in his arms. The following day, Hyuga House. Naruto had intended to simply drop Hinata off at the gate and take off, but things didn't work out that way. Unfazed that Naruto had a dragon by his side, the guards immediately went into attack mode and the entire guard force materialized in front of them. Hiyoshi's voice questioned, you dare come back here? Well, I was dropping this lovely lady off, figured it was the proper thing to do, replied Naruto. Hiyoshi yelled, get out, now, before we kill you slowly and painfully, and the guards complied. Following his statement, a group of 700 soldiers under Kuroi's command appeared wearing chainmail armor, gauntlets, boots, and a light helmet. Hiyoshi and his partner came to a halt. Naruto told Kuroi, perfect timing as usual. Kuroi said meekly, I try. Hiyoshi exclaimed, Hinata, leave? Hinata said sharply, no. Hiyoshi exclaimed in shock, what? And Hinata stepped off Ryu to confront him directly. I will not, father. I have lived in your tyrannical shadow for my entire life. You have dictated how I lived and kept me in my shell for that whole time, berating me, and crushing my self-confidence. Naruto has given me what you should have given me. I relinquish my ability to be heir to the Hyuga clan. Also father, me and Naruto are going to get married, and there's nothing you can do about it. If you or any Hyuga come anywhere near us at the wedding or after, I will personally order Naruto's entire army to kill you and everyone else of my family. Goodbye father, and rot in hell. Hinata burst into a fit of self-confidence with their jaws wide open. After Naruto said, well, I didn't think that would happen. See ya, the others departed. After being deeply offended by his daughter's remarks, Hiyoshi simply stood there and turned around without saying anything. The remaining guards returned to their posts. After a week, daimyos gathering. One of the daimyos exclaimed, Naruto Namikaze, you have fulfilled all of the terms of the agreement, exactly as the dragon promised. As the dragon materialized behind them in his human form, he remarked, nobody listens to me. I just don't get that everyone listens to demons, but not omnipotent beings from a higher powers. Sensei, please don't do that. It's okay with me, but not with other people, Naruto replied. The Oriental dragon floated down to Naruto and said, sorry, still getting used to that. By the decree of the deal, we the daimyos of the elemental countries, relinquish all power to the government formed by Naruto and his group, to which they gain all rights, previously established laws, and lands to be governed as willed. The daimyo of Iron stated. I thank you for seeing it my way, Draco. Give them their going away package in exchange. You will be given a calm for a BLE amount of money for which you can use for your retirement on a nice beach resort island. The Oriental dragon replied. The daimyos bowed and departed, saying, thank Oriental Sama. Well Naruto, this is the first step in cleansing the land of the underworld influence. Get to it boy, I'll see you at the wedding. I'm the priest. The dragon replied and disappeared. Another soldier said, sir, we have a huge crowd of people, what should we do? Let them come and see me. A ruler should be seen after all, Naruto replied. Hinata approached Naruto and said, Naruto, are you sure I'd be a goodie Empress? Naruto kissed her and told her, you do great Hinata, especially with how it run, you're perfect, just believe in yourself. The two went outside and made their way through the enormous crowd. Although their responses varied, they all concurred that a new era and a new beginning of unity were upon us. You might as well take advantage of it. Davion said, all right, Naruto, we are getting close to the Konoha ruins. Naruto grumbled, I still don't know what you want to show me. Davion said, all in good time, all in good time. The debris, or any resemblance to the ruins, vanished as they got closer. Instead, A massive shadow was cast across the land. Both Naruto and the builders were astounded by what Davion had created, a huge castle with a texture similar to stone and an appearance of iron, easily the size of a mountain. It featured gold-encrusted windows, walls, and towers with emblems and designs. A red flag with 2 dragon teeth crossed over the Konoha symbol is one of Naruto's flags. Davion remarked, "This is only the beginning, kid." Naruto exclaimed, "Dude, this place is huge. This is for me?" With complete awe. "Yes, Naruto, it is. Think of it as my greatest creation, this great hold, when it is done, and I will finish it before I die, even if I have to finish it by hand, sir, for your wedding. I will temporarily stop construction," Davion responded. After giving him a hug, Naruto said, "Davion, thank you so much." And then they scattered. Naruto was interested in exploring the castle's interior because he thought it was more impressive than the exterior. The main lobby was enormous. A life-size model of the Hokage monument was displayed on the wall across from the door to demonstrate its enormity. The floors were hand-cut marble, and the walls and floors were adorned with decorations. Naruto remarked, "This guy knows how to make a place." Kuroi remarked, "Damn, this is what Davion built." "Yep," Naruto answered. Kuroi inquired, "So where's everything going to be?" "The ceremonies are going to be upstairs a level, while the reception will be down here," Naruto clarified. "Sounds good to me. Let's get cracking now so it's not a rush later," Kuroi concurred. After a few days, the day before the 2 ceremonies, Naruto was working everyone half to death on the preparations. Hinata felt somewhat guilty because she was the only one he wasn't treating like an intern. Naruto was spoiling her and didn't want her to work just yet. Wondering if Naruto would be too busy for her, she paused right in front of the big white oak door leading to his office. "Should I?" Hinata persuaded herself that she needed to speak with him, so she knocked on the door. Naruto said through the door, "Come in." When Hinata entered, his office immediately astounded him. It was enormous, with marble walls, oak floors, and numerous ornaments of all kinds. She could say that it was generally kept in order and was neat and organized, though not obsessively so. Compared to the Hokage's previous desk, Naruto's was larger. Naruto calmly glanced over a piece of paper and said, "Hinata? Now don't be shy. Come on over. I just have a few things to finish up, then I'm on break." Perched on his lap, Hinata said, "Naruto, I need to talk with you about something." Naruto put his left arm around her and said, "What is it, my dear?" Meekly, she said, "I feel guilty not working while everyone else is." Puzzled, Naruto questioned, "Do you want something to do?" In response, Hinata said, "Yes please." Naruto kissed her on the cheek and said, "Hinata, the reason I have nothing for you to do is because after tomorrow, you're going to be working your ass off." Kuroi entered the room and said, "Naruto, oh, I see you're busy." He then turned around. As Hinata examined many of the programs Naruto was getting ready for her, she remarked, "I don't think I can do this." Naruto's face broke into a tiny smile. He was aware that Hinata was still in disbelief over everything, and that her lack of confidence was not appropriate for a leader. He was certain that one thing would compensate for it, though she was a charming woman, and with those qualities alone she could control her council if she so desired. Near noon on the following day, Naruto was changing into his ceremonial attire in a changing room. He didn't want to come out, even though he was long since finished. "Come on man, it's not as bad as you think. It looks great," said Kuroi. General Ventro asked, "You really think that's going to work?" "The ceremony is in a little over an hour. We got to speed up this process," Kuroi stated. Draco shouted, "Naruto, get out of there." Naruto retorted, "I look ridiculous." Draco tried to leave after saying, "Problem solved, let's go." Ventro said, "Oh no you don't," and shut the door. "Are you sure it's fine? 'Cause it doesn't to me," Naruto replied. "You're only going to wear it for this. After that we got a better one for you," Kuroi clarified. Naruto remarked, "Okay, but I'm still not buying it." He emerged without any of his previous apparel on. Unlike his previous wild spiky hairstyle, Naruto's hair was now clean cut and spiky. They were most interested in what he was wearing. He was dressed simply in shoes and dress pants. He had a smart dress shirt on his upper half. The prominent feature was a long cape draped over his back. Its back was made of silk, but the black fur on the inside touched Naruto's back. Ventro said, "Could be worse. We could have dressed you up in a clown suit." Naruto gave him a look that told him to stop talking. As Kuroi pushed Naruto forward, he said, "Come on, they're seating the guests." Rectangle was asked by Ventro, "Wait, who's the priest?" Rectangle answered, "The Oriental Dragon himself." Ventro remarked, "Man, he's going all out." An hour or so later, Normally, the second floor was a huge center where government officials hurried about their work. It was moved with benches for visitors. Today the entire space was illuminated by the multicolored stained windows that loomed over them. The oriental dragon in human form stood there in priest attire as a huge altar was brought in. On the right, or to his left, was Naruto. "Sensei, are you sure the rehearsal's going to work? I mean, her mother's dead, and she's not on the best terms with her dad," Naruto said to the dragon. The dragon questioned, "Who said we were doing a rehearsal before the ceremony?" Naruto whispered back to him, "What? It's a Marige custom, man, what the hell? Screw customs, you're the emperor. If they have a complaint, they can say it to me," the dragon assured them. Before he knew it, Neji was the only one escorting Hinata down the aisle. The attendees were aware of the secret deal, but none of the Hyugas were. When Naruto saw her with the veil covering her face, all the air left his lungs. Kuroi made sure he had the best dressmakers on staff for her wedding dress. Even though she did wear one, she wore silk wedding gloves, white silk and satin, and a veil adorned with white roses. Her hair, a more exquisite shade of lavender than usual, was visible to him. Naruto reflected, "If I die now, at least I saw the most beautiful angel ever fall from heaven." Ryu in the audience smashed his head against the wall as the dragon said, "Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, we are gathered here today to a momentous joining of two great individuals, who have defied all odds to be together. One has defied their family, Hunter Nin, and a dragon that doesn't know how to use a map to get to this point. The other had a threat over their head for 3 years, unified the elemental nations, and survived all odds to get here today. Both have found the good things in each other, and their uncontrived love shines through anything." "Naruto, you may remove the veil," the dragon responded. Naruto then lifted the veil to reveal her face. Her professionally applied makeup was identical to what it was on their date. Her face broke into a smile. "Now for the vows, Naruto. Repeat after me. Hinata, I will always and faithfully be your husband, to never be hurtful to you or negative to you in any way. I will make sure that the rest of our lives will be nothing but love and happiness between us." The dragon spoke and Naruto repeated it. "Hinata, repeat after me. Naruto, I will always be your faithful wife, and will always provide comfort to you. I will always do anything to help you, and may our marriage be an equal partnership," the dragon said once more, and Hinata responded. When the dragon finally said, "Place the ring on her finger, Naruto, and you may kiss the bride," it stopped talking. A ring that resembled the engagement ring was extracted by Naruto, who then placed it on Hinata's ring finger. He had his on already. After that, the two leaned in and gave each other their first kiss, not a passionate one, but a simple peck on the lips. In the audience, some people cheered, some clapped, and some people started crying. They all halted when the dragon raised his left arm and held it vertically. The coronation was about to take place. The two knelt before the dragon after he said, "Kneel." The two crowns were carried in by a number of tiny orange dragons. One was a tiara made of gold and red diamonds, but the other was a crown that was very different from any that these people had ever seen. It was similar to a typical crown in that it completely encircled the head, but the material and shape were different. It was made of platinum and displayed dragon craftsmanship. A number of unintelligible symbols were scattered throughout the band. A number of red jewels shaped like spikes were set on top of the crown. "In all the power invested in me, and the great goddesses Kami and Yami, I, the Oriental Dragon, declare this pair the Emperor and Empress of the Oriental Empire," the dragon declared, before placing the crowns on their heads. As the audience applauded, the dragon exclaimed, "Today marks the beginning of a new era in your history. Take every new opportunity it gives," and teleported off. Naruto remarked, "Hinata, I feel good about this." Hinata responded to him by approaching him even more closely than before, saying, "I'm not so sure, Naruto, but I will follow why you through anything." A few weeks later, in the early hours of the morning, Naruto arrived at his office early in order to clear out the stack of paperwork. He recently completed a request to the council to authorize a new kind of shield for light infantry. The casualty rates within their ranks were the source of their complaints. Naruto heard a knock on the door as he was finishing up the design for them by signing it at the bottom. Naruto said, "Come in." After finishing, Hinata rushed through the door in a flash, almost shattering it on its hinges. Tears were streaming down her face as she leapt over the desk and gave Naruto a bear hug. Then, without hesitation, she buried her head in his shoulder and sobbed. He recognized the issue right away, but it only raised more queries. This must be related to work, Naruto thought to himself as he attempted to console her physically without yet speaking. He was a little accustomed to the amount of paperwork that Hokages had, even though his work was terrible. With all the reforms and bills he was introducing, Hinata was overburdened. There were two parts to the way the government operated. The military, the courts, and overall security were Naruto's. The legislative body was Hinata's. The civilian side of things belonged to her. Hinata collaborated with the recently elected provincial governors, whereas Naruto had judges, generals, and other officials of that caliber. 2 elected lords oversaw Naruto's reorganization of the region into 2 easily controlled, equal-sized areas after he took office. However, their main goal was to join the Council of Lords even though there were 2 at the time. Hinata ran this and they determined whether the bill would pass or fail if necessary. Hinata would make the final decision once more. It didn't address any of Naruto's questions. Naruto questioned, Hinata, what happened? WWW was. Hinata attempted to stutter her words. Naruto stroked her hair and said, Hinata honey, my love, my empress, it's okay, take a few deep breaths, wipe off the tears, and tell me what's wrong. Hinata started to cry uncontrollably again, but Naruto intervened quickly to stop her. One of the elected lords said something awful during session, she said. He was certain who it was in essence. He divided the elemental nations in half. Ikara was the modest, honorable woman on the left, but Nalia, a slimy bastard, was the other. However, some of the initiatives he highlighted, such as resettling the land of whirlpools, were well planned and advantageous. The man was as low as they come, except for a few good deeds, cunning, completely and persistently corrupt, and well connected. Although Naruto was aware that doing so would cause backlash, he still wanted to get rid of him. Therefore, the best course of action for him was to make him think. After removing himself from the chair, Naruto carried Hinata's bridal gown to Tsunade's workplace. Nalia showed up as soon as he arrived. In a clumsy ploy, he said, Ah, my lord, I wish to discuss your wife's conduct in our latest meeting. Really? Naruto questioned mockingly, but he pretended it was almost sincere. As Tsunade provided Hinata with moral support, she thought, Nalia, you are in for it now. Yes, I feel she is unsuitable for her to be leader of the Council of Lords if she can't handle a simple insult, he replied. Naruto had a secret weapon for future reference. He had a writer record all of the statements made during those sessions at the appropriate times. Much like in a court case, he handed the paper to the writer after calling him in. Naruto held up the paper and said, Really? Because from this, it's not a simple insult. Nalia was shocked and said, That woman should be held for espionage. How dare she do that for a private session? I always was a little paranoid, so I put a writer in there to capture everything. This is what you say to her before she runs out, Naruto said. The color from Naja's face disappeared. What you don't understand, you ungrateful little Hyuga whore, is the simple principles of politics. How that man you call a husband put you in a position of power is beyond me. We are deciding people's fates, their states of living, not like playing around with toys. If it were my choice, you'd be off in some whorehouse selling yourself for almost nothing, and that's if you were extremely lucky. End quote. The writer then notes Hinata runs off with a delighted look on your face, while Ikara is horrified by what you said. Read. The lord stammered, Aye, Tsunade said, gritting her teeth, you bastard. According to Shizune, more than that, Naruto approached him, took hold of his neck, and raised him into the air. Naruto's blue eyes were filled with a fire of pure hatred, and Naja's face was one of pure terror. If I catch you or anyone saying that about my Hinata at all, be it to her face or out somewhere, I will hunt you or them down and feed you straight to a pit of dragons. No, I will not even do that. I'll spare them the horrible taste and vile stomach aches you give them. This is your only warning, Nalia. You got a complaint? Take it straight to me, or deal with it, Naruto said and let him down. Nalia fled like a wolf pursuing a bunny. Tsunade tried to reassure her by saying, It's okay, dear, if Naruto isn't around, just come to I'll punch him into jelly if he says anything like that to you. Hinata muttered, TT thank you all. But Rectangle entered and bowed, saying, My lord, we need you, this is of military importance. Naruto kissed Hinata on the cheek and walked away after saying, I have to go. Hinata, be strong. What happened? Inquired Rectangle. Naruto bluntly responded, It's best I don't tell you for Hinata's confidence is Sasuke. With a, sorry boss, Rectangle. It's alright, you didn't know. Now what is it that you need me for? Replied Naruto. We got a large number of refugees from the west right on the palace steps. They're rioting, wanting you to have audience with them. I got 300 men out there in a shield wall trying to hold them back. Sir, if this gets any worse, I'm having one of your dragons roast them cause they're really disturbing the peace, Rectangle clarified. Naruto posed the rhetorical question, can this day get any worse? Rectangle led him outside after catching the drift. Thousands of refugees in tattered clothing and fur were rioting in the streets of the plaza that had been set up in front of the palace while the city surrounding it was being built. The battle was losing due to the sheer number of people. Even though the 300 men were being reinforced to see Naruto, they were all chanting frantically. They halted and retreated when he emerged. Now who is your leader? I wish to speak with him or her about this, Naruto replied. A middle-aged man emerged and approached him through the soldiers. His hair has turned gray due to sleep deprivation and worry. In other words, he appeared older than he actually was. He nonverbally agreed when Naruto motioned for him to follow him to his office. There was a spooky silence as they arrived at his office. He humbly said, "Thank you for this audience. Can you tell me why you guys were rioting in the streets?" replied Naruto. "I had no part in that. My people have been refugees for several years now, 7 to be exact. We have lost almost all hope. You're our last hope. You must defeat him," he replied. With complete bewilderment, Naruto said, "Hold the phone. I don't know who you are. Defeat who? Let me explain. My people's homeland is on your western border. It makes up the whole western border of your country. We were rich, and craftsmen, builders, not fighters. Most of the refugees scattered across Japan when the dragon attacked," he clarified. Naruto remarked, "A dragon, huh? I can handle that." He clarified, "It was drawn by out excessive wealth." Most of the people in the room were perplexed by that until Draco entered to investigate. He knew exactly what was wrong when he entered. Draco sarcastically remarked, "Ah, a dragon drawn by wealth question. Yes, I mean, I know dragons like gold and jewels, but why?" replied Naruto. "There's 2 alignments for dragons. Some are under the Oriental Dragon, some under the Destroyer, but some let the internal lust for treasure and loot take over them, and they hoard it. They're attracted to huge wealth, and will guard it with their lives," Draco clarified. "Look, a dragon is nothing to snuff at. Give me time to think. I will not abandon your people. I'll make you all citizens, and you can find work as blacksmiths. We need those badly, but the dragon problem will be up for debate," Naruto replied. The leader said, "I thank you for your time." He departed respectfully after Naruto told him, "No, I thank you for your time." After 5 minutes, Hinata was in Tsunade's office. After calming Hinata down, Shizune searched for a towel so she could wipe away the dried tears that had accumulated on her face, but for a different reason. She still had a worried expression on her face. She said anxiously, "Shizune, I'm not sure if I should tell Naruto this." She found a towel and soaked it in water, asking, "Say what?" Hinata repeated, "I want to say something to Naruto, but I don't know." Shizune inquired, "What do you want to say to him?" Hinata muttered, "I want to have a baby." Hinata, "You need to think this over. You just got married a few weeks ago. Have you even had sex with him yet?" she inquired. In an embarrassed tone, Hinata remarked, "No, I'm still a virgin." Shizune told her, "Just think this over, okay? That's what I beg of you." "I will." Hinata gave a nod. Tsunade escorted Hinata to Naruto's office, where he was occupied with officials discussing the attack on the Ashlands, despite the fact that the western border had been called. "We send in only ranged units. Dragons are weak to them," Ventros said. Another general in charge of the 9th Legions remarked, "Yeah, and get roasted in the process. A dragon that could take over the capital of a rich country like that is powerful. Their military would be well funded," Draco replied. "Doesn't exactly mean they're warriors by your standards. You can put a scythe in a peasant's hand, and say he's an elite soldier," Rectangle laughed. "What if this dragon decides to attack us? What then? I'm not going to have a threat like this live," Naruto asked. "Pain, sorrow, and eternal death," in a solemn tone, a general stated. "Exactly. Even if we send an army with me, the dragon could kill us all with ease," Naruto replied. Kuroi slipped in while they were debating what to do and gestured for Naruto to meet with him in private in the hallway. Knowing that this day was not going well at all, Naruto rubbed his temple. "What is it? I'm a little busy as of the moment. If you want to help, I could use it," Naruto sighed. With a scroll in hand, Kuroi said, "That's the problem, I can't. Dear Kuroi, the clan heir, Taikara, the pack leader, has called you, and if you refuse, you will be executed. You have 3 days to come at least. They tell you the punishment," Naruto read. Kuroi sadly remarked, "I have no guarantee that I'll survive." Naruto said, "Bye buddy." The two of them gave each other a hug. Kuroi said solemnly, "You might want to find a backup advisor." Then he transformed into a wolf and fled. "I would not have to. I know you, buddy. You'll return," Naruto said. A portal to the underworld appeared 2 days later. He managed to elude the mass exodus of the underworld's contents and eventually reached his home territory, which was in poor condition. There was very little water, little vegetation, and little prey. He arrived at his pack's living quarters, a huge tunnel and cave close to a permanent well. He descended and mostly located females with cubs and smaller males close to the front. As he descended, there were more males and fewer females and cubs. He found his father at last. He was huge, more werewolf than wolf, and he sat on a stone throne. On his neck were a number of gray lightning-like patterns. His father remarked scornfully, "So, my son finally decides to crawl back home." "Nice to see you too," Kuroi remarked mockingly. Taikara yelled, "Don't you dare say that kind of tone to me. What are you going to do, kill me? I didn't know I had any other siblings to pass the title of heir to," Kuroi replied in order to encourage him. "You take that human form and flaunt it like you're superior to your own clan. What the hell have you been doing all this time?" replied Taikara. "What happened to a human form to be an honor? I'm just doing what I like," Kuroi replied. His father yelled, "What you like is not good for the clan." As his father began to ramble, Kuroi thought to himself, "I just know that this is not going to be a quick visit." In the meantime, close to the Ashland's capital city, Naruto parked his army 1 mile from the city after he had set up camp. It was widely affluent. A city that could easily accommodate 770 million people was surrounded by 250-foot walls. To better defend the city, enormous catapults could be housed in towers that were 350 feet high. It might have been a hold, but it wasn't very good. Naruto made the decision to scout ahead rather than bring the 30,000 troops in with him. The capital structure was incorporated into the slope of multiple undulating hills. He could see a great deal of gold, valuable jewels, and other treasures inside the open front door. Then he returned in a stealthy manner. Rectangle said, "So sir, what are we up against? The dragon seems to not be home at the moment, but the treasure, I can see why that dragon was drawn here. The amount of treasure could buy the favor of a deity for a lifetime, 2 lifetimes, maybe 3 inches." Naruto was still speechless. With a letter in his hand, a light infantryman stated, "Sir, we got a letter from the Council of Lords." After reading the letter, Naruto smashed it in his palm. He started hundreds of large-scale public works projects in the few weeks he has been emperor in order to provide employment for the large number of unemployed people who have arrived in his empire. They were constructing dams, forts, new and improved road systems, whirlpool repair land, and many other infrastructure-related projects. He spent all of his original treasury because the debt was now catching up with him. He now owed 2 trillion yen in addition to removing the dragon. This treasure that the people gave them would give him a treasury that would enable him to carry out actions that were previously thought to be impossible. As Naruto gave the order, his soldiers prepared for combat. "Okay people, time to kill us a dragon, and double the size of our empire." Prepared for battle, they marched into the building. Then Naruto saw something and asked, "Where is its roost?" Ryu had an aerial dragon on top of one of the towers back home, and they prefer to roost in large, open spaces like this. No one could be found. Then he saw tracks and a trail of drag marks between them. Naruto said, "Everyone, retreat now." Confused, Rectangle uttered, "Sir, we just got here." The soldiers hurried out as Naruto yelled, "Get out now. It's a fire drake, terrestrial dragon, get out." And not a second too soon a huge dragon without wings erupted from one of the enormous treasure troves. It had a light tan underbelly and was primarily black, with a crocodile-like hide covering the majority of its body. The largest part of it was its head. The head, teeth, and jaw made up 75 feet of the dragon's 300 feet. Its double-edged, roughly 3-foot teeth were as sharp and large as the soldier's short swords. Half of its body length was made up of its tail, which ended in a huge club that resembled a crescent moon axe. It was as sharp as Naruto's sword and was made of scales, hide, and a bone that resembled a club in the center. When it opened its mouth, a huge white firebeam emerged. Naruto was the only one left, and he was unaffected because his armor was made of dragon scales. It roared and charged with its head like a battering ram, saying, "So, you wear armor made of my kind? It may protect you from my fire breath, but not me." When Naruto rolled out of the way, his right leg became trapped and collided with the wall. Even though his armor shielded him from piercing and slashing attacks, blunt force like this didn't really help. His whole leg was crushed like a toothpick, and he let out a painful scream. The dragon grabbed him by that leg and tossed him into a golden cage that was lying around, which made matters worse. He was now imprisoned like a rat, or perhaps more appropriately, a caged bird. General Rectangle was questioned by a soldier, "What do we do now, sir?" Rectangle said, "What else? We call the second in command," and started writing a letter right away. Black Lighting Clan territory. One day later, Kuroi's visit quickly devolved into a heated argument with his father. Even the strongest fighters maintained a minimum of 11 feet between them and the rest of the pack. Rectangle's courier reached the cave's entrance, but 2 guards stopped him. Taikara commanded, "Kill that human that dares to enter our land." Stopping the 2 guards, Kuroi said, "Don't kill him, he's with me." His father yelled, "Boy, that's it, this is blasphemy." To Kuroi, Kuroi read, utterly ignoring his father, "Naruto led us on a campaign to kill the dragon with 30,000 troops. Naruto has been captured and is injured. Please hurry. I am not making a move on that dragon till you come and take command." His father screamed, "You are not leaving, I forbid it." "And what are you going to do about it?" "Send your starving weakened warriors at me. By the time they catch up to me, I'll be able to sick 30,000 healthy, well-fed and fit troops on them. So you can't do anything about it." And another thing, I'd follow my friend, an emperor of an empire that's 3 million times more powerful than our pack in our prime. He treats me with respect. Listens to my advice. I get 3 square meals a day, and a room. You know what, in the 3 years I've been in the human world, Naruto has done more for me than you ever did in all my years living here. Let that be a lesson to you. Goodbye. A grimace on his face. The curious. A warrior questioned Taikara, "What are we going to do, sir? My honor has been damaged. Give all the food we have left to the females and pups. All warriors, gear up and follow me. That dragon is as good as dead. We will help him in any way possible." Takara gave the order. At the military camp one day later, as he entered the camp, Kuroi said, "I'm here. What's the dragon's position?" Naruto found out the hard way. "It's a fire drake, completely terrestrial. It's holed up in there. It's going to be a bloodbath," Rectangle clarified. Kuroi called through the ranks, "We need to lure it out. I need a crossbowman to volunteer for a special job." A woman emerged brandishing a hefty crossbow. She was dressed in the chainmail and steel helmet that were customary for their ranks. She saluted him and said, "What is this job, sir?" Kuroi gave the order, and she fled in the direction of the city, saying, "You are to sneak up to the lair and fire a bolt of explosives at the drake to draw him out." Upon arriving at the Capitol building, she discovered the dragon dozing off, its head turned toward the entrance. It produced a flawless shot. The dragon awoke with a start when she fired the shot. All it got out of the building was a headache from the blast. She shot once more, luring it to the wall, where the 30,000 soldiers had positioned themselves. Archers, crossbowmen, regiments of blood riflemen, ballistas, trebuchets, and a type of catapult were all present. Kuroi wore a composite longbow, chainmail with leather boots and bracers, and a plain steel helmet. On his back was a sizable quiver of arrows. Kuroi yelled, "Let him have it," and hurled a barrage of bolts, arrows, stones, and magic crystals at the drake. He was only as hurt by the stones and long ballista bolts as a human would be by a cut of paper. He was only slightly dazed by the ammunition from the blood rifle, and the bolts and arrows were protruding from his hide innocuously. In retaliation, the drake swept the wall from right to left with a tremendous burst of white fire. Immediately, a third of the army perished. Then there was a howl, and the huge fire drake was struck by a black lightning bolt. His 70-strong pack of warriors entered the gate behind them. They prepared their bows and mounted the walls to replace the arrow. They summoned black lightning. Instead, the drake was definitely slowing down after being struck by lightning. Even the strongest of the packs, his father's lightning, wasn't accomplishing much. Kuroi went to his father and asked, "Why are you helping?" Taikara answered, "Let's discuss that after the dragon is dead." The loss of the siege engines and the increased firepower didn't significantly harm the dragon. It was only slightly harmed by the black lightning, which felt to it like static electricity. Kuroi bounded past the dragon while it was preoccupied, saying, "I'm going to save Naruto. Rectangle, you are in charge." Rectangle yelled commands. "Fire everything you got. Anyone an alchemist?" But one was alchemist. Fire flasks filled his bandoliers. He was throwing flasks of it at the dragon in a quick rage. Most were struck by the dragon's enormous size. Only it burned harmlessly on the dragon's hide, which bore the brunt of the damage. The pyro alchemist inquired, "Is there anything that can kill that thing?" "We're not going to kill it. We're going to capture it." Archers, reload with paralysis arrows. Kuroi, get your pack to conjure some black lightning chains. Everyone else, fire like hell at it, Naruto said as Kuroi carried him up the wall. He was severely wounded by the crossbowmen and blood riflemen. As the archers cleared the wall, the dragon was surrounded by 70 warriors who summoned enormous black chains. He staggered as the archers started to shoot him with hundreds of nerve-poisoning arrows. It was down but not dead when the wolves finally tripped it with the chains. 2 members of the wolf pack volunteered to assist Naruto as everyone approached it with their weapons ready. In vain, Naruto told the drake, "Drake, who are you? State your name." The dragon said softly, "Fool, what makes you think you can order something from me?" "Well, we have you surrounded, you're restrained, and I'm trying to be nice now. Talked," replied Naruto. "Even though you are my brother's champion, I have no reason to listen to you," it stated. Naruto said bewilderedly, "Wait, brother of the Oriental Dragon? You're not the Chaos Dragon?" It roared, nearly shattering the chains. "Don't even mention him. That traitor locked me in hell for thousands of years." "Who are you?" inquired Naruto. "My name doesn't matter. I am the first fire drake. I'm what your kind would call the bastard brother of the Oriental and Chaos," the drake replied. "What you are doesn't matter. Why did you take this fine country over and turn it into this?" replied Naruto. The drake inquired, "Power, treasure, Legroom, what's it to you? As the ranged troops prepared their weapons, Naruto remarked, well, you're on my territory now, either you surrender, or I'll have my men kill you. Dragon Champion, I wish to give you a sign of good faith. I want to be an alliance, or partnership with someone of your Dragon Guard. The Drake replied. Naruto, alright, who do you want? He pointed his muzzle at Taikara and remarked, that man. Say what? Taikara asked bewilderedly. Kuroi told him, Dad, do it, or he's going to roast us. Naruto said in a menacing tone, Mr. Taikara, your son has told me a few things about you. Let me just say I will explain things later, just get on that dragon's back now. Taikara realized that this person possessed power that he no longer possessed. With a silent nod, he started to ascend his back. The chains came off when he climbed on with a roar. The fire Drake rose. Taikara yelled with excitement as he experienced a newfound sense of power and the power the Drake possessed. With a great roar, the Drake muffled his scream. Naruto shouted, Black Lightning Clan, welcome to the Dragon Empire. After 2 days, Konoha, after the guards had cleared the streets of people in the middle of the day, there was a roar. A huge caravan carrying all the loot was marched in front of by the first half of the army. The army then proceeded to march to the Capitol building, while the treasure caravan broke off to head to the treasury. Taikara and his spouse were riding atop the fire Drake in the center. Naruto needed assistance getting up because he was limping with crutches in front of the entire army. He was almost knocked down by Hinata as she ran to him. Hinata exclaimed, Naruto, you're alive. Nobody even attempted to respond when Naruto asked, who told her? Taikara kissed her hand and said, you must be Empress Hinata. I am Taikara, Kuroi's father. Lord Naruto, I need to I see you have company, Naya responded. Kuroi, is that the guy named Naya you talked to me about? Replied Taikara. According to Kuroi, yeah, it is Dad, Taikara said. You're the boss, what do you want? Kuroi bared his wolf teeth and said, let's rip him a new one. The pack chased after Naya as he fled, screaming. Naruto kissed Hinata after drawing her close. Hinata questioned, Naruto, what will happen now? Naruto expressed hope that his words would be realized when he stated, I don't know Hinata, but whatever happens, we will be prepared. We'll get the Ashlands up and productive again in no time, and continue to provide for our people. That is what will happen. The Ashlands turned into a mixed blessing after a few weeks. On the one hand, Naruto was able to carry out and broaden his public works initiatives, including those that would improve the Ashlands' habitability, as a result of the treasury's replenishment. There were even some uses for the ash. However, the issues that were developing led some members of Naruto's government to believe it was a bad idea. Troops were dispatched to protect residents and enforce the law in the few surviving settlements. Trade ground came to a stop because the roads were unsafe due to the presence of hordes of barbarians and werewolf rumors. Naruto made the decision to relocate to the capital, which was now repopulated with homeless people and refugees from his own nation. He was being assisted by Hinata. To his escort, he would be protected by a force of 1,000 light troops as well as Gadoa and his dragon because he was unable to use Ryu due to broken legs. As a big fire Drake assisted Naruto into his transport, he remarked, Hinata, I feel guilty having to have this kind of escort. The orange-colored Drake was only slightly larger than an enormous elephant. It was strapped to the back of a carriage. Its partner was a recruit in the Ultra Dragon Guard and a former shinobi. Although he had not yet received the armor, he was armed with a bow. After Naruto, Hinata entered and took a seat beside him. Hinata hugged Naruto and said, you are not in a condition to fly there on. Ryu Tsunade said so. Naruto griped, pointing to the casts on both of his legs, I just feel useless. People waiting on me hand and foot now that my legs are broke. Hinata pleaded, please Naruto. Fine, just please no special treatment, it makes me feel bad, Naruto replied. Even though Naruto used his power a lot, he disliked when it was misused. He felt bad about the suffering that being pampered was causing to those who were serving him. He developed this mindset while training in the wilderness. After he returned, Hinata became overly protective of him, which helped her overcome her shyness and lack of confidence to a certain degree. She was even able to resist Naya, but Naruto didn't like it when she was constantly worried about him, so he only did it when it was reasonable. The group left after the officer in charge of the 1,000 yelled, forward march. The soldiers stood on either side of the zombie dragon, who took the lead. A group of 5 archers were nested inside the carriage's arrow tower, which was mounted on its back to deter rear attackers. It was their responsibility to shower any enemy who attempted to attack with arrows. 2 days later, in the Ashlands, on a road, Gadoa was with his dragon, and the escort set up camp around the carriage. He was assisting it with its armor for several weeks. It was now protected from aerial attacks by a layer of spiked armor on its back and a heavy spiked club at the end of its tail. The spikes were arranged in rows on his back and tail, but only on the top of his neck, with 2 rows of 12 7-foot spikes on either side. The soldiers were blind in the dark, but the dragon was able to see everything. Their eyes were designed for night hunting, which is what they typically did in the distance. He noticed a number of shapes moving with an odd gait to get a better look. It stood up and took a few steps closer. Konoha questioned, "What is it?" But the dragon pushed him away. Werewolves were in the shadows. Despite being roughly 7 feet tall, they maintained their distance. Even they were not desperate enough to attack a dragon, but there was no food. Since dragon bones are the only material stronger than dragon scales, zombie dragons wore them as armor. Then he saw a much bigger figure, a huge werewolf that was nearly his size. This werewolf was approaching him, while the smaller ones remained out of range. The werewolf simply laughed and charged. When the dragon roared as a last threat, the wolf was on the dragon's back in a flash. The werewolf couldn't really attack him because of the spikes on his back, and he even stepped on one, feeling as though a needle had pricked him. He rolled off. The soldiers shouted, "Werewolf!" and prepared their weapons. The soldiers surrounded the carriage with a wall of tower shields and spears. The big werewolf was hit by arrows fired by the men in the war tower, but the arrows just bounced off the fur. The wolf quickly slashed the dragon's underbelly and knocked him over. Although it was insufficient to pierce the bone armor, it left claw marks on it but did no damage. He kicked the wolf off him with such force that the wolf was hit by a blast of fire. The werewolf did not fare as well as its attack on the dragon. Konoha started shooting arrows at the Empire to bolster its attacks, but he was only targeting some of its more vulnerable regions. A single arrow went through the sparsely furred inside portion of the back leg joint. Despite its lack of pain, it charged at Konoha after spotting him. Konoha screamed, "Help!" as he fled, and the dragon rushed into the werewolf's flank to halt his attack. The two titans battled it out for hours. Numerous variations of fire, claw, and tooth were used in an attempt to kill one another. The fire drake carrying Naruto was slowly turning so that Hinata and Naruto would not notice while the dragon kept it occupied. The werewolf was then hit by a fireball. It caused no harm, but it threw the wolf off balance, allowing the archers to shoot arrows at its weak spots. They covered some areas, such as the flanks and joints, but they protruded innocuously and caused no harm. It leapt to its feet, and the titans continued to battle for another hour. The two made a final charge at one another because they were both extremely exhausted. The werewolf was instantly killed when the dragon swung its right hook and skewered its eye on the ground. It feels slouched. The zombie dragon roared in triumph to chase the rest of the pack away before it walked back and fell asleep. The following morning, Naruto enlisted Hinata's assistance. He became intrigued as soon as he saw the dead werewolf body. Naruto questioned the soldiers, "What happened? And why is there a massive dead werewolf here?" "This werewolf attacked the camp in the middle of the night, sir," explained Konoha. The dragon added, "Anaka tin yura katu noke. I barely won that fight. He was good." Hinata assisted Naruto in returning to the carriage after he said, "Well, now we know why trade has stopped. This one could wipe out 100 trade caravans, no sweat." The werewolves in its pack came over to eat after the group had left. They even ate their own kind because they were so hungry. Later, in the eastern Ashland's capital, within a couple of hours, the escort reached the capital to see him. Hundreds of people flocked to the streets. "My lord, it is an honor to see you." When Naruto arrived, the government representative said. "It took a long time to get here. Let's get down to business," replied Naruto. The voice of Draco said, "Naruto, what took you?" from within the. Then Naruto shouted, "Why are you here?" Draco casually remarked, "I had nothing better to do and the magic chessboard is on strike." "Whatever, let's talk over lunch. I'm starved," Naruto replied. They all went into the Capitol building's enormous dining room. The black marble walls were elaborately carved in a variety of shapes. The ceiling was lined with enormous gold and jeweled chandeliers, and the stained glass windows were draped with silk. Hinata was astounded by the lavishness of this location. The table itself was lavish. Platinum lining and edgings surround a table carved from red oak and ivory. The chairs were incredibly sturdy and well made. 2 thrones were brought in for Naruto and Hinata on the end of the table. The table was then heaped high with enormous, ostentatious dishes of every description. When they sat down, pies, meats, fish, salads, fruit platters, and desserts. Silently, Hinata exclaimed, "Wow!" Naruto's voice reverberated throughout the room as he said, "Let's eat." Hinata whispered in his ear, "Naruto, after lunch I want to talk to you about something." Naruto was intrigued. He watched Hinata while stuffing his face. She ate in a reserved manner and with caution. She was the only person in the room with more power than Naruto, so he questioned why she pretended to have none. Though Hinata assisted Naruto into a private room after lunch, the door was immediately guarded by 3 guards, who also made sure that no one approached the hallway. "Well, Hinata, what would you like to talk about so privately?" Naruto responded. Hinata began, Naruto, but was unable to speak. As Naruto approached her, he said, "What would you like to say? You can say anything to me." Hinata boldly declared, "I want to have a baby." Naruto said, "Come again?" With astonishment rather than disrespect. Hinata answered, "I want a child, our child. Don't get me wrong, Hinata, but right now, I don't think we should. My legs are broken, and we haven't even had sex with each other yet. I'd love to have one with you, Hinata, but it's not the time," Naruto clarified, and pulled her closer. Hinata replied, "Thank you for listening to me, Naruto." She then left in disappointment. Having to give her that response made Naruto feel awful. It was the only response he could think of given his current condition and the difficulties he faced in the Ashlands. He used crutches to get to an office that the province's governor had given him. He then took a seat and began looking through the hundreds of papers that were piled on the desk. Trade is non-existent. Abandoned cities are buried by enormous ash storms, and bandit raids occur. Naruto questioned Draco, "Draco, who are these bandits attacking us?" Draco answered, "I'll be completely honest with you, I have no idea." Naruto gave the order, and Draco promptly drafted and dispatched the orders. "Well, that's just great. I want all the scouts in this province looking for their bases and finding what they're doing. Also, why would be nice too." When he heard a knock on the door, he hurried Tsunade inside, who later joined Naruto with Shizune. Kuroi was the only one not present. He stayed behind to ensure his family was in line and settled in the new Konoha. Naruto nearly broke his face when the sage rushed up and gave him a hard slap. Naruto exclaimed in agony, "Ow, that was a little not called for." He was screamed at by Tsunade, "Yes, it was you, bastard." When Tsunade caught him by the collar, Naruto halted his statement, saying, "This is about Hinata, isn't it? Look, this is not the time, I have a ton of." "You broke her heart, you idiot. How can you be so heartless to not even think about trying to complete her dream?" she barked. Tsunade dropped Naruto as his argument struck her like a ton of bricks. "Is that what you think? I didn't give it any thought? I gave it a lot of thought, but you of all people should know my reasoning behind it. Look at me, and look at what's going on. Furthermore, you of all people should know that love isn't measured by how many kids you give, or did you forget about Dan already?" Naruto argued. Tsunade said solemnly, "I'm sorry." Naruto returned to his work after saying, "I forgive you. Thank you for hearing my side of this. No one ever does." Tsunade questioned, "Are you going to make amends?" Naruto unfolded a map and said, "Yes, but not right now. Now I need to figure out who our adversaries are." Tsunade responded, "I hope you do, because Hinata is in a wreck right now," and left. The emperor sighed and resumed his work. He was in charge of just 5 medium-sized towns and 1 city. The bandits controlled the remaining cities and towns. They also occupied old forts and tombs. They even built enormous fortresses because of their immense power. These were not your typical bandits. To Naruto, they were something much worse. In the meantime, the scout approached a huge band of warfighters. They had set up camp in an ancient tomb, but the armor and weaponry looked more like an army than a band of bandits. Huge amounts of smoke emerged from the crevices above it. There must be forges in there. The scout's attention was then drawn to something. A man emerged. Flanked by 2 enormous werewolves, he could only see one feature of him from a distance. His skin was extremely pale. After that, the scout fled covertly to inform the new enemy of the situation. Returning to Naruto after 3 hours, "These are not bandits, sir. These are an organized military force, led by vampires and werewolves," the boy replied. "Well, now we know not to underestimate them. I got reports of 100 forts, abandoned towns and cities, tombs and fortresses they control," Naruto replied. In response, the scout said, "That sounds like a large task to eliminate them, sir." Naruto commanded, "Yes, it will be dismissed," and departed. The emperor then palmed his face. He would now need to summon the entire army. And given its size, it would take roughly a week to get here. He was on the defensive for a week. As a result, he had the chance to make amends with Hinata. During that period, she refused to even look at him after what had happened, even though he had to get her into his office. Consider Naruto. How can I obtain Hinata? Naruto thought, how foolish am I? And hastily composed an invitation for Hinata, calling a servant to deliver it to her. The servant delivered it to Hinata quickly, and to her surprise, she wanted to see Naruto. When she left the room she was in, 2 guards immediately flanked her, and when she arrived, they joined the 2 at Naruto's door. "Naruto," Hinata said politely, attempting to convey that she didn't care to be near him. Naruto gave her a warm kiss on the hand and said, "Hello my love, thank you for coming." Hinata questioned, "What do you want?" Naruto stood up, positioned himself behind her with his crutches, and embraced her. She was taken aback and attempted to leave, but her husband prevented her from doing so. He couldn't let her go because he had too much to say. "The reason I called you here is I want to talk. I know you want a child, I do too, however you have to put yourself in my shoes and why I said no. Right now I'm not in the condition, my legs are in so many pieces that it hurts to even use the crutches. Also right now there's a major crisis going on, Hinata. It broke my heart to tell you what I did. I'm sorry, and I want to make it up to you," Naruto said, and Hinata wept. Hinata screamed, "Naruto," and spun around to embrace him. She gave a firm, loving hug without being overbearing. Ventrose interrupted her as she started kissing him. He backed away and slowly shut the door. War meeting room the following day with Hinata by his side. Naruto stepped in on crutches. High commanders were present in the room, but they were a mess despite Ventro's efforts to soothe them. The general's presence somehow made matters worse. Naruto questioned, "Ventrose, what the hell's going on?" Ventro said, "Sir, let me explain." Naruto opened his mouth to respond, but Hinata interrupted. "Explain what?" inquired Hinata. "We have a new problem to keeping control of the Ashlands. The werewolves that attacked your party on the way here, Naruto, were sent by someone," Ventrose said. "Who?" inquired Naruto. "A fire giant tribe. They have made camp northwest of here. Their leader is a cleric. She goes by the name of Junqual, extremely powerful magic user," Ventrose replied. "We will be dealing with some powerful adversaries. Call in reinforcements," Naruto stated. Ventro responded, "Yes sir," and immediately began writing the request. It was written quickly because Ventrose had previously written letters of this kind. They had a desperate number of troops. There were only about 3,000 guards protecting them, and only half of them were in the eastern Ashland's capital. Even with the information from the scouts, there was no way to determine the strength of the actual armies that would be needed to repel the giants. The werewolves and vampires were being led into battle by the fire giants. Within the giants' camp, the enormous camp was home to two-headed furry giants known as Edens, two young red dragons, and numerous werewolves, vampires, hellhounds, and trolls. Numerous fire giants were also present. Their height was 12 feet, their chest circumference was 9 feet, and their hair was fiery red. The two red dragons were chained to either side of a wooden throne that a female giant was sitting on. A leather-armored vampire approached her and knelt down. "Master Zunqual, your preparations for the invasion are ready. All we need is your order," it stated. "Not right now. I want their leader to make the first move. It's to make this more interesting," she replied. "No. Naruto and company are back." The young emperor was going through work orders and paperwork in Naruto's office more quickly than any previous. Cage sitting in a chair beside him, Hinata tried to make sense of everything he was going through. Hinata inquired, "How do you handle it, Naruto?" "When one does something for 3 years they get used to it," Naruto responded. Hinata exclaimed, "3 years?" Flabber gasped. "Yeah, never intended for all of this to happen, but now, I wouldn't go back for the world," replied Naruto. Ventro said, "Sir, we have news. The giants are on the move." "To where?" inquired Naruto. Ventro says, "The town of Aokar." "Shit, we don't have the forces. They'll get slaughtered," Naruto replied. A thump sounded on the wall near his office. Then Ryu appeared through the window. Naruto's journey had been followed by the dragon. The dragon nodded when Naruto said, "Ryu, I need you to go to the town of Aokar to stop fire giants. Can you?" "Thank you, Ryu." Hinata gave it a cheek kiss with a slight flush. The dragon took off with amazing speed. He was on one of his favorite types of hunts, army murder. Aokar town as the band of giants, hellhounds, and vampires charged at him. The small, walled town of about 2,000 people flinched in terror. Only a few dozen guards were present, far too few to even pose a threat. The warband believed they would easily enjoy a large amount of the loot, that is, until the sun was obscured by a shadow. Ryu launched a flyby fire blast in their direction. Numerous vampires and hellhounds perished in that single explosion, but the giants were unaffected because of their nature. The giants wielded enormous blackened steel great swords and were clad in armor made of blackened steel. "Kill the dragon!" shouted one of the more powerful giants. The giants quickly snatched up big rocks and hurled them at Ryu. Ryu effortlessly swerved in and out of the rocks with his exceptional flying ability. Ryu then understood that his circle strafe idea was pointless because they were immune to his fire. He had to defy his instincts and his land. He struck the floor with a tremendous thump and then got back up. Their great swords would deal some serious damage while the dragon loomed over them. Another rock was thrown at him, but Ryu smashed it into one of the giants on the front line with his tail like a baseball bat. In front of him were about 30 giants. 2 swung around and flanked him, but the dragon's hands caught them. He snapped their swords in half with a simple hand turn. One of the giants with broken swords cried out, "This wasn't part of the plan." In response, his friend said, "Well, punch it, man." Ryu grabbed both of their heads and smashed their skulls against one another before they could accomplish that. Keep in mind that the skull of any giant is tough. He then threw the carcass away before avoiding another blow from the sword. Ryu felt cornered with 28 remaining. And a dragon in a corner is a dangerous one. Taking his hands, he charged them with magic. Then, in his hands, electricity formed. According to a female giant, this thing knows magic. Ryu unleashed a barrage of martial arts techniques, from basic karate chops to jumping and high-speed combos. While cracking his knuckles, his attack power was only increased by the electricity in his hands. They were all destroyed in a minute. Ryu gave a victorious roar and took off. Returning with Naruto 30 minutes later, Naruto and his generals were at war. By the time Ryu returned, he could fight a verbal battle even though he was currently unable to use his legs to try to get rid of the giants. The generals wanted to launch an offensive. Ryu left his partner to deal with the mess, deciding not to tell him just yet. A general slammed his hands on Naruto's desk and said, "Sir, we have to hit them right now or else more settlements will be endangered. With the forces we got, they would be slaughtered before they even get close," replied Naruto. A voice in a cloak said, "Perhaps I can be of assistance." By asking, "And who might you be?" Rectangle, the voice, which was raspy, said, "I am Jark Thornmaster. I am a wanderer mostly, and I wish to be of service to you, Dragon Emperor Naruto. Remove the cloak over your face and I will discuss this matter with you," Naruto said. His cloak came off, revealing an odd humanoid face. His green skin, sloping forehead, red eyes, and large fangs that protruded from his lower jaw and easily reached up his cheek gave him a skull that resembled that of a human, but thicker. His short, black hair was pulled back in a ponytail. His face also had a number of red marks, like war paint. As Draco muttered, "A orc." With a respectful pat on the chest, Jark remarked, "Master Draco, it is an honor to meet you." Naruto questioned, "Orc? What are those?" "A humanoid race that left through the portal to the underworld. To this one they mostly are brutal and savage raiders. However, they if given asylum can be very loyal subjects," explained Draco. What all he said is true, Naruto-sama. There are hundreds of orc tribes roaming across Japan now, and more will be coming. I, being a rare case in my society, could easily get them to join you as loyal citizens, and swell your empire's somewhat sparse population in this area, Jark responded. "I will take you up on that offer if you can get rid of the fire giants. I will grant you a position as negotiator to orcish tribes," Naruto replied. "Consider them eradicated. Have your army as a cleanup crew who knows what treasures they will hold," Jark replied with humility and left. "Have your forces follow him. Rectangle, watch him only if he fails. Retreat, that's an order," Naruto responded. Reluctantly, Rectangle said, "Of course, sir." After 5 hours, he looked at the enormous camp the giants had built, having long since shed the robe. Wearing a chainmail shirt and multiple furs hanging below his belt, he was sitting atop an ash dune. He carried a composite longbow on his back and 2 hand axes on his belt. He also carried a variety of arrows in his quiver, approximately 120 arrows, to be precise. Jark carefully selected one from his quiver and pointed it at a vampire guard on the outskirts. The arrow struck the vampire's temple precisely after it was let fly. However, this led one of the 2 young red dragons to the location of the dead body as he prepared one of his few explosive arrows. The orc grinned. The arrow landed in the middle of them, arcing high with the exception of the young dragon, whom it only stunned. Everyone within its range was killed by the explosion that followed. Jark muttered, "Time to die, dragon," and struck the dragon's head with an armor-piercing arrow to bring it down. They tried to rush him. Now that the whole camp was on him, they continued to arrive. Even though they were able to eliminate several dozen of the smaller targets, the creatures continued to come. Even after a few dozen more were killed at closer range, all of the vampires and werewolves had perished. By now all that remained were the Edens, trolls, hellhounds, fire giants, and a single red dragon. "So, you killed all my cheap underlings. Interesting," Zunqual replied. Jark remarked, "You must be Zunqual the war cleric." "Yes, and I don't appreciate orcs meddling in my business. Granted, I have thousands under my command. It makes no difference. I control all settlements, forts, and tombs in this paradise, save for the ones that coward Emperor Naruto has," she replied. "There's a difference between someone who is not fit to fight, and one that's a coward. He is not the latter," Jark responded. "Whatever, everyone, whoever kills him will get a promotion," Zunqual replied. The first to strike, the dragon lunged with lightning speed. As it passed, Jark sidestepped and sliced it in the back. The orc then shot an arrow into the back of its head with a similar swift motion. A second later, all 30 of the hellhounds charged at him. They did, however, fainted and surround him. Subsequently, they parted their lips and hurled a cone of flame at him. Jark leapt to his feet and pulled out his long bow. He fired 30 arrows in a matter of seconds as he fell, 1 for each hound. The trolls and Edens lumbered over to him. It would take a while to hack one of them down to size, even with the hand axes. He didn't have any time when a troll and an Eden attempted to encircle him. The Eden struck him with its club, but Jark rolled out of the way, and the club crushed the troll's skull as it attempted to follow it. The orc swerved between the two kinds of giants. Massive crushing blows were exchanged between them. All the fire giants even attempted to throw rocks into the fray, but they were only successful in striking their allies. "You fools, that's it. If you can't hit that orc, I will." Zunkwall snarled and seized a big cleric staff. She sent a firestorm at the orc with a swiftly charged spell. All but the fire giants burned to death when she missed, since she was unable to hit him. That infuriated her even more. She then employed war magic, a branch of magic. She attempted to strike the orc by directing energy into the rod to create flying blades, but her hopes were dashed by his speed. Her other fire giants were all struck by the swords. Zunkwall snarled, "Hold still, you little coward, so I can hit you." Jark said, "You want me still? Here you go," and paused. Jark hurled one of his hand axes at her staff with lightning speed. The force caused the energy to backlash. When it struck the charging rod, she was pushed back onto a spike by the force of the revered energy. She could see its point on the other side as it thrust through her stomach. Upon landing, the orc approached slowly, then quickly chopped off her throat and the vital veins in her neck. When they realized the carnage was over, Rectangle's force arrived. According to Rectangle, "A bloody well job. Thank you, it was easier than I expected. Giants aren't the sharpest knives around." Jark replied, "Well, we'll be picking this over to see what's useful to bad. There's still more in the Ashlands," Rectangle replied. "With me, we'll deprive them of their most numerous warrior, orcs that will put a halt to their plans for a while, guaranteed," Jark clarified. Rectangle replied, gazing out into the fiery red Ashland sunset, "It's not that worries me, it's what problems they will cause for us letting them have asylum here." In New Konoha, a huge story was being torn apart. Davion bitched, but all construction ceased. The Oriental Dragon was examining some of the buildings that were still under construction while strolling the streets, mostly oblivious to the weather. He was in the process of inspecting a guard tower when the incomplete structure was overturned by a sudden and powerful gust of wind. Despite erecting a barrier, he was buried beneath the debris. "Well, this is terrible," he pondered. "I wonder if I have any reading material on me." He discovered a book after searching through his robes, but it was unlike any he had ever seen. He had never read a book as old as this one. "The First Dragon, Titan Creator of Our Kind," was the title. "I never knew, Dad, might as well," he thought nonchalantly before starting to read. In a time before gods, the universe was one big plane with a single sun that illuminated everyone and a single moon that cycled at night. One of the two empires stood for all that is good and lawful, while the other represented chaos and evil. The first vampire, werewolf, and other races were created and raised by the evil emperor, who also created many of the monsters of today. He employed each as the focal point of an effort to corrupt and erode the other empire. They built armies of their new races and were strong, but they were unable to overcome it. But at last, while he was deep in meditation, he remembered his final race to create. It was made from the blood of numerous demons, reptiles, and elements, and the young child was fed the flesh of humans, dwarves, elves, and any other decent race. The first dragon was let loose 3 centuries later. It had unmatched power. Its footfall could cause earthquakes, and its roar shook the sky. It was so enormous that the length and size of the spikes on its back resembled a mountain range. Its enormous wings could cause storms that could submerge entire continents and blocked out the sun. Armies were terrified by its roar, which had the power to use dragonfire to melt their flesh off their bones. Its body resembled that of a normal dragon, but it was so monstrous that it gave the impression of a dark titan that had evolved into a mass-murdering monster. It served as the spearhead as the evil emperor's armies swept through the good empire, almost capturing it. The dragon challenged any warrior with the guts to engage him in single combat at the Battle of Last Hopes. A humble archer did. The archer prepared his bow while the dragon just laughed. The dragon was injured in the jugular by this bow, which was unique in that it sent the arrow with an incredible velocity. The Bow of Wounded Titans was the name given to that exact bow. At that time the empire began to withdraw, but the emperor remained proud of his creation. He used the dragon as his last line of defense to protect and rule his capital city and stop his enemies from launching a similar campaign. He ruled for a long time, but nothing important happened to him until centuries later, when a woman entered his life. Time Reversal Jutsu. The evil empire's capital, with its trillions of inhabitants working in congested streets beneath the shadow of medieval-style skyscrapers and a huge castle serving as the empire's capital, the enormous city was incredibly busy. There was a huge influx of new slaves coming in. A selection was being made for laborers and savants for the dragon's castle, but the majority were taken to work in and around the city. The last slave, a light-skinned wood elf woman, was examined with the same degree of care as the others by the slave master. A hugely muscular man of about 6 feet 6 inches, she was small, standing only 5 feet 5 inches, with a narrow, innocent face and a thin body. She wore tattered clothing and wraps around her hands and knees. Just like any other slave, despite her thinness, she appeared capable of working. He took her by the arm and pulled her, saying, "You're coming with me." Many of the guards gave her lustful glances as she was being dragged, and many of them also attempted to feel her. It happened so quickly that she was unable to comprehend what was happening. At last, he threw her into the enormous room with leather sleeping bags that was the female slave quarters. "All right, slaves. Listen up, I'll say this once, and only once. You are no longer free, or even who you previously were. Your lives are in my hands, and I will make you work. You work hard, you live, get feed, and are able to work more. Don't work. I'll punish you or maybe kill you tomorrow. You will be assigned your schedules," he said, and then locked the heavy metal door behind him. They huddled together to stay warm because the stone room was so cold. In a darker corner of the room, the woman who had just been thrown in was left to shiver out of sympathy. One came to huddle with her. She inquired, "What's your name?" Kira said, "Kira, what's yours?" "Mika, I hope I could get working today, then maybe I wouldn't freeze in here," Mika replied. Kira questioned, "What will they make us work on?" "Housework, sexual pleasures, maybe be sold to make them money. That's what I could probably see," Mika responded. The slave master, who was responsible for sorting the slaves, went to the dragon's office. He was using magic to create a new human form instead of his original one. He had black hair, white skin, and a heavily muscular body. He was 7 feet tall. Any woman would likely fall in love with him right away due to his human standard beauty, and men would be immediately intimidated. He was in his favor, so the slave master wasn't. The slave master said, "Sir, all the slaves you bought are sorted and ready for work tomorrow." "Good, I'm glad I have you. Your predecessor was nowhere near as good at doing your job," the dragon replied. The man humbly said, "Thank you, my lord, I do it only for your benefit." The dragon said, "You have the rest of the day off." He bowed and walked away, saying, "Thank you, my lord, good day." With a sly smile, he set to work writing a letter to a nobleman whose name even the dragon couldn't recall. After all the names he had throughout his life, only a handful remained for him to recall. That they were the only ones that were important. He was aware, however, that he required a new personal servant. Perhaps before granting him the day off, he ought to have asked his slave master that question. He walked quickly from his office to the slave quarters and watched the slaves shiver in the frigid, damp room. With him around, the guards were especially vigilant. His red, reptilian eyes carefully scanned the slaves. Immediately, every female slave turned away from him. But Kira was the only one among them who didn't turn away. Even though she was terrified of him, she couldn't take her eyes off him. Then he looked into her eyes as she gazed into the red eyes that pierced her like a sword and made him appear like a demon straight out of hell. Air left her lungs since she was the only person who didn't turn away from him. He was also attracted to her. His face stretched into a tiny smile that only she could see. The guards seized Kira and pulled her out after he said, "Bring me the wood elf over there." One of the guards questioned, "Is this the slave you wish, master?" The huge man took hold of her right arm and said, "Yes, you two go back to protecting them. I'll take care of her." He carried her to a storage closet, practically lifting her off the floor. Subsequently, he placed a collar on her neck that was similar to the ones worn by French maids. He then gave her a maid outfit and some plain white underwear. "Put this on in that room over there from now on. You're my personal servant," the dragon replied. Kira mutely answered, "Yes, master," and followed his instructions. Although the dragon didn't find her attractive by any means, he was able to see that she might be useful to him. Although it was a little loose on her, she wore this maid outfit when she first appeared that could be fixed with a more consistent and nutrient-dense diet. She approached him timidly, embarrassed to be wearing such a garment. "Today I will have a guard posted to you, as you must learn the castle inside and out. Don't come back to me till you have memorized the entire castle," the dragon said. She bowed and said, "Yes, master," he said, "I'll be in my office," and turned to leave. Hours went by as Kira gradually started to understand the castle's surroundings. All the guard did was follow her and ensure she didn't try to get away. That was enough to be avoided by his presence, but her body gradually started to divert him from his duty. Her butt would giggle a little whenever she moved her legs, and he approached gradually. An hour later, the guard decided to take action. If he used his slave just once, his master probably wouldn't mind. The guard jumped her as she turned a corner and pushed her against the wall while holding her wrists. "What's going on?" Kira questioned, struggling against his weight and hold. His shit-eating smile said, "Calm down, slave girl, we have time, don't have to rush things today." The guard stood in ash after being burned by a burst of white fire. Before he could move any farther, the dragon approached, glaring at Kira but not at her. Then his gaze shifted to Kira. Examining her wrists, he inquired, "Are you alright?" Kira said, "Why yes thank you." She was so intimidated by his proximity. He pulled her to a tiny bedroom with a bed and a few other pieces of furniture and said, "You've had enough for one day, tomorrow you start working. This is your room, you may only go here if I dismiss you for the day, understand?" He went on. As Kira put it, "Yes sir," the dragon said, "Good, you're dismissed for the day, good night," and walked away. She said, "Good night master." She then noticed some food on a small table and started eating right away. The following day Kira discovered that the dragon's workload was manageable in a matter of hours. He barely noticed her as she brought him any food or drink he asked for and cleaned his office. He only signed documents and occasionally hosted people in his office for talks. When the dragon looked up from his desk, he saw her dusting one of his office's shelves while standing on her tiptoes for the first time. He showed interest when he noticed her panties exposed, but he only used his peripheral vision to keep her from seeing. She leaned over to give him a clear view after realizing she had knocked off a book. The dragon has the nosebleed of a perverted human, even though it is one of the most powerful creatures ever made. Kira hurried over to him and asked, "Master, are you alright?" The dragon said, waking from a fantasy, "I'm fine." He started to wonder why this occurred as she washed the blood from his face. He had never been attracted to anyone in his lengthy life, so he couldn't tell if he was attracted to her. Was there something deeper about this wood elf? Or was it just a physical attraction? She did have a pleasant disposition right now. All he could tell was that she was sweet, compassionate, and totally obedient. He only needed it. The dragon commanded, "You are the dismissed for the day." Kira replied, bowed respectfully, and walked away, saying, "Thank you, master. I need to solve this," the dragon thought, "and I can't believe I have to go to him for it," before departing. Close by, in a big city mansion, the dragon sighed and rapped on the enormous, elaborate doors. When a butler opened the door, he was taken aback. The man said, "Master Dragon, how may I help you?" The dragon, somewhat embarrassed, commanded, "I wish to speak with your master immediately." With a, "Oh course sir," response, the butler ushered him in. He noticed that it was extremely elaborate, with a wolf and werewolf motif throughout. As the dragon entered, he followed the butler until they reached the door leading to his throne room. The knobs on the doors resembled the heads of wolves. The door was knocked on by the butler. There was a growling voice that said, "Who's here, Jarvis?" The butler, who seemed accustomed to the menacing tone of the voice, answered, "Sir, it is the great dragon himself." The voice said in surprise, "He's here? Well, don't just stand there, let him in," and the burglar hurriedly opened the door. The dragon was astounded by what he saw. When the doors were opened, there were many pregnant women on both sides of a red carpet in the spacious throne room. None of them dared to set foot on the red carpet, and they all wore collars around their necks. As he approached the throne, he noticed a man of average size sitting there, with black hair and red eyes. With reverence, the dragon remarked, "So this is the wolf's den. What does the reptilian god need from humble me to visit my abode?" The man responded. To his embarrassment, the dragon questioned, "You as a werewolf and by your many wives, are a mastermind with the ways of the female mind, am I correct?" The werewolf retorted, "You asked and answered your own question. I failed to see your point." The dragon said, "I need you to teach me how to talk to a woman." The werewolf almost fell from his throne when he said, "You, the greatest creation of our master, a cold-blooded army killer, has fallen for a mortal woman? Either I'm dreaming or I am higher than a kite." The dragon got right to the point. "Will you help me or not?" The werewolf got off his throne and led him away, saying, "Of course I will. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Come, my little brother, let me enlighten you in the ways of the female mind." The following day, dragon's office. Remain composed, remain composed. She is enslaved. She is under your control. You have to treat her with love and kindness. As Kira cleaned his office, the dragon told himself, "You can do this." The dragon commanded, "Kira, come here." Her face was innocently ready as she asked, "Yes sir. How may I help you?" The dragon attempted to say, "I," but was unable to continue. He was stopped by something about her. She stood close to him and dazzled him, her small, innocent beauty standing obediently. She awaited a response. The dragon's face blushed slightly as he forced himself to attempt establishing a romantic relationship. Sheepishly, he said, "Can you go get me something to eat?" She placed her hands on the desk and said, "What would you like?" She departed after he responded, "Surprise me." The werewolf covered his face with his hands in self-disgrace and then climbed through the window. This was a fine art that they had practiced, and it all came together at the last minute. The werewolf looked in a book and said, "Okay, time to look up this elf. Let's see here. Elf's funny. She doesn't look like any run-of-the-mill elf." Muffled, the dragon said, "Try subtypes: Arctic, dark, dusk, fire, mountain, savage, tower, wood. Wait a minute, here we go. She's a wood elf. Small little buggers, aren't they? Short by elf standards, they guard forests of all kinds against harmful creatures with humanoids and intelligent beings. They are known to be silver-tongued, using their beauty and talking skills to sway their adversaries away. They also emit a pheromone that disrupts the opposite sex's thoughts and makes them attracted to them. Also, they have no control over that pheromone. Well, there's your problem. The werewolf began to read. The dragon said grimly, "How can I handle this? I can hardly talk to her, and I have all power over her. I think you need to talk with her on more of a normal level, discuss things, get to know her, maybe even have her stay the night in your room once it's all over." The werewolf grinned broadly. The dragon casually answered, "Now I see why all your wives are constantly pregnant." After 30 minutes the werewolf was gone. When Kira returned, she brought a jug of ale and a big steak. The dragon interrupted her as she was ready to start her other responsibilities. He pulled her back to him with a tug. "Yes, master?" she inquired, perplexed. "For this I give you permission to say anything you wish. What is your opinion of me?" asked the dragon. Kira inquired. "My opinion of you?" The dragon went on. "Yes, I want you to be honest," she said timidly. I think your workload is reasonable, but..." The dragon thought, No, please don't say what you're going to say," and became anxious at once. "I am terrified of you," she went on, closing her eyes as she feared his reactions. The dragon rose and loomed over her without a word. Then he approached her and effortlessly picked her up in bridal fashion. Kira's body froze in terror. Her eyes squeezed shut after carrying her through the corridors to his bedroom. The dragon laid her down. He then knelt down and gave her a kiss on the lips. She instantly opened her eyes to meet his intense gaze. Although she could see his pupils, she was unable to determine the color of his eyes. It was an odd, unfathomable hue. Then he spoke, breaking the kiss. All he could say was, "I love you," she answered. I don't know what to say, master." He smiled and said, "You will in time, and I will accept it." Kira inquired, "What is your name?" The dragon responded, "I don't have one." Kira hugged him and said, "I don't think you need one. It would ruin the mystery about you." The dragon said, "Well, would you like to join me tonight?" Kira said, "Of course, master," and the two shared a kiss. Reversion to end time jutsu as laborers attempted to move the tower away from him. The dragon merely grinned as debris gave way to a stormy sky. Although he didn't think it was necessary, he thought the location was cute and cozy. He thought he saw his parents in a flash of lightning when he looked up at the sky grinning at him. Even though he doesn't recall them, he wishes he had.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.